No one expects Ray Endo, a broke part-timer, to become the key to humanity's survival. It all begins when he escapes his harsh days by diving into Prophecy Online, a full-dive VR game so real you can hear, smell, and feel everything, and it promises rewards so huge they could last 1,000 years. Ray laughs it off, until a random email calls him the top-ranked tester and drops 1 million yen into his bank account. Suddenly the scam feels like a miracle, and Ray throws his whole life into the game, grinding through cruel towers where pain is real, and losing means your data gets erased forever. He clears it at last, and gets nothing but a thank you message and a shutdown notice. A week later, Ray wakes up and an information panel appears. Moscow failed a trial and was wiped out. The news confirms it. A monster blasts a helicopter out of the sky. Now Japan is the next target, with only 43 days left to kill the boss. Ray finally understands what the admin meant by an invaluable asset. Since he's the only one who clears the game, it means he's the only one with the power to save the world. But Ray is not thinking about becoming a hero alone, as he plans to turn the power into money. Ray knows that if the game had become reality, the spots for earning experience points would become battlegrounds. Since he knows where the closest dungeon is, Ray makes his move, and he dashes through the street. He can hear the people still talking about the report. Someone even suggests that they run away, but his colleague lets them know that there is no escape, since the buses and trains are not freaking working. Suddenly, Ray runs into a blonde-headed dude who screams at him to stop. Ray immediately recognizes the dude as Takuo, the loan shark. Takuo tells Ray that he was just on his way to his house, and he flicks his cigarette stick at Ray's face, telling him to turn around. Apparently, a year ago, public information came out from a certain organization, telling about Prophecy Online gamers that their company is willing to lend them 200,000 yen without any interest fee on it. However, this is for those who pass screening, and with this cash, they assure the players that they will have less time gathering funds but more time playing the game. However, the company lets them know that they are going to be taking half of the rewards earned from the wealth. When Ray sees this offer, he realizes that it is a good offer, since the money is interest-free. In addition, Ray is relaxed because he only has to pay the money when he has earned enough. Without thinking twice, he borrowed the money, but he soon realized that it was a trap. Just as promised, 200,000 yen was deposited into his account, but the moment he finished using up the money, a contract with an outrageous interest rate was sent to him. The company told him that he didn't pass their screening, and because of this, he owed 50% interest in just 10 days. Threatened and scared, Ray started looking for ways to pay the debt. He even sought out card loans with lower interest rates to gather repayment funds. However, whenever Ray tried to repay, the company would intentionally cut off contact and wait for the interest to grow. When Ray could no longer repay the money, the company resorted to using forceful collection methods. Now in the present day, Takuo has tracked him down, telling him that it is time for him to pay the money. Ray then reminds the dude that they refused to take the money when he tried to repay. Takuo laughs at Ray, telling him that he is only making up excuses because he doesn't want to pay his debts. Takuo then tells Ray that he needs something else from him, since he already said he would be diving into the game. Takuo suddenly grabs Ray, screaming at him to tell him everything he knows about the game. Ray simply tells the dude to get his filthy hands off him, but Takuo is pissed that Ray has the effrontery to speak to him the way he likes. Ray then tells him that he is going to give him just one piece of advice, or rather show him. Out of nowhere, Ray activates a skill called the Fist of the Novice, which ultimately increases his fist power by 50%. A blue-like element covers his fists, and before Takuo knows what is happening, he is punched into the distance. He crashes to the ground in pain, and Ray lets him know that in the current world, he outranks him. With the dude barely breathing, Ray leaves him by the roadside and runs off. Meanwhile, some guys are in their vehicle, and they witnessed Ray just use a Prophecy Online skill. There is a strange dude wearing a hoodie in the car, and with his demeanor, he appears to be experienced in the game too, but he is surprised that he is meeting an experienced player too soon. The dude can clearly see that things are about to get even more interesting because very soon, law and order will collapse. Moments later, Ray arrives at the dungeon called the Sanctuary of the Goat. Upon arriving at the entrance, Ray realizes that the dungeon actually looks exactly the same as in the game. However, he notices a car parked outside and he realizes that someone is already in the dungeon. Nonetheless, he proceeds into the dungeon, and as he moves closer, he can smell blood. He gets to the dungeon lobby hall to find a bunch of dead monsters, and standing above them are a group of players. Surprisingly, the dude wearing a hood is there, and Ray asks him if he was the one who killed the monsters. The dude confidently replies that he is responsible, while saying the monsters are called flare lizards. In fact, the dude believes he is the reason Ray is still alive because the flare lizards are dangerous. Ray is surprised to hear this because, with what he knows, the flare lizards are the weakest of the weak. The dude finally takes off his hoodie, telling Ray to become his subordinate since he doesn't have any friends. The dude tells Ray that all he has to do is hand over half of his earnings and he will protect him. Ray then calmly tells the dude that he is not interested because he likes going solo. Ray then adds that he is super sure that the group cannot beat the boss there. The hoodie is pissed when he hears this, and he turns to his subordinates, telling them that once they finish killing the boss, they have to kill him too. The lady among them is surprised to hear this, saying they are already going too far by doing that. However, the hoodie guy says other players are just obstacles, and it is better that they have fewer people who know the game information. He confidently tells them that what he decides is final, and whoever opposes him will suffer an accidental death. Apparently, the boss in the dungeon known as the Smoldering Goat isn't a tough enemy, and once it is defeated, it usually takes 7 days for it to respawn. The dude tells his comrades that they cannot allow anyone else to get the last attack. He then adds that Ray has to stay outside until they have killed the boss. They check the timer, and they realize that there is just over 5 minutes for the door to open. Ray soon realizes that 3 of the players, including the girl, are standing guard to make sure he doesn't enter. Ray playfully asks the trio if their plan is to block his way, and they say yes. They suggest that he wait outside, and even though Ray can easily wipe them out, he decides to just wait around because he knows the end result of their foolish decision. Ray figures out that he is going to make his move after they have all been slaughtered, and he just lets them stroll into the boss's room without challenging them. While they are entering the boss's room, Ray is busy sipping a packet of straight tea, waiting to see how far the dudes can go. The moment the door closes, the team leader asks his comrades if Ray didn't follow them, and they assure him that he didn't. He is glad to hear this, saying it is not convenient for them to have any nuisances around. One of them mentions that Ray might have realized that they were planning to make it look like an accident, but the team leader believes that Ray is not that sharp. The team leader then turns to the shield dude, telling him to stay focused, and the dude assures the team leader that with his shield, the dungeon boss is nothing because he is wielding an epic-grade sealed shield. Suddenly, they are hit with a fearsome gust of wind that is accompanied by a huge fire. Fear grips the team leader when he realizes that something horrible might have just emerged. When the fire effect cools down, a large giant goat with a human upper body, wielding a large hammer, appears in the room. It turns out that this fearsome beast is known as the Scorching Goat, and not the Smoldering Goat that they were expecting to see. The goat lets off a loud roar that sends the players in different directions. They all get hurt just from its roar alone, and the team leader realizes that they are in a big mess. The team members start asking him what they are supposed to do, and he screams at them, telling them that it is time they retreat. However, they soon realize that they are screwed because the door won't open from the inside. While everyone is scurrying to safety, the team leader tells the shield dude to stay back and be the decoy because his shield should be able to block the goat's attacks. The shield guy wants to argue this, but the team leader insists, and the shield guy has no choice but to turn around to face the goat. However, by the time the goat makes its move, the shield guy realizes that he is done for. The goat's hammer alone is huge enough to take in 10 of his shields, and before he knows it, he gets slammed into the ground. When the others see this, they scream out in pain and horror because they know what this means. The goat adds to their fear by picking the dude and his shield to chew them as if they are biscuits. The team sees this and cries out in fear, calling the goat a coward and a monster, which obviously it is. The team leader knows that something like this shouldn't have happened because the monster they came to defeat is called the Smoldering Goat, which is a low difficulty monster that even a level 1 player can defeat if they know the strategy. However, that was an updated version of the story because the original Scorching Goat that appeared in the early game was said to be unbeatable. The dude believes that the unbeatable version should have been removed because this is said to be the latest version. Suddenly, he remembers that Ray is still outside, and since they can't handle it from the inside, he believes that whoever is outside can help. The dude immediately runs to the door, screaming through his lungs, telling Ray to come into the boss's room, assuring him that he is going to share the reward with him. The team leader continues banging on the door, telling Ray to enter because he knows that he can hear him. Just then, the goat swings its hammer again, throwing the team members to the ground just like before. While staring at the goat from the ground, the team leader realizes that they are going to die at this point because the monster is too strong. Just then, Ray enters the room, mocking the team leader for talking so big when he is just a shitty weakling. With a smirk on his face, Ray tells the dude that he is not cut out for the leadership role. The team leader is pissed at the humiliation, and he decides to use Ray as a distraction to escape the boss's room. The team leader then rushes toward the exit, telling his team members to run too, so that they can leave the monster for Ray to handle. The team members acknowledge his order and start running to the entrance, but as the lady runs past Ray, Ray tells her to stop. He tells her that they can't leave the room. This is proven as the team leader rushes to the door, trying to make it out before it closes. However, he gets caught between the doors, and he screams out in severe pain. The goat is pissed at just how noisy the dude is, and the goat walks over to the team leader to smash him to nothing with his giant hammer. This is when it dawns on the surviving team members that they are done for. They start asking what it is that they are supposed to do, and Ray cuts in. He picks up the dead team leader's sword, admitting that he has a good sword even though he is a weakling. Ray then turns to the beast, telling it that the sword is enough to deal with it, but the beast is pissed at this. The goat tells Ray that since he wants to die, it is going to grant him his wish. The goat swings its hammer at Ray and it shatters the floor, but by the time he realizes what is going on, Ray is already above his head. Before the goat can make a move, Ray easily cuts off its horns to embarrass it. Ray then walks up to the girl and the dude who survived with him. He lets them know that he is willing to save them as long as they pay him 10 million yen. The girl is surprised to hear this, and Ray reiterates what he said just in case they have both gone deaf. The dude then fires back, saying they don't have 10 million to pay him, and the girl supports him, telling Ray that he is basically taking advantage of them. Ray then tells the dude that if they don't have the money, they have to work for it, since they don't want to die so young. Ray tells the two that they are going to work under him and hand over 90% of the rewards they earn from defeating monsters. He tells them that he would have taken everything, but as a service, he is going to let them keep 10%. The two are shocked to hear this, and they scream at Ray for mocking them. They add that even their scum-dead team leader was only asking for 50%, since they are not ready to pay him. Ray tells them that he has no choice but to abandon them. Just then, the goat regains its strength and it screams at Ray for cutting its proud horns. The goat assures Ray that it is going to kill it in the worst possible way. The goat breathes fire on them, but Ray dodges the attack. On the other hand, the girl is able to create a barrier to block the fire, but even the after effects of the fire send them to the ground. When everything clears off, Ray expresses his surprise that the two are still alive, but he tells them that he will be waiting to see how long their luck will last. Realizing the danger, the two quickly tell Ray that they are ready to do what he wants. Since they have both agreed, Ray finally decides to protect them. Ray turns to the goat, telling it that it's been a while since he last defeated it. But the goat is surprised to hear this, since it has no memory of losing to a human. Even the two are surprised, and they believe that Ray is speaking nonsense because even in the game, the scorching goat was never defeated before being removed in an update. Unknown to them, the game was never updated because Ray once defeated the scorching goat, and from its subsequent respawn, it transformed into the smoldering goat. The goat tries to crush Ray with its hammer, but Ray easily deflected the hit, shocking the beast. Even the two are shocked to see this, leaving them to question just who Ray is. Ray himself knows that the goat's last attack would have been instant death for even a level 50 veteran player, not to mention a level 1 player like himself. However, Ray doesn't see the goat as a threat, as long as one knows the trick behind it all. Ray leaps toward the goat and he creates a series of confusing movements to leave the goat wondering where his attack is going. Before the goat knows it, it starts to panic because it can't get a single hit on Ray. Before it knows it, Ray lands a powerful slash to its left eye, while telling the goat that its movement patterns are exactly the same as in the game. The two who are watching the whole thing unfold are blown away when they realize that Ray is pushing back the monster, and they cheer him on, telling him to take down the goat. Instead of appreciating their motivation, Ray simply tells them to shut their mouths, and they can't believe just how annoying Ray is. Ray continues running around the goat, but at some point the goat seems to have caught on, and it tells Ray that he has reached the end. Just then, Ray realizes that the goat has cornered him against the wall, and the goat asks him if he has any last words. Instead of showing any sign of weakness, Ray simply tells the goat to drop dead, while calling it the B word. Ray then tells the goat that it is so weak that it can't even land a hit on him. This pisses the goat off so hard that it cooks up a powerful black fire breath. The two are shocked when they see this because they can feel just how intense the fire is. Apparently, the black flame has the power to burn everything and can even incinerate level 99 players in an instant. To make it worse, it is an area-wide attack, which is why it is the scorching goat's desperate last stand when cornered. The goat believes that Ray has no escape, but unknown to it, this is actually what Ray has been waiting for. Ray immediately activates the beginner skill called Beginner's Luck. This increases his leg power by 50% and Ray dashes out of the corner. He admits that the flame that burns everything is incredibly powerful, but this will leave the goat completely defenseless. In addition, the goat's mouth is not strong compared to its bite force. Before the goat knows it, Ray has appeared right above its head, and Ray pushes it to the ground. Since the goat's mouth is not strong, Ray figures out that the strength of a level 1 player like himself will be enough to hold it down. With Ray standing on the goat's mouth, he prevents it from breathing out the black flame. To make it worse, once the black flame that burns everything is activated, it can't be stopped midway. This means the flames will rampage inside the goat's body. With a mocking tone, Ray tells the goat that he wonders if it will be able to withstand its own flames. By the time the flame is done cooking up the insides of the goat, Ray leaps off the goat's head to avoid the immense pressure that it is about to leak out. Ray mocks the goat, saying farewell to it, and just then, the flame finally gets to leak out, and it erupts into a large fire that destroys the goat. Ray makes the superhero landing with the fire behind him, giving him a spectacle to aura farm. Moments later, the notification comes in, telling Ray that the unique boss, Scorching Goat, has been defeated. What is left of the beast is a charred body, and the two are left in shock because Ray managed to defeat the boss, and they also survived. The lady is blown away by the fact that Ray just defeated such a scary monster without a scratch on him. Ray soon gets a notification, telling him that he is the first player in the world to successfully defeat a unique boss. Because of this, the system informs him that he has been granted the unique title, the First Slayer. Ray is surprised to see this, since this is a system he has never seen in the game. It starts to dawn on him that this might not be the same game that he knows. Thanks to the title, the system tells Ray that damage inflicted against bosses will increase by 50%. Ray is completely overwhelmed when he sees this because he considers it an overpowered effect. Being the first player in the world to acquire a unique title, he is given a bonus where he can choose a subclass. Ray considers this generosity because he is not supposed to get this option so early in the game. The option soon pops up, asking him if he would choose his subclass, and Ray excitedly says yes. The system then informs him that once a subclass is chosen, it cannot be changed. Ray finds himself in the levitating space to choose his class, and without hesitation, he picks a subclass known as Soulsmith. Ray smiles after he is granted the class because he believes that he is about to make a fortune. After this, he notices that there are two drops, which is a dagger and a key. The girl recognizes the key, saying it is the sewer key, which lets one access a hunting ground where one can easily level up and earn a ton of rewards. The dude confirms this, saying their dead team leader mentioned it. Apparently, the dead guy was aiming for the key from the start. Ray grabs the key, and while spinning it around, he tells the two that the key is not a rare item because the Scorching Goat has a 1% drop rate for it. The girl and the dude cannot believe that Ray is treating such a rare item very casually, and this tells them that Ray is on a completely different level. Ray then grabs the dagger, saying it is called the Goat's Dagger, which he actually considers a decent drop. Ray walks over to a boulder to try out the dagger, and without putting too much effort, he slashes the boulder. The surviving idiots are shocked to see this because this means the dagger is extraordinarily sharp for it to have cut the boulder so easily. Even though the two are blown away, Ray still believes the dagger is not enough, and he hopes he can find the right materials. Moving on to the subclass, he knows that for others this is a side thing, but for him, he considers it his main class. Basically, most subclasses are useless, but rare subclasses can have broken abilities, and Soulsmith is one of the best. This is a subclass that allows the user to extract soul fragments from everything, like humans, animals, plants, and even minerals. These fragments can be used to create and enhance anything. It turns out that this is the only subclass that actually gives a chance to clear the game. Ray then activates a skill called the Soul Vision, which allows for the awakening of items. Ray uses this skill on the dagger, and he realizes that the required material is a Type F mage's soul fragment. Since he needs a mage for this, he figures out that the surviving girl, Rumi Seto, can come in. Ray uses the skill to assess her status, and he realizes that he can extract her soul fragment, but there is a condition to this, and this is the fact that he has to form a contract with her. In addition, Ray is informed that there will be no side effects during extraction. Ray is a bit taken aback because he didn't know he would need a contract before setting up the 90% profit-sharing deal. However, he is thankful that he found something useful. Ray then asks Rumi if she is interested in using the key to level up. Rumi and the dude are excited to hear this because it is a great opportunity, but Ray whips out a contract, telling them that any drop items listed on the note are his. He says he would count these toward their profit contributions. Without hesitation, the two accept this because they believe the key will provide a way for them to survive, even though they will be donating 90% of their earnings. Ray simply tells the two that they don't have to thank him because the more they earn, the more profit he gets. With this, the contract with Rumi is established, thus setting the extraction condition for the soul fragment. In no time, Rumi's soul fragment is obtained, and since Ray has gotten the material he needs, he figures out that it is time to complete what he started. Ray activates the Soulsmith skill and then awakens the goat's dagger. The dagger goes through a short process of awakening, and Ray gets the information that the dagger's awakening is successful. Thanks to this awakening, the dagger's attack power has increased, and the skill called Soul Slash is now usable. Rumi and her colleague are confused about what this means, and Ray shows them an example by swinging the dagger, unleashing a massive, invincible power that hits the wall behind them, shattering everything to create a space to the outside. Rumi and her colleague fall to the ground in shock, wondering how a human like them is able to produce such immense power. Ray, on the other hand, is not completely moved because he thinks the dagger is still the bare minimum. In addition to this, he has a bunch of lowly skills at his disposal, leaving him to wonder what is next on his list. Suddenly, Rumi sees Ray staring at her, and this unleashes an overwhelming aura that scares the life out of her. She holds her head in fear, believing that Ray is going to kill her, but Ray just runs past her. He walks over to the bodies and starts performing rites for the dead, shocking Rumi. After he is done, Ray finds a wallet filled with money, and his face lights up in excitement because he believes that this will cover his cab fare. At this point, Rumi and her colleague have come to the conclusion that Ray is even more dangerous than the scorching goat because he lacks morals. Later on, Ray heads to the outskirts of Komori because there is a hidden dungeon deep underground which is perfect for farming experience points. The monsters in the dungeon are tough, and on a normal day, one would need a party of 3 or more to challenge the dungeon. However, with the goat's dagger in his hands, Ray believes that he has what it takes to take on the dungeon. In fact, he plans to take all of the experience points for himself. Just as he climbs down the dungeon, a coin comes flying at him, but he easily cuts down the coin, and he immediately prepares for combat. It turns out that there are 3 dudes, Kuki, Adrian, and Ayan. Kuki smiles evilly at Ray, telling him that he has just entered their turf and it is out of bounds. Ray points his dagger at the dude, asking him who decided that it is his turf. Kuki mentions that the rule in the game was first come first served. Ray then tells them that he is willing to tell them a better hunting ground for a good price since they are 3. Ayan replies to the guy telling him that they don't need his help because they are fine right where they are. Adrian tells Ray that they are even ready to let him stay in the dungeon if he pays. Ray immediately realizes that the trio knows how to do business. He then asks them how much they want, and Kuki replies that they want 50,000 yen per hour. Kuki claims that he can make this back by taking down the monsters in the dungeon. Without argument, Ray agrees to the deal, and he pays up the 50,000 yen. Kuki collects the money, telling Ray that he now has exactly 1 hour from when he paid the money. Moments later, Ray makes his way to the wolf's cave, and as he steps in, he finds himself surrounded by a pack of dire wolves. The wolves are aggressive, but Ray knows that they are a mid-tier monster that is easy to farm for a good profit. In fact, this is the only place that they appear in packs. Even though Ray can use the Soul Slash to take out the wolves in an instant, he decides to save it in the meantime. Just then, the wolves make their move and lunge at Ray, but with quick movement, Ray cuts them into pieces. After taking out the entire pack, Ray whips out a packet of straight tea so he can relieve his thirst. Suddenly, Adrian attacks him from behind, but Ray's quick reflexes allow him to dodge the strike, and he manages to block the dude's knuckle attack with his dagger. However, he loses his straight tea in the process, and Ray swings his dagger in a counter, almost decapitating the dude. This leaves a small cut on his head, and Adrian admits that Ray's attack was a close one. Because the dude was able to dodge the strike, Ray easily figures out that he is used to fighting. Ray then berates Adrian, telling him that he and his guys really like ambushes because they came right after he just finished fighting monsters. Ray mentions their tactics, saying he knows all about it. And the other 2 finally step out, saying Ray must have noticed right from the start. Ray replies that he is aware of all of these because places like these are where scavengers like them like to stay. In addition, he found it suspicious that they were the only ones there. Ray then tells Kuki that he should have planted a decoy party if he really wanted to fool him. Kuki is pissed when he hears this, and deep down, Ray had already noticed everything the moment he saw their weapons. Adrian has knuckle guards on, and the rocket punch knuckle is basically a reckless super acceleration attack. Ayan's sword, on the other hand, uses high-frequency vibrations to create strong cutting power for a short time. Ray knows that if he didn't know this, one hit would have sent him straight to his ancestors. And Kuki, the leader, his ring is actually a troublesome piece of equipment. Kuki then tries to play cool, apologizing for sneaking up on Ray. He then suggests that they settle it with some hush money. He scatters a bunch of coins on the ground, and Ray is pissed that the dude is wasting money, which would amount to at least 10,000 yen. Kuki smiles at Ray, claiming that his hand slipped and asks if he can pick it up for him. Since Ray is not a fool, he knows that the whole thing is a trap, and he asks the dude if this is how he hands over hush money to someone, telling them to kneel to take it. It turns out that the ring he is wearing is an item that triggers a small explosion centered on a coin. Ray easily figures out that the dude is underestimating him because he thinks he doesn't know. Ray then tells the group that if they try to take down a prey stronger than them, they won't make it back alive. Kuki and his friends get into a combat position, and Kuki tells Ray that he talks a lot even though he is greatly outnumbered. Ray then confidently tells the trio that he doesn't care how many weaklings they are because if they count them, they are not worth a single yen. Kuki is pissed when he hears this, and he activates the coins to blow them up. Adrian also charges in, telling Ray that he had plans to kill him quickly before, but he has changed his mind. He promises to tear Ray limb from limb and inflict so much pain on him till he dies. Adrian is the first to reach Ray, and he throws a powerful punch at him, but Ray dodges the punch. The punch shatters the ground, and while Ray is still trying to balance himself, Ion appears behind him, ready to cut off his head. Ray is able to turn around in time to block the strike, but this immediately puts him between the two dudes. Even with the two jumping him at the same time, Ray is able to push them back, and he reminds them that he paid 50,000 yen for the space, but they have broken the contract. With a stern face and voice, Ray tells them that he will be taking back his 50,000 yen with interest. Kuki confidently tells Ray that he would pay the interest with exploding coins as he prepares to launch a full-on assault on Ray. Kuki then activates a coin explosion that sends flying coins at Ray, forcing him to run. While he is on the run, Ion leaps at him, ready to cut him down, but Ray blocks the strike. Surprisingly, this shatters Ion's sword, and while he is still watching in shock, Ray almost cuts his head off. At this point, Kuki starts to figure out that Ray's dagger might be an epic item, but at the same time, he doesn't think he and his guys are going to lose to Ray. The dude sends another wave of coins at Ray, forcing Ray to run around the room. Ray is pissed that Kuki is busy wasting coins, and suddenly Adrian appears behind Ray, ready to punch his head off. The attack appears to land, leaving catastrophic damage to the ground. A crater is left on the ground, and Ray's dagger flies into the air. Adrian raises his hand in celebration, saying he felt the hit, and he is pretty sure that Ray is already dead. While Adrian is busy celebrating, Ion is pissed that Ray broke his sword, leaving him to ask if there is a way to fix his sword. Kuki boasts that no matter how great the weapon is, if the user is just a regular human, it is useless. Kuki bends to take Ray's dagger, and he tells the team that it is time to collect the spoils of battle. Out of nowhere, Ion and Adrian get hit with the soul-binding skill that generates chains that lift them up and restrain them. Adrian and Ion scream in pain, while Kuki watches in confusion. From behind, Ray's voice emerges, talking about how he used the power of a soulsmith that directly tightened the soul. With a mocking voice, Ray says he knows that the pain must be worse than dying. Ray finally appears, and Kuki angrily dashes toward him, but Ray easily blocks the dude, telling him that he is too slow. However, Kuki argues that he is not slow as he unleashes a ton of coins from his body, ready to blow Ray away with them. Before the coins can activate, Ray activates the soul-binding skill to restrain Kuki. Kuki screams out in pain, demanding to know why his coin explosion didn't activate. Ray tells him that soul-binding can seal an enemy's skills, and if there is a level difference, Ray says it is basically easier than twisting a baby's hand. Kuki yells at Ray, demanding to know what trash level difference he is talking about because he is level 7, and he has been raising his level as fast as possible. After hearing this, Ray tells Kuki that he has done pretty well for a beginner, but he tightens the restraints more. Since he now has control of the situation, Ray suggests that they start their negotiations afresh. In fact, he plans to extract a fragment of the soul while they are at it. He checks out Adrian's fragment, which is a warrior's soul, and the condition to get this is to feed him until he is full. Ion, he is a swordsman, and he can extract his soul fragment if he meets his sister. As for Kuki, he is a mage, and to extract his soul fragment, Ray has to terrify him so much that he thinks he is going to die. When Ray sees this, he realizes that he can immediately extract Kuki's fragment right there. Ray then tightens the chain around his neck, causing him so much pain that he starts begging Ray not to kill him. Ray replies that he is saying trash because he actually needs him alive. Ray whips out his dagger, and this scares Kuki, who asks Ray what he means by this. Ray starts talking about his eyes, his blood, his organs, saying there are people all over the world who would buy everything he just listed. Looking like a villain, Ray tells Kuki that the 50,000 yen interest is pretty high. With fear in his voice, Ion asks Kuki if he thinks Ray would really do what he is threatening to do. Deep down, Ray is not even ready to go through the trouble of doing this because he believes that it is not worth the trouble. In addition, he can't believe that the dudes are so dumb that they believe a part-timer like him would have an organ trading route. However, when Ray speaks, he acts tough, telling Kuki to think of a way that makes more money than selling organs if he wants to live. Kuki then replies that he can't suddenly think of this, and he starts begging Ray, telling him that he would do anything. Tears of fear fall from his eyes as he begs Ray to spare his life, and as the tears touch the ground, it meets the condition to make Kuki fear Ray from the bottom of his heart. Ray then extracts his soul fragment, and after this, he releases the trio from the soul-binding chains. The trio crashes to the ground in pain, and Ray whips out contracts for them to sign. When the trio checks out the contract, they can't believe that Ray is demanding 90% of their income with a clause that they will always obey him. Ray simply overwhelms them with his scary aura, asking them if they have any complaints about this. The trio quickly replies that they have no complaint at all, and Ray commends them, saying that they are now his cash cows. Ray tells them that if they show any sign of rebellion whatsoever, the operating table will become their grave. Ray then adds that he would like them to take him to the person backing them. Kuki is shocked to hear this, and he asks Ray how he knows. Ray replies that their equipment isn't something that weaklings can prepare on their own, and because of this, he is pretty sure that someone is pulling the strings behind the scenes. Realizing that Ray is onto them, Kuki falls to his knees, begging him not to allow him to take this route, because if it gets out that he sided with someone else aside from his boss, he is going to get killed. Ray kicks the dude in the face, asking him what is scarier, his boss or an organ transplant with no anesthesia. Ayan stands up and runs off, saying he doesn't even want any. Ray simply grabs the guy with the soul-binding restriction, telling him that he cannot escape. Seeing their friend raised high in the air with the possibility of death, Kuki and Adrian immediately agree to cooperate. Ray then tells them that he is going to confiscate all of their weapons and money. It turns out that Ray is pretty confident that no one can hurt him now, and his confidence is right to have because he is currently a level 36 player with impressive stats to boot. Elsewhere in a circus, a dude, Roku, is seen beating up another guy. While there are a bunch of other guys stuck in a cell, Roku looks absolutely thrilled while beating up the innocent guy, claiming that he is useless. One of the dudes in the cell screams at Roku, telling him to stop beating up the dude because he might as well die if he continues that way. Roku replies that the dude is free to die because they are all useless idiots who have been holding the boss back. Just then, the boss appears from behind the curtain with a clown painting on his face. He asks Roku if he is done training the dude, and when he walks over to the dude, the boss claims Roku has gone too far. He tells Roku that there might be after effects if he breaks the guy's bones. The boss comforts the dude, telling Roku that the guild is already short on manpower, and even though the dude is useless, the boss doesn't think Roku is allowed to break him. While the boss is saying this, Roku watches in shock, wondering if he heard right. Roku then apologizes, and the dude who was getting beaten up thanks the boss, saying he will do the task properly next time. Suddenly, the boss brings out a whip and hits the dude with it. He smacks him on the mouth while telling Roku that this is how he is supposed to train animals. The boss claims that the whip is very effective because the flesh may tear but the bones will definitely not break. The boss is in the middle of beating up the dude when Kuki and his friends show up, telling the boss that they have returned. The boss immediately notices that something is wrong because the trio is not supposed to be back that fast. Kuki then struggles to talk as he tells the boss that they are in a bad state, and continuing the mission will be difficult. While he is busy explaining himself, the boss notices that he is not wearing his ring, and he immediately asks him where the ring is because he deems the ring more valuable than his life. At this point, Kuki starts to crap himself, and he explains to his boss that the ring was taken by a monster, who is ridiculously strong. The boss is not ready to hear his excuses, and he hits him with the whip, screaming at him for being an idiot. The boss is frustrated that he has a bunch of useless trash working for him when they are supposed to be pushing really hard. Even though Adrian and Co. can't say it, they know everyone is quitting because of his power harassment. The boss then tells Roku to bring out his favorite pet, Johnny. Moments later, a scary white tiger, Johnny, steps into the room and walks over to where Kuki is. This is when Kuki realizes that he is about to die, and he starts screaming, asking the boss if he is seriously trying to kill him, even though he has always been loyal to his orders. The boss ignores his plight and tells Johnny to enjoy a nice fresh dinner. The tiger leaps at Kuki, ready to tear him apart, but Ray appears on the scene and kicks the tiger so hard that it passes out. Kuki crawls on the ground, trying to get to safety, while the boss watches his tiger roll into the distance. Ray then tells the boss that he is not ready to stand around and watch the dude kill his precious cash cow. Kuki lets off a bright smile when he realizes that Ray has arrived on the scene, and he is somewhat safe already. The boss runs over to check on his terrified tiger, and he pets it. The trio then quickly meets up with Ray, telling him that he showed up so late because Kuki was about to become tiger food. While Ray is busy discussing with the trio, the boss hurls his whip at him. But this is nothing to Ray, as his reflexes kick into action, and he cuts the whip into tiny bits, shocking the boss. He immediately demands to know who Ray is, and Ray replies that he is the trio's new employer. Roku screams out in anger when he hears this, asking the trio if they have forgotten the favor that the boss did for them. Kuki replies, telling Roku that he doesn't owe the stupid boss anything. Ayan agrees with Kuki, saying he was only following the boss because he was scared, but he has met someone scarier than him. Ray then turns to the dude who just finished receiving a beating, telling him that if he signs a contract with him, he is going to protect him from his clown boss. The dude is shocked to hear that they have an option to escape the hellhole they have been living in. Ray assures the dude and those in the cage that he can free them, but all they have to do is give him half of their earnings. In addition to this, he is going to give them info on how they can clear the game instead of staying in a trash circus. When Kuki and his friends hear this, they start protesting, reminding Ray that he is taking 90% from them. Ray simply replies that he is taking 90% because they tried to kill him. The boss soon loses his cool, saying Ray beat up his tiger and he is also trying to steal his subordinates. Annoyed, he promises to kill them all and send them straight to hell. Ray teases the dude, telling him that he is in Japan and such barbaric behavior is not allowed. The clown then replies that whatever he does is allowed as long as he has the golden card with him. He whips out a golden card, which is a guild operation permit, giving the clown, Andrei Lukic, the right to be a guild master. Apparently, the permit is granted by the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications, the Player Association Management Bureau, and Director Kenzo Yamano. When Ray sees this, he immediately figures out that the Japanese government is desperate after seeing what happened in Moscow. Andrei mentions that he has been given the guildmaster authority that surpasses the law just so he can clear dungeons. In fact, as long as he has the cards, even the police can't mess with him. Andrei tells Ray that power holds everything, and as it stands, he can kill Ray without any consequences. Ray cannot believe that a lot has happened while he was dungeon diving. Ray then whips out his dagger, asking Andrei if he would be able to do shady business just like him once he becomes a guildmaster. Andrei collects his gun from Roku, telling Ray that he is a fool because to become a guildmaster, he needs to be recognized as player rank B or higher. However, Andrei believes that Ray doesn't have to know this, since he is about to die. He aims his gun at Ray and fires off like a maniac, ready to put several holes in Ray's body. As the bullet approaches Ray, he activates a unique skill, the Soul Barrier. This is a skill that can only be activated by level 25 players and above, and a mage's soul fragment is needed. The barrier immediately comes up, and when Ray sees it, he realizes that he is in a big mess. Apparently, Russia used nuclear missiles in Moscow's ice trial, but they still couldn't clear it, and Ray asks Andrei if he knows why so many players don't use guns to clear dungeons. While saying this, Ray keeps moving toward Andrei with the barrier. Andrei panics, screaming at Ray to stay away from him, while firing his gun in desperation, hoping that it will crack the barrier. Before he knows it, the barrier pins him to the wall, forcing him to drop the gun in his hand. Andrei struggles to breathe, while the barrier pins him tightly to the wall, and Ray only lets him go when he has almost crushed all of his internal organs. By the time the barrier is taken down, Andrei is already coughing up blood, and he crashes to the ground while Ray lets him know that guns cannot clear dungeons, because skills will always surpass weapons. When the dudes in the cell see this, they are all left in shock, since they don't expect their leader to be taken down so easily. Ray then asks them for the final time if they are going to contract with him or not. Ray lets them know that, as a bonus for forming a contract with him, he will allow them to do whatever they like to Andrei. The moment they hear this, they get even more interested and agitated because they have a lot of grudges against Andrei that they need to settle. Andrei then tells Ray that whatever he is doing is illegal, but Roku urges him to calm down. Ray then replies that he doesn't really care, while reminding him that he was the one shouting "power is everything" some moments ago. Before the clown knows it, all the others have been set free, and he watches as they stand tall above him, ready to beat him to a pulp. Ray, on the other hand, is glad that he has managed to gather a lot of cash cows. He decides that he is just going to continue making easy money off of them. He then decides not to do anything yet until more impatient people show up for the trial. At this point, the trial is about 1 month left, and Ray believes that he is still on track. Sometime later, Ray decides to visit the Player Association headquarters, the Rank Certification Examination Hall. On his way to the headquarters, he hears some guys discussing the latest news. Apparently, if a player is ranked B or higher, they can get scouts from famous guilds for a high salary. In fact, there is a saying that they are going to get an annual income of several million yen. One of them then mentions that only 1% of players in the country are ranked B, and only 9 people in Japan are ranked A. Apparently, it has now been 2 weeks since the game became reality, and many people have tried to earn the initial price of 100 million yen set by the Japanese government, but the result was catastrophic. This was when the Player Association made membership mandatory, and one can't challenge the trials or get rewards unless they join the association. Because of the interests available for this, Ray wants to be a part of it. Meanwhile, someone strange is watching Ray from above, and Ray soon gets the feeling that something is wrong. Suddenly, a sign pole falls from above, which is aimed directly at Ray, but he dodges it. Everyone is shocked to see this, and suddenly, an annoying voice calls out Ray's name. This annoying voice turns out to be Takuo, the loan shark dude. He jumps down to challenge Ray, asking him if he believes he has escaped the debts. Ray then asks Takuo if he is there to take the rank certification test too. Ray then reminds the dude that he was defeated with one punch from the fist of the beginner last time, and trying to take the test would be a total waste of time. Takuo confidently tells Ray not to think of him as the same person he was because he is now the strongest profession, spearman. Ray laughs out loud when he hears this, telling Takuo that he chose a profession that is usually picked by amateurs who don't know anything. Ray tells Takuo that the profession is strong at first, but in later stages, it becomes a burden because it can't keep up with inflation. Takuo is pissed to hear the mockery, and he asks Rei about his own profession. Rei replies that he is just a beginner, and Takuo almost dies of laughter when he hears this. Takuo tells Rei that he is practically jobless, and Rei assures him that he is not lying about being a beginner. Takuo then decides to punish Rei for the last time. He pulls out the sign pole and hurls it at Rei, using his spearman power. Surprisingly, Rei didn't even sweat before dodging the attack, and before Takuo knows it, Rei appears in front of him. Even though Rei has no intention of causing trouble before the exam, he cannot wait around because Takuo actually attacked first. Without putting too much effort into his strike, Rei sends Takuo flying into the distance, embarrassing him in front of everyone. To Rei, he is not concerned because he acted in self-defense. He then makes his way into the headquarters where he learns that the rank certification exam fee is 8,000 yen. Rei pays the money, and after a while, an attendant shows up telling him that it is time for his rank certification exam. The attendant takes Rei into a room that houses a giant purple crystal. Rei is expected to put his hands on the crystal, and without wasting time, Rei stretches his hand to the crystal. As he gets closer, an electrical signal interacts with the touch, and this lets off a bright white light that shocks the attendant with Rei. She is left wondering what is going on in front of her. When they return to the office, the attendant frantically tells him that the test shows that his rank is equivalent to A rank. The attendant then tells Rei that players can change jobs to various professions, like Swordmaster, Archbishop, and Magic Master. She lets him know that if he wants to change his profession, the association will fully support him. However, Rei doesn't even think about it twice before declining the offer because the profession he actually wants has not been unlocked yet. The attendant is curious, and she asks Rei which profession it is, and Rei replies that he has no intention of telling her. Usually, a special item is required to change jobs, and it is surprising that the association is saying that they are going to prepare the said items. However, Rei is not concerned because he can gather items himself. The attendant then asks Rei if he is sure about his option, and Rei says yes. The girl is surprised by this, and she asks Rei if his decision will not be a bit problematic for him. Rei asks why she says this, and the girl reveals that Rei's power surpasses any A-rank player that they have confirmed so far. Apparently, if he refuses to change jobs, he will be ranked E according to international standards. E rank is basically for beginners, and beginners sure have restrictions like not being able to create a guild. The attendant tells Rei that his decision is going to be disadvantageous to him, and Rei simply replies that the government sure likes making pointless rules. Since there is a restriction on guild creation, Rei thinks of having someone from his money-making army level up to B rank and then make them the guildmaster. However, he is not ready to change professions because, as far as he knows, the only profession that can clear the final trial of Prophecy Online is just one. Rei then asks the attendant if he is entitled to the 100 million yen for clearing the trial, even if he is E rank. The attendant says yes, but before she can say something else, Rei tells her that he doesn't really care. The attendant then decides to back down, while telling him that his registration has been issued as E rank. Upon stepping outside the headquarters, Rei sees several guild representatives standing outside trying to recruit players. 2 reps soon approach him, and they let him know that they are recruiting from D rank and higher. Rei simply answers that he is E rank, and the 2 immediately back off. It then dawns on Rei that E ranks are treated like lepers. This basically doesn't concern Rei because he doesn't even have the intention to follow others, so he doesn't care. Meanwhile, he is being watched by a certain strange representative, who seems to know what he is capable of. Without wasting time, the rep walks up to Rei to introduce himself. He reveals that he is from the guild, Genesis Wings, and his name is Saito Shinji. Those who are around hear the name and immediately figure out that Saito is the same person as Fyodor. Rei becomes interested in why they are calling him Fyodor. Saito then reveals that Fyodor is his handle name from when he used to play Pro Online. When Rei hears this, he realizes that he might be dealing with a famous person, and it might be nice for him to stay friendly for money-making purposes. Rei then asks Saito what he wants from him, and suddenly Takuo appears out of nowhere, saying he is the person Genesis Wings Guild has been looking for. Takuo starts saying trash like how expensive he is because he is B rank, and Rei cannot believe that a weak dude like Takuo is B rank. Saito tries to act cool, asking Takuo who he is while making sure he avoids trouble. Believing that Saito is weak, Takuo oversteps his boundary, and he grabs the dude's tie, asking if he should show him how strong he is. Saito soon gets tired of his shenanigans, and he tackles Takuo to the ground. Saito's playful and gentle face immediately transforms into something dangerous as he tells Takuo that he is busy having fun while the time of destruction is drawing near. Saito finally lets the dude go, telling him that he doesn't have time for him. Takuo leaves, embarrassed yet again, and Saito apologizes for the disturbance. However, Rei is not pissed because he knows how annoying Takuo is. The two then head to a cafe to talk, and Ray asks Saito why he is meeting with an E rank like him. Saito urges Ray to stop being modest because he is only an E rank because he refused to change jobs. When Ray hears this, he realizes that Saito got the information from the player association because it is personal information. Saito reveals that his guild is cooperating with the association in several activities because Japan's destruction is imminent and they cannot afford to be picky. However, he lets Ray know that this whole thing is quite expensive. Saito tells Ray that if he joins Genesis Wings, they are going to pay him the same amount as the information fee that they paid to the association. When Ray sees the amount, which is 10 million yen, he almost suffers a brain freeze. At the same time, he realizes that this type of money might have moved his previous self, but not someone like his present self. Ray then replies to the dude, telling him that he has no intention of joining a guild. When Saito hears this, he figures out that such a small amount won't move Ray because of the type of person he is. Saito then tells Ray that they can share the information that they have gathered with him because the guild is cooperating with government agencies and overseas guilds to create the world's best wiki. He mentions that this requires special conditions for access, but he assures him that they are going to offer him top-level authority. After hearing everything Saito has to say, Ray asks him if they have any data on players who have cleared the game. Saito laughs when he hears this, saying no one has been able to clear the game. This only pisses Ray off, and an overwhelming aura leaks from his body before telling Saito that he is not interested. Fear grips Saito, and he trembles as he passes his contact card to Ray, telling him to contact him if he ever changes his mind. He adds that their drinking bills will be on him, and he quickly walks off to pay the bills. On his way to the counter, Saito realizes that he gave in so easily because he was scared. He realizes that all of his instincts were screaming at him not to anger Ray, because he is a freaking monster. Suddenly, Ray taps him from behind, and Saito's soul almost leaves his body. Ray then gives him his contact information, telling him that he is free to contact him if he needs help, while adding that he might accept depending on the amount being offered. Saito takes the contact info and thanks Ray for it. But as Ray leaves, Saito is left wondering what sort of monster he is. Not long after this, Saito returns to the Genesis Wings headquarters and heads to the Guildmaster's office. The Guildmaster, Tsukino Yamagata, who is a red-headed lady, welcomes him back, asking him how his meeting with the supposed strongest went. Saito has no choice but to tell the Guildmaster that Ray is truly a monster. In fact, Saito lets her know that Ray is the first person to scare him just by talking to him. The Guildmaster hears this and decides to unleash her aura, asking Saito, who seemed stronger between her and Ray. Saito starts to stutter, and when the Guildmaster sees how much Saito is hesitating to answer the question, she has her answer. Saito then apologizes for this conduct, but the Guildmaster lets him know that there is no need to apologize because it is his job to convey the information that he has gathered with his own eyes without hiding anything. The Guildmaster also adds that she is at the bottom among the 10 Transcendents, and it is not a surprise that there are people who are stronger than her. When talking about the 10 Transcendents, they are considered the top 10 players in the Prophecy Online who received the bounty after being in a world where the game has become a reality. Basically, the Transcendents are strong individuals who possess immense power. In fact, their existence can influence the power balance between nations. And since Saito came back alone, it tells Tsukino that Ray rejected the invitation. Saito mentions that Ray doesn't seem interested in the information that Genesis Wings provides. Tsukino then says that if Ray is one of the Transcendents, he would have no need for money and fame because he already has this. Tsukino then says she doesn't think there is a way one of the 10 Transcendents would remain a beginner. She believes that there are players who gain their powers by using dark items that increase stats in exchange for severe side effects. Tsukino then tells Saito that she really trusts his discerning eyes. And if what he says is true, then Ray is truly the strongest in the world. Apparently, there is only one name that is missing from the 10 Transcendents, and this is the number 1. It turns out that the United States used electronic espionage networks to pinpoint the whereabouts of 9 of the 10 Transcendents. But the data on the number 1 is corrupt, which is why the name is unknown. However, there have been reports that the US is lying about the data being corrupted because they are hiding the last person. Saito lets Tsukino know that he didn't believe this rumor until he saw Ray. However, after meeting Ray, he is convinced that he might be the last one. Tsukino then says, judging by Saito's report, the report of Ray being the last person is pretty high. Tsukino then tells Saito to notify the guild members, telling them that from that moment onward, all hostile actions toward Ray have been banned. Tsukino considers Ray a ticking nuclear bomb that must be handled carefully. A few weeks after this, Ray rented an office in a shared building, which is basically the hideout for the money-making gang. The entire gang comes together to work on the new office to make sure it is well furnished. Kuki also shows up telling Ray that he has gathered the day's tribute. Ray checks out the money and he admits that it is pretty good. He then asks Kuki how the party strengthening is going, and Kuki assures Ray that everything is progressing just as he wants it. He mentions that leveling using the underground waterway key is going smoothly, and he makes 1 million a day. In fact, the newbies are earning at least $100,000 a day, and Kuki thanks Ray for the help so far because he didn't know they could earn this amount of money. Ray smiles, reminding Kuki that he already told him that he would make him earn because the more they earn, the more profit he makes. Ray then tells Kuki that the tribute is for the information fees. Deep down, Kuki admits that the fees are high, but at the same time, he believes that it is worth it because Ray has a lot of information to boot. Kuki then reminds Ray that the Earth trial will end in 10 days, asking Ray what he plans to do. He adds that the prize money has gone up to 400 million, and Ray replies that he would like to wait a bit longer. Just then, the news comes on showing a live report of where the Earth trial is currently being challenged. However, the situation doesn't seem to be progressing, and if it continues this way, it is evident that Japan is done for. Suddenly, the reporter receives a new update from the government, saying they have raised the reward for the trial to 1 billion yen. The reporter believes that the government has run out of options, and they can only pray that a capable player shows up to clear the trial. When Ray sees this, he figures out that foreign guilds might start coming in if they delay the whole thing any longer. Ray picks up his shirt and decides that it is time he tackles the situation. Kuki is shocked to see Ray leaving to clear the trial alone. Ray tells Kuki that he is offering to go alone because he can't put his money-making gang in danger. The gang hears this and starts blushing, but Ray wastes no time shattering their hearts by reminding them that the prize money is 1 billion yen, which means he gets to keep everything if he clears the dungeon alone. Shortly afterward, Ray arrives at the dungeon where the trial is being held. He finds Saito, who is happy to see him, and Ray quickly makes it clear that he is not there to cooperate with his guild. Saito immediately tells him that he actually brought a profitable proposition, and Ray, being the businessman he is, asks what the proposition is. Saito tells Ray that he is requested to transport cargo for 100 million yen. Ray is surprised to hear this, and he asks Saito what exactly he is supposed to be transporting. Saito points to a backpack, telling him that he wants him to deliver the backpack to one of their members who is inside. Ray cannot believe that he is delivering a backpack for 100 million yen, and he demands to know what is inside. Saito replies that what is inside the bag is food. Ray checks it himself, and he realizes that Saito is not lying. Ray notices a unique chocolate bar inside the bag, and Ray asks what it is. Saito replies that the chocolate is Tsukino's favorite treat. After this, Saito explains to Ray that their team is at the entrance of the 5th floor. Saito mentions that the clearing has taken too long, and because of this, the team has run out of food. Ray then asks Saito if there is some hidden agenda whatsoever, because if they are offering 100 million yen to deliver a backpack, a lot of people would be willing to take the job. Saito then replies that he would have liked to say the guild is a generous guild, but this would be a lie. Saito admits that they are currently in a bind. Apparently, they have asked 39 different parties to take the transport mission, and all of them ended in annihilation. Ray is confused by what he means by annihilation because the first 4 floors of the Earth trial should have been a formality. This leaves Ray wondering if the game and reality are different. The moment he says this, Saito confirms the fact that Ray actually knows something. Saito then tells Ray that as far as they know, the maze's mechanics are the same as in the game. However, almost no party has made it to the 5th floor, and the ones that have made it there are currently waiting for supplies. Saito then glazes Ray, saying he and Tsukino are the only ones who can consider the first 4 floors a formality. Ray picks up the backpack, wondering if they really have a shortage in manpower, but at the same time, he can't complain because he is going to make his money. Ray then asks Saito if there is going to be additional compensation if he manages to deliver the backpack quickly. Saito cannot answer this, and he steps away to check with the higher-ups first. While Saito is busy making calls, Ray is thinking of how to make more money from the guild. Saito soon returns, telling Ray that he has been promised an additional 50 million yen if he can deliver it in a day. Ray is glad to hear this, and he realizes that it was wise of him to have asked. Ray smiles ear to ear because he plans to deliver the backpack in an hour, not a day. Moments later, 2 players are seen struggling on the 3rd floor, and just as it seems all hope is lost, Ray passes by the 3rd floor and slashes the monster into tiny bits like it is nothing, while he simply continues his journey. The 2 adventurers are shocked to see that someone just saved them, but before they can properly thank him, he has dashed off into the distance. In no time, Ray reaches the 5th floor, and when he checks his time, he realizes that he only used 42 minutes to get there, which means he made 150 million yen in less than an hour. Suddenly, a player shows up, asking Ray if he is the Ray they have been waiting for. Ray also asks the dude if he is from Genesis Wings, and the dude confirms this. Ray then asks him for the person in charge because he has brought the food entrusted to him by Saito. Since he has done his side of the bargain, Ray suggests that they pay him immediately. Just then, the dude tells him that he is the one in charge, and the moment he left outside, the payment was already transferred to him. Apparently, the money was already sent to him because Saito assured them that Ray can't fail. Ray then whips out his phone, and he realizes that they have truly sent the money. Ray confirms the transfer and thanks the dude. The dude immediately calls out his colleagues, telling them that food has arrived. Everyone rushes to the food, talking about how they have been saved because they already believed that they were done for. It also turns out that the party has a lot of people, and suddenly, a bunch of dudes rush over to them. They believe that they have managed to make it to safety, and one person asks them what it is that they are running from. Suddenly, a loud noise hits the area, and before they know it, a swarm of insect monsters appears in the distance. Ray is still preparing to engage when a cloud of fire appears from behind and burns away all of the monsters. Ray is shocked when he sees this, and when he looks around, he sees that Tsukino is the one who just unleashed the attack. Apparently, this is an advanced skill of the elemental blader class called Hellfire Slash. Ray is impressed to see that there are still some people who can actually fight back. After wiping out the monsters, Tsukino walks up to Ray, thanking him for accepting the transport mission. With a bright smile on her face, she introduces herself and reveals her excitement to work with Ray. Tsukino initially looks like a fearsome tiger with her aura leaking everywhere as she approaches Ray, but she trips and soon finds herself in an aura debt. Ray manages to catch her before she hits the ground, and she blames this on the fact that she hasn't eaten in 3 days. Ray then tells Tsukino that he heard that she and her party are having trouble with supplies. In the background, the rest of the group is already fighting for the food that Ray just brought, which proves his point. Later on, Ray and Tsukino sit down to talk, and Ray asks Tsukino if she is the strongest among the party, and she confirms this. However, she confesses that she is the least among the 10 Transcendents. When Ray hears this, he just mocks the name, saying it is such a cringe-worthy name. Tsukino gets off her seat, saying she also doesn't want to be called that, but back in the day, they usually called the top players in the game the Transcendents. When Ray hears that they are the top 10 in strength, he asks her who determined the strength, and Tsukino mentions that it was revealed by an investigation from a US intelligence agency. However, there is one person still missing on the list, and this is the number 1 player. Apparently, all 10 received a reward from the game's operation, and Tsukino asks Ray if he got one. Ray is confused by this, and he asks Tsukino how much the reward was. Tsukino replies that the reward depends on the country, but in Japan, it was 1 million yen. When Ray hears this, he realizes that it was the 1 million yen that he got, which got him hooked on the game and nearly turned him into a roadside pauper. Nonetheless, Ray decides that it would be better to keep quiet if he is really the number 1 player. He knows that he is going to have a hard time moving around if this information gets out. Ray finally speaks out, saying the reward is pretty small compared to dungeon clearing rewards. Tsukino admits that the reward is small when looked at from a money perspective, but the knowledge gained from the game was far more valuable than the reward. However, even their experiences didn't work on all the bosses in the dungeon, and Ray is surprised that even the top 10 players couldn't clear the Earth Trial. Tsukino replies that no matter how skilled they are still mere humans, and if only they had the level and equipment from the game, they might have been able to somehow crack it. However, she believes that clearing the dungeon in the current state is impossible. Ray then stands up, reminding Tsukino that his mission is done. He urges her to tell him if anything else comes up, and he might consider taking it up depending on the reward. Ray then prepares to leave the tent with the intention of taking down the boss on floor 5 so he can get the 1 billion yen reward. Suddenly, Tsukino screams at him, telling him to stop. She asks him if he would like to cooperate in taking down the boss on the floor. Tsukino's subordinates are shocked to hear this, and they tell Tsukino that they can handle the boss themselves. They all believe that Ray's intentions are clear, and they cannot trust him. Tsukino immediately reminds the group that she already banned all forms of hostility toward Ray. Tsukino assures her subordinates that she understands how they feel, but she lets them know that she is not ready to lose any more comrades. Apparently, the group has been through a lot, and they have lost a lot in the process. In fact, the shield guy on the team had to sacrifice himself so that Tsukino and the others could escape from the front lines when things got really intense. Tsukino watches in horror as her comrade is torn to pieces by a monster, and she can't do anything about it. With pain in her voice, Tsukino lets her surviving comrades know that the more of them who survive, the better it is. She tells them that she is ready to bet on the possibility that Ray can clear the trial. Tsukino stands strong while addressing her comrades, letting them know that clearing the dungeon and bringing peace to Japan would be the best tribute to their comrades who gave their lives. Tsukino is able to motivate them into believing in what she believes in, but Ray speaks harshly, telling the group that he doesn't want any deadweights on the team because he can actually handle the boss himself. Tsukino is blown away by Ray's confidence, and she realizes that this increases the likelihood that he's the last of the 10 transcendents. Since she is curious about all of these, Tsukino is eager to see how Rei is going to fight in the battle. Once everyone is ready, Rei suggests that they move out. Upon stepping out of the tent, Tsukino reminds Rei that he said he would take a job depending on the reward. Tsukino then tells Rei that they would like to join the battle against the boss. The moment Rei hears this, he realizes that a business opportunity is about to open up for him again. Rei then turns to Tsukino, asking if she is not after the reward for the boss kill, and Tsukino replies that she is aware of the fact that they are a burden. Since this is the case, she wants Rei to think of the reward as compensation for the trouble they have caused him. When Rei hears this, he immediately negotiates his price, saying he is going to need 10 million yen per person. He mentions that the first half will come as an advance payment and whatever happens in the battle stays between them. Rei says these are his conditions, and since there is no guarantee for their lives, he tells them that the reward will be split among the survivors. After hearing everything, Tsukino tells Rei that she is cool with the deal. Meanwhile, most of the party is not happy with Tsukino's decision that they are going to join Rei in the boss fight. While they are busy arguing, Rei is busy thinking of the amount of money he can make. Moments later, the group runs into a swarm of monsters, and just like before, Rei is about to wipe them out, but Tsukino offers to take care of them. She places her chocolate bar in her mouth and talks about how angry she is whenever anyone interrupts her meal. She unleashes the Inferno Cyclone skill, which consumes all of the monsters at once, leaving Rei impressed. Her party members also praise her, saying this is the norm for Tsukino. With the monsters out of the equation, Tsukino swallows the chocolate bar, and she tells Rei that it is time they leave. Rei cannot believe that Tsukino finished the huge pile of snacks in just 10 minutes. Rei then brings out his phone, saying he has confirmed the advanced payment, and it is finally time for them to face Japan's first trial so that they can conquer it. As they proceed further down the dungeon, one of Tsukino's party members, a bald-headed dude, downplays Rei's efforts, saying he is disappointed that he doesn't have any flashy skills. He mentions that he is only using physical attacks when he was expecting something really great from him. However, Tsukino opens his eyes to the real situation of things, telling him to look at the monsters that Rei is taking down. Tsukino explains that the monsters have no external injuries whatsoever, which means he is killing them with a single thrust. The dude finally realizes that Rei is a skilled fighter. Tsukino can also see that Rei's movements are overwhelmingly precise, as if he doesn't even have to use any big techniques. Sometime later, they arrive at the front of the 5th floor boss room. The bald-headed dude from earlier says he has a bad feeling about the whole thing, but Tsukino motivates the team, telling them that it is time they take on the challenge so that they can avenge their fallen heroes. Tsukino even reveals her decision to go all out from the start, and the whole gang is behind her. They dash into the room to find a spider boss standing tall in the room. The fire users on the team, including Tsukino, all go all out from the start, throwing powerful attacks at the spider boss. This leaves a loud cloud of fire that leaves some of the party members believing that they have won, but Rei quickly corrects their delusion. When the fire clears out, the spider boss emerges with no damage to its body whatsoever. When Tsukino sees this, she is shocked because insect-type monsters are supposed to be susceptible to fire. Rei then mentions that they are right about the spider being weak to fire, but the power attack is actually not enough. Suddenly, the spider hits them with its webs, forcing them to all start running around to dodge. Tsukino urges her subordinates not to get caught in the sticky webs because if it happens, it will be hard for them to escape on their own. At this point, the party members now realize that things are worse than they thought. 2 members slack off and almost get shot with the web, but Rei swings in to save their lives, grabbing them off at the right moment. The 2 thank him for saving them, but he tells them that they don't have any reason to thank him because if any one of them dies, the reward will be reduced by 10 million, and he doesn't joke with his money. However, he urges them not to overdo it because it is still stressful for him running around and saving them. In fact, he suggests that they start paying him 1 million each once he saves their lives, and the 2 scream at Rei because he is already practicing pure extortion. Deep down, Rei knows that if he deliberately drags out the battle, he could make a killing on the rescue fee of 1 million per person. But at the same time, the group is a part of a big guild, which is connected to the government. He figures out that going too easy might just affect future money-making opportunities for him. Rei then activates the Soul Vision skill, and he realizes that if he surprises Tsukino, he might actually get a bonus from the battle. Apparently, the condition to extract Tsukino's Type D Swordsman's soul fragment is to make her experience the greatest surprise of her life. Rei then decides to do something flashy, and he finally joins the battle. He leaps toward the spider and, with just a single strike, he cuts off one of the spider's limbs. Rei finds himself standing in front of the spider, and it hits Rei with one of its legs, which appears like a clean hit because the ground under Rei shatters. This leaves a cloud of dust in the air, and when Tsukino sees this, She starts to panic because she believes that there is no way they can defeat a monster that even Ray couldn't beat. Just then, they hear Ray's voice coming from the dust, and it appears that he easily caught the spider's leg with just one hand. Ray had used a skill called Soul Strength to block the hit as if it were nothing. The party members are shocked when they see what Ray has just done. Ray grabs the spider's leg and flings the spider into the distance, causing it to fall on its back. Ray dashes toward the spider, and it turns out that by flipping the spider on its back, Ray has opened up its weak spot. Ray immediately delivers a clean cut through the spider's abdomen to eliminate it. When the party members see this, they start celebrating that they have defeated the spider, but Ray lets them know that they are actually misunderstanding the whole thing. He lets them know that they have not defeated the monster because it is just the beginning. Suddenly, a large burst of substance bursts out from the spider's tummy, and it immediately regenerates all missing limbs and internal organs. As if this is not bad enough, the spider monster has gotten way bigger than before. This is not new to Ray because he knows that this is the spider's second form and its aggression is far greater than its first form. When the party hears this, they start to panic because even its first form is too hard for them to handle. Ray lets the guys know that they have difficulty fighting the spider because they are a bunch of weaklings. Ray takes charge of the fight again and he activates the soul web, flying around the monster to incapacitate it with this. Once the spider is restrained, Ray activates the soul incineration array, which can only be activated by a level 40 player and above. This skill also consumes a mage's soul fragment, a flame user's soul fragment, and a warrior's soul fragment to activate. The moment Tsukino sees Ray activate the soul array skill, she tells her party members to get away because she can sense something really dangerous coming their way. Everybody immediately dashes to safety, and the spider goes up in a large, overwhelming flame that leaves even Tsukino shocked. She realizes that the firepower that Ray just unleashed is several dozen times more powerful than her max firepower. However, the question that is left is if they have managed to kill the monster, but only Ray can answer this. Without asking for Ray's insight, the party members assume that the monster has been defeated. Suddenly, they notice a giant jewel where the spider was previously standing. The party members are blown away by this because they have seen rare items in the past, but this is the biggest they have seen. However, Ray tells the group to move aside, and they immediately start bashing Ray, saying he is trying to keep the whole loot to himself. They soon realize that they are screwed when the fire clears out, revealing that the jewel they were staring at was the spider. Apparently, this is the spider's final form, and its body is covered in crystal. Instead of being scared, Ray sees the spider as a means of income, because if they are able to take down the monster, it is going to provide a huge sum. The party starts to panic because they can't believe that even after everything, the fight is not yet over. Tsukino then tells her party members to get ready because the monster is about to attack them. Suddenly, the spider unleashes its long limbs like a whip, sending it throughout the room. Tsukino manages to escape the first wave of attack, but she can see that the monster is faster than before. Ray can see how dangerous the situation is, and he tells Tsukino and her party members to run to the entrance if they don't want to die. As they dash away, Tsukino asks Ray what he plans to do, but Ray replies that it is obvious what he plans to do. Ray lets Tsukino know that he is going to crush the monster and collect everything it has to provide. Ray mentions that the final form of the spider attacks without holding back until the opponent dies. Ray urges Tsukino and her people to get out of the way as fast as they can. This leaves Ray facing off against the spider, and he knows that he can manage to dodge its dangerous limbs, but taking it down is now the problem. Ray tries to strike down one of the limbs, but his dagger bounces off, and this tells Ray that even with the goat's dagger strength, it can't cut through the crystal. Since this is the case, he decides to attack the spider's weak point. Ray activates the soul reserve and he remains motionless in the sky. The party members, who are safely hidden behind a barrier, wonder what Ray is doing because he is clearly open to the attack. Unknown to them, this is what Ray actually wants. Ray soon gets caught with the spider's limbs, causing a pool of blood to leave his body. Tsukino and her party watch in horror because they know that they are screwed if the spider kills Ray. Ray is lifted into the air by the spider and Tsukino screams in horror, believing that Ray is dead. Suddenly, Ray lets out an evil laugh because he has finally caught the spider exactly where he wants. While using his left hand to hold onto the spider's limb, Ray activates the Soul Rampage skill, and he swings his dagger so hard that it unleashes a powerful slash that shatters the spider down to its last atom. The crystal shatters into pieces and Ray crashes to the ground too. Ray figures out that he has to heal himself quickly because he is just about to die. Ray is searching through his skill when 3 of Tsukino's party members, who are healers, step up to heal him. The trio is able to come through, and their magic heals Ray completely. Ray thanks them for this because he didn't have to use his own skills. Tsukino soon notices the smile on his face, and she immediately asks Ray if he intentionally took the hits. Ray replies that she is right because in the game, taking attacks to the point where one doesn't die is a basic technique. Ray's nonchalant behavior ultimately shocks Tsukino, who reminds Ray that they are not in a game, but in reality. Ray admits that Tsukino is right, but he still believes that when it comes to combat, the same strategy works both in the game and in reality. To Ray, he believes that reality and the game are not different. When Tsukino hears this, she suffers a brain lag because she now sees Ray as a crazy dude. Ultimately, this serves as the surprise condition for Ray to extract her soul fragment. Ray is glad that it worked out that way because he actually had another method in mind to surprise Tsukino. Since the trial has been cleared, the system requires that they enter the name of the slaying party because they have 5 minutes until the dungeon disappears. The party starts to celebrate this, and they all conclude that Ray was the one who saved the day. Ray, on the other hand, is more concerned about how to share the reward before the dungeon disappears. Since all the reward was promised to him, Ray wants Tsukino to collect it instead and then transfer it into his account. When Tsukino hears this, she realizes that Ray is basically passing the credit to them. She reminds Ray that the whole thing will be heavily covered in the news, and Ray says it would be better if it were reported as a guild's victory, so that the next trial reward will increase. Deep down, Ray just doesn't want his identity to leak out because if it does, he believes that it might make his money-making harder. Tsukino thanks Ray for thinking about the money, but believes that it is totally weird for her to take the credit for the slaying. Ray assures Tsukino that he is fine with it. He lets her know that she can just say, Genesis Wings hired him for 1 billion, and Tsukino agrees to this. With both sides agreeing to this, Genesis Wings input their name as the slaying party. Ray is confident that with this method, no information from Genesis Wings will leak, because if it does, it would be like announcing that they stole someone else's credit. With this, everyone basically receives the notification that the disaster for the trial target area, which is Japan, has been averted. Reporters waste no time moving to the scene to broadcast a live video of the dungeon disappearing and the players evacuating the scene. All the surviving players are taken through a portal and then safely transported to the surface. The moment they all touch down on the surface, a loud celebration erupts because most have been stuck in the dungeon for days. A monument appears on the scene, which will carry Genesis Wing's name as the conqueror of the trial. As if it were a race, reporters are seen flooding to the scene en masse because they all want to get the name of the guild that cleared the dungeon. Before Tsukino knows it, she sees hundreds of reporters lining up to get a statement. Tsukino calls Ray's name because she wants to confirm if he is really cool without revealing that he did everything. However, by the time she turns around, she realizes that Ray has vanished from the scene. However, he left a note telling Tsukino to contact him if there is a profitable deal. Seeing this, Tsukino believes she is starting to understand a little about who Ray really is. Tsukino finally agrees to speak with the reporters, and they bombard her with a series of questions all at once. Tsukino then takes a deep breath before telling everyone, including those who are watching in their homes, that the Genesis Wings were the ones who cleared the trial. However, she lets them know that this wasn't achieved by the guild alone, because there are other people who supported them and helped in the subjugation. Meanwhile, Ray has met up with Kuki, who is there to pick him up. After giving her speech, Tsukino bows to thank everyone, and this impresses the reporters because she is highly humble. When Ray sees this, he realizes that Tsukino is actually doing well. He knows that being in such a spotlight, it might bring immense profit if handled well. However, he is not ready to face media paparazzi, and he figures out that preparing a face for public display, which is separate from his original self, might be the only way to handle it. Moments later, Ray tells Kuki that he is starving, and he urges him to stop by anywhere he can eat. The news soon traveled around that Genesis Wings had cleared the dreadful trial of Japan. Apparently, this is the second time a national-level trial has been cleared, and the first one is the United States. Later on, Ray creates his own guild, which he names Gold Farm. While sitting in his office, he receives the deposit of 1 billion yen, and he grins wholeheartedly. Some of the guild members hear this and are distraught that Ray has not even given them a penny out of the whole money. In addition, Ray is making them do a lot of trash work, like wrapping coins in paper. Even though they have no idea what they are doing, one of them urges his colleagues not to think too much about it because in the guild, Ray is the president, but he immediately corrects himself. Surprisingly, Ray has taken up the position of a clerk, but everyone knows that he has the absolute authority. It turns out that Ray actually appointed Rumi as the guildmaster, which is shocking to the lady herself. She is forced to ask Ray if he is sure about appointing her as the guildmaster. Ray replies that only players ranked B or higher can establish a guild, and since Rumi is already B rank, he had to make her the guildmaster. Nonetheless, Rumi believes that there are far more competent people than her in the guild, but Ray lets her know that he chose her because of her suitability. Apparently, all the members of the Cash Cow squad have all grown to B rank or higher thanks to the information he is providing on where to level up. However, there are still differences in aptitudes among them, and looking at it, Rumi is the least suited for earning money, but she is quick-witted and great with people. Because of this, Ray concludes that she is perfect as the face of the guild. Kuki soon shows up with an article telling Ray that Rumi is blowing up online. When Ray realizes that everyone is B rank, he concludes that it was the best decision to have made himself a clerk. Kuki then asks Ray why establish a guild when he is not going to be the president, because he is pretty strong. Ray reveals that the main reason he created the guild is to receive trial clearing commissions. He mentions that aside from large-scale trials, which target nations or continents, there are also smaller trials targeting areas like towns, cities, or prefectures. And since only official guilds that are recognized by the state can take on trials, he has no choice but to establish one. Kuki and Rumi are blown away by this because they didn't know this if Ray had not explained it to them. After the short lecture, Rumi tells Ray that she has listed the trials with low difficulty and high rewards for him. However, Ray tells her to abandon those ones first, and he gives her a trial request that she is supposed to take on. Rumi checks it out and realizes that it is a small trial with a 5 million yen reward. Rumi is surprised to see this because there are other trials that offer better rewards than the one Ray is choosing. Kuki whispers in Ayan's ear, asking him if Ray has gone crazy for picking a trial that has the lowest money. Ayan quickly reminds Kuki that he is dead if Ray hears what he just said. Rumi is the first to figure out that Ray must have a reason for picking the trial, and she suspects that there is something more valuable than the reward in it. Ray confirms this, and with a scary aura, he tells Rumi to make sure she accepts the trial. Soon afterward, Ray heads to the trial site, and on his way there, Rumi calls him, telling him that the requested task has been successfully accepted and the reward remains 5 million yen. Ray commends her for the good work, saying he's going to get to the trial site in about 30 minutes. Later on, Ray gets a call from one of his guild members, Yuji, who has been monitoring the trial under Ray's instructions. Yuji mentions that some suspicious individuals have entered the trial site, and Ray asks him how many there are. The dude replies that they are 5, and Ray asks him if they have noticed him, but he assures Ray that they haven't. With this, Ray tells Yuji to leave the area and leave the rest to him. When Ray realizes that some people have gained unauthorized entry into the trial, he figures out that they are not ordinary people. He then decides that it is time to hide his face. He begins the process of creating an enigmatic mask, and the system tells him to select the materials for item generation. Ray plans to use the fragment of the swordsman's soul type D, which he got from Tsukino. The system tells him that he has an option for auto-generation of the enigmatic mask, but the success rate for this is less than 1%. The system asks to proceed with the process, but Ray declines, saying he is going to do it manually. The system informs him that the success rate for manual creation is undefined. In addition, failing might cause mental and physical backlash, and the system asks him if he still wants to continue, to which Ray says yes. Ray is then taken into the soul world, where he will be required to harmonize the soul. There are pieces of soul fragments scattered everywhere, which Ray is required to piece everything together. He is informed that the base success rate is below 1%, which increases the difficulty. Ray is then given 60 minutes to piece everything together, and in the last second, Ray finishes the harmonization of the fragments. This turns out to be a success, and he is returned to the real world, where he is informed that the enigmatic mask has been created. After the mask has been created, Ray tells Ayan to drop him off just before they get to the trial site. Ray then puts on the mask, which immediately transforms his appearance into a blonde-headed dude. With this, Ray strolls to the trial area, and from the entrance, he finds monster carcasses everywhere, which he realizes that the burnt is still fresh. This tells him that someone else has entered the trial site before him, just like Yuji said. He continues further and notices that the hidden door is open, and with this, Ray realizes that the group is after the hidden trial. Basically, trials are categorized by their scope, and those targeting nations are large-scale trials. However, those targeting towns or villages are small-scale trials. Although small-scale trials are easier, the rewards are trash. However, there are exceptions because there are hidden trials. These are secret trials generated within small-scale trials, and their difficulty is greater than that of the main trial, although rare items can be obtained inside the trial area. Since it is a hidden trial, Ray figures out that the players who have infiltrated it are players with considerable information. Moments later, Ray runs into a bunch of shady dudes in black robes. The leader of the team looks cool, and he asks Ray if he's from the gold farm. Ray takes a minute before answering, and he feigns ignorance of what the gold farm is. The team leader then tells Ray that it doesn't matter if he is from the gold farm or not. Ray lets the dudes know that he has no intention of clearing the hidden trial for their sake. But the team leader tells Ray that he has no need to clear the trial because they have already cleared it. The team leader whips out an item, which he calls the Box of Evolution, which is the reward for clearing the dungeon. When Ray sees the box, he realizes that the team has beaten him to the item. Just to be safe, he hides his right hand behind his back and he activates his weapon. Just then, the team leader throws the box to him and he catches it. With a smile on his face, the team leader tells Ray that they are willing to give him the box as a token of goodwill. However, in return, the dude wants Ray to take on a task for them. Ray asks what the task is, and the team leader tells him that they want him to stop the completion of a certain small-scale trial, and the dude assures Ray that he can use whatever method he deems fit. The team leader, Ridge, says he can tell that Ray is a capable player, and eliminating the party attempting to clear the trial should be nothing to him. When Ray hears this, he immediately starts wondering why they would want to stop a trial's completion. Ray finally replies to the request, saying he can see that they are from the Dark Guild. He figures out that the group is trying to do the same thing that happened in Argentina. Apparently, 2 weeks ago, one of Argentina's cities, Mendoza, failed an easy trial request and was destroyed. However, the problem was what happened a week before this. It turns out that the companies based in Mendoza were hit by a massive wave of short selling. When Rumi and Ray saw this, she mentioned that it was as if Mendoza's fall had been predicted in advance. It turns out that the culprit was rumored to be a dark guild, but Ray didn't know that they were already targeting Japan as well. Ridge then tells Ray that they are going to leave him to imagine why he was given the request, but the main thing is to know if he is interested in accepting or not. Ray sharply says no, telling Ridge that the whole request is tempting, but if he would like to destroy a city, he wants to be the one to short sell it himself because it would be more profitable. Ridge expresses his disappointment and tells Ray to return the box, but tells him that they will also be collecting interest for temporarily lending the box to him. Ray is confused when he hears this, and Ridge confirms that the interest is his life. Ridge and the rest of the team bring out a syringe containing a dark liquid, telling Ray that his options are to either cooperate with them or die. Ray shows no sign of weakness as he whips out his sword, asking Ridge and his team if they think they can win. Ridge replies that they might not win under normal circumstances, but he reminds Ray that they just cleared the hidden trial, so it would be disastrous for Ray to underestimate them. Ridge and his team then inject themselves with the contents of the syringe, telling him that they are going to show him that player skills are useless against the Dark Guild. The moment the content of the syringe gets into their system, they start moving funny, and Ray realizes that the team injected themselves with a doping item. This leaves Ray wondering whether such a thing was present in the game. However, he notices that there are no changes on their body. But since he doesn't know what the syringe contained, he doesn't even know what to expect. However, he notices that there is something weird with the box he is holding, but he decides to play along. Just then, Ridge reaches into his pocket and he activates a remote-controlled device that immediately detonates the box that Ray is holding. Ray is engulfed in a cloud of fire, and Ridge and his friend start laughing like maniacs. They make fun of him for falling for such an easy trap. Ridge talks about how they directed Ray's attention to their bodies so he won't focus on the small box, which is the real deal. Even though the plan went smoothly, Ridge says it is a shame that he won't get himself a pawn. Ridge then walks to the explosion site, but to everyone's horror, there is no body. Out of nowhere, all of Ridge's men are taken out in an instant. They scream out in pain, and Ridge reacts to this with a fire blast from his hand. In an attempt to hit Ray, he ends up blasting off some of his counterparts. By the time everything settles down, Ray is already behind him with a dagger to his neck. Ray then restrains Ridge with the soul-binding skill, causing the dude to scream out in pain. Ridge is shocked to see that Ray is unharmed even though he got hit with the explosion. Ray smiles while telling Ridge that he is not a fool because he actually knows the weight of the evolution box. Ray mentions that he already knew from the beginning that the box had explosives inside it. Ridge is surprised to hear this, and he asks Ray why he intentionally took the box when he knew that something was wrong. Ray casually replies that Ridge is underestimating high-level players way too much. Ray says an explosive fit into a small box is nothing to him, but he lets Ridge and his gang know that he is going to take all of their money as compensation. Ray brings out his phone to make a call, and Ridge starts to panic, believing that Ray is trying to call the police. Ray laughs this off, saying the person he is calling is more important. It turns out that Ray called Rumi, and he tells her to find the area where short-selling stocks are concentrated in Japan. Ray lets Rumi know that there is the possibility that the area has become a target of the Dark Guild, so they are going to have to protect this area. When Ridge hears this, he smiles, telling Ray that he is trying to play the role of a hero, but Ray smiles because Ridge is saying trash. Ray explains that the Dark Guild is short-selling like crazy, which means the stocks are cheap like crazy at the moment. Ray plans to buy all of them up and then conquer the trial to make a huge profit from it. Ridge panics when he hears this, and he asks Ray if he is seriously planning to oppose the Dark Guild, and Ray replies that for money, he doesn't mind making the Dark Guild his enemies. However, he tells Ridge that he would have to cooperate with him, but Ridge demands to know why Ray is so confident that he is going to cooperate. Rei ignores him and puts a call through to Rumi again, asking her if the re-education course is ready. It turns out that the education course that Rei is talking about is a bunch of torture devices that he plans to use on stubborn enemies. Even Rumi is skeptical about using it on humans, but Rei assures her that he has gotten a suitable test subject and he is going to deliver them later. Rei also uses the evolution box to evolve the fragment of the sorcerer's soul type F to type E. Later on, Rei heads to the Modern Art Museum, which is the target of the Dark Guild. Just like before, Rei is wearing the enigmatic mask to disguise his identity. It turns out that he was able to get this information after the cash cows tortured Ridge and his friends into submission. However, Rumi is worried that Rei is heading into danger, even though they don't know how many enemies there are. Rei assures Rumi that she doesn't have to worry about anything, but urges her to keep an eye on his stock movements. Apparently, a dude named Takahisa posted a request for people to gather to protect the town, but let them know that there will be no reward. He sets the meeting place at the city hall's front square. Now that people are gathered, he asks those who are willing to participate in the museum trial to gather. Rei is surprised that a lot of people have gathered to protect the town, even though there is no reward being given. Thanks to the number of people there, Rei figures out that it would be easy for the Dark Guild to sneak in a spy. And he figures out that finding the spy before everything starts is the way forward. Once they are ready, Takahisa tells the people to get a move on, but urges them to scream for help if a strong enemy shows up because their main forces will definitely come to assist. When Rei realizes that there is no strategy being employed, he figures out that he will get the chance to act the way he wants. At the same time, he happens to have figured out who the spy is because among the 107 participating players, everyone present is a spy except for Rei himself, which means the other 106 players are out to get him. Upon entering the museum hall, Rei realizes that he's already surrounded by a bunch of players who clearly have hostile intentions toward him. The ones close to him hold a can of igniting gas each, and once they believe that they have cornered him, they unleash their can of gas, igniting a large fire in an attempt to roast Rei. However, Rei leaps into the air to dodge the fire, and while he is in the air, he notices that the other circle of enemies is armed with swords and the like. With this information, Rei knows how to properly engage them. He descends upon them and knocks out a few with his incredible skill. He is disappointed that they are coming at him right from the start without a strategy. Takahisa soon shows up in the distance, asking Rei what happened. While Rei is still trying to explain that he was suddenly attacked by the group, Takahisa himself swings his fist at Rei. Surprisingly, there is a hidden knife in his hand that he plans to use on Rei, but Rei easily grabs the knife. Takahisa is shocked to see this because Rei basically projected much power at the moment. Realizing that Rei might be dangerous, he leaps backwards, and Rei breaks the knife, berating Takahisa for coming at him with a weapon that is not even a game item. With Takahisa back with the rest of the squad, Rei asks them if they are all minions of the Dark Guild. Takahisa smiles evilly when he hears this, and he tells Rei that since he already knows all of these, there is no need for tricks again. Surprisingly, two members of the group express their shock that Takahisa is working with the Dark Guild because they only came for a request to protect the place from an environmental organization. Takahisa nervously smiles, saying it was an environmental protection under the Dark Guild. He feigns ignorance, saying he forgot to mention it, but then he asks Rei to join them. Takahisa claims that it is not their job to kill him, but to protect the trial. Takahisa says it would be nice if they could avoid fighting, assuring Rei that he is going to speak to the higher-ups so that he can get a daily wage of 100,000 yen. When the rest of the group hears this, they protest against the decision, reminding Takahisa that they are only getting paid 30,000 yen. Rei, on the other hand, is surprised that the Dark Guild is willing to pay such a huge amount of money, and he knows that his previous self would have jumped at the money. However, he is now a changed person, and he tells Takahisa that he would have to refuse the offer. This pisses Takahisa off, and he tells Rei that he has to die. To motivate the group, Takahisa promises to give whoever lands the first attack, the person who delivers the last blow, and the MVP of the battle, 100,000 yen. This works really well as the group rushes toward Rei in an attempt to kill him. Rei smiles because he knows that they are all rushing to their deaths. With little to no effort, he knocks them all down. Suddenly, Takahisa comes rushing at him, but Rei meets him halfway with a knee kick to the face. Rei then jumps over him and activates the soul-binding skill to restrain him. Rei then looks back to see the two from before begging Rei to spare their lives. Rei decides not to touch them because they don't know anything about the Dark Guild, and in addition, they look like people who can be easily used. Rei then picks up his phone to call Rumi, telling her that he managed to run into a big harvest because he has just secured at least 100 new cash cows for the army. However, Rei says the leader of the group, who is Takahisa, would have to undergo the re-education course. Suddenly, a sword imbued with a dark aura comes flying at Rei, but he manages to dodge the strike. He looks up to see the culprit standing by the balcony, and Ray smiles, saying the dude finally decided to show himself. The dude is also wearing a mask, and he asks Ray when he noticed his presence. Ray replies that he was aware from the very beginning. He could easily see that those who first attacked him were weak, and they were decoys. Ray sensed that the dude on mask was the only one radiating a different aura, even though he was trying really hard to hold back his power. The new dude is surprised to hear all these, and he finally understands why he couldn't find any gaps to attack Ray. Nonetheless, he is curious to see if Ray can withstand his recurrent attacks. He lunges at Ray and starts swinging at him like crazy, but even with how fast his movements are, Ray could still follow through with his dagger. The dude then starts talking to Ray as if he knows him, saying he has become stronger since the game. Ray replies with a familiar tone, telling the dude that he has gotten stronger than he was in the game. As the fight continues, Ray manages to cut the dude's mask to get a good look at his real face. Ray is not entirely surprised because he was already suspecting that it was his counterpart in the game, Yuto. Yuto also offers his greetings to Ray, telling him that he is sad that they have to reunite in such a way because now he has to kill Ray. Ray takes off his mask to reveal his real face, and he asks Yuto if he really thinks he can kill him. Yuto gets into a combat position and activates a skill called Dual Blader. As he dashes toward Ray, he activates another skill, the Over-Acceleration, with the intention of blitzing Ray. He manages to get the drop on Ray as he cuts his left shoulder, forcing Ray to quickly readjust, while commending Yuto because he is still very fast. However, Ray still doesn't think Yuto has what it takes to deal with him. Ray then activates the Soul's Eye skill to assess Yuto's strength. He realizes that Yuto is currently a level 38 player, and his stats are pretty impressive too. Thanks to this, he is able to easily follow Yuto's movements, and when Yuto tries to attack him from behind, Ray easily blocks it. Yuto is shocked, and while he is still trying to pull himself together, Ray lands a counterattack by kicking him in the face, sending him straight into a wall. Yuto groans in pain, and Ray lets him know that his speed is decent, but there is no strength behind his sword. Ray tells him that attacks like this won't even scrape him. Ray then activates the Soul Bind to restrict Yuto from moving, shocking him. Yuto expresses his shock that the skill is working, since he believes that he and Ray should be on the same level. However, Ray lets him know that the difference in level is really overwhelming. Ray then urges Yuto to quit the Dark Guild and join him in making money, since he is an exceptional player. Ray lets Yuto know that with his skills, he can actually earn a lot of money. Yuto hesitantly replies that he can't, and Ray asks him why he can't join him. Yuto replies that he can't say, and Ray decides to strengthen the Soul Bind to cause him pain so he can force him to talk. Yuto screams out in pain, but still lets Ray know that he can't talk because if he does, something will happen. Without even finishing his statement, Ray already figures out that there is something. He then asks him about his brother, Hisashi, but Yuto finds it hard to answer. Everything starts becoming clear to Ray, and he asks Yuto if Hisashi is being held hostage. Yuto admits that Ray has seen right through him, and this just confirms Ray's theory that there is more to the story. In the past, Prophecy Online was infamous for its unreasonable difficulty, which caused players to run away from playing the game. While the low difficulty areas were manageable, the higher difficulty dungeons had almost no one challenging them. To find comrades who share the same perspective was rare, and among these comrades are Yuto and his brother Hisashi. Even though in his current state he can take on bosses alone, it was he and the brothers who were fighting against the bosses. However, as the difference in their abilities grew, they stopped adventuring together, but they still kept in touch via chat. However, Ray never thought he would meet Yuto the way he just met him. After releasing him from the soul binds, Ray asks him where Hisashi is, and Yuto comes clean, saying he doesn't know because they didn't even tell him where Hisashi is being held. Just then, Yuto remembers that Ray's subclass is Soulsmith. He begs Ray to help him use this skill to find his brother. Ray replies that he is actually using the Soulsmith in real life, but he reminds Yuto that they are no longer in a game, but in real life. Ray confesses that in real life, he only moves for the money. Yuto immediately offers everything he has in his wallet just so he can save his brother. Ray then asks Yuto if he has anything related to his brother that he can use for the search. Yuto brings out a baseball cap and hands it over to Ray. Ray takes the cap and he activates his skill, Soul Search, and to their dismay, the system reveals that Hisashi is already dead. Yuto cannot believe his eyes, but the system doesn't stop there as it reveals Hisashi's killer to be a dude named Raven. Yuto almost goes crazy when he sees this, and Ray asks Yuto if he knows who Raven is. Yuto replies that he knows Raven because he was the one who held his brother hostage, forcing him to work for him. Yuto goes really mad as he declares his intention to kill Raven for what he did. Yuto tells Ray that he is going to work under him as long as he wants, but he wants Ray to help him kill Raven. Ray admits that he is pissed about Hisashi's death because he was just like a little brother to him too. Yuto already believes that Ray is going to accept the task, but Ray just walks past him, telling him not to jump to conclusions because he is busy making money. As he walks away, Ray tells Yuto that he doesn't have time for battles that don't pay. Yuto is shocked and horrified to hear this. And just then, Ray receives a text from Tsukino. Tsukino says she is aware that Ray fought the Dark Guild in the trial of the museum, and Ray wonders how Tsukino knew this. Tsukino then asks Ray if he took any other requests, but Ray is confused about what she means. Tsukino mentions that there is a government request to wipe out the Dark Guild headquarters, and the reward is 1 billion yen. Ray almost goes crazy when he sees this because he didn't even know that such a request existed. Ray then asks Tsukino where she heard about the request, and she mentioned that it was an unofficial request to Wings of Genesis. She urges Ray to keep the information confidential. Ray asks if he can leak the information, but Tsukino panics and tells him that he is only getting the information because of who he is. Tsukino reveals that the Dark Guild headquarters have over 10 billion yen worth of assets, but if they succeed, they can just report that there was nothing inside and the government will look away. Ray then turns to Yuto, asking him if Raven is in the Dark Guild headquarters. Yuto confirms this, saying Raven is the head of the Japanese branch of the Dark Guild, which is why he hardly leaves the main base. With a smile on his face, Ray tells Yuto that he has changed his mind and that he is going to help him get his revenge. Without wasting time, the Gold Farm Guild applies to take part in the request. Soon afterward, Tsukino contacts Ray, telling him that the police have identified the Dark Guild's headquarters and local authorities seem to be investigating the site. However, Ray lets her know that he already knew this because he was conducting his own investigation. Tsukino then urges Ray to assist with the investigation if he is in the area, because if the Dark Guild resists, the police won't be able to handle it. As usual, Ray asks Tsukino about the reward, and he demands that he wants 100,000 yen for every guild member that he captures. In addition, he is going to get 100,000 yen for protecting each officer. Tsukino is shocked to see this, but she assures Ray that she is going to negotiate with the government, and even if they don't agree to this, Genesis Wing will cover the bills. Ray smiles happily when he hears this and tells Tsukino that she has herself a deal. After he is done texting Tsukino, Ray tells Yuto that the police have discovered the Dark Guild's base, and Yuto suggests that they finish the whole thing once and for all. However, Ray tells Yuto not to come with him because, to the guild, Yuto is dead, and he would like to keep it that way in the meantime. Yuto agrees with him and tells him that he is going to wait for him while he settles the mission. As Ray leaves, Yuto urges Ray to be careful because the Dark Guild would have rigged the building with traps, since they know that the police are coming. Moments later, Ray arrives at the location, and without hesitation, he passes under the police line. One of the detectives tries to stop, lying that the building is closed off because of a gas leak, but Ray lets him know that he is there to assist Genesis Wings with the investigation. The moment he hears this, the dude apologizes and takes Ray to the operation table, where the chief detective is laying out the plan for the operation. When the chief detective is informed of Ray's presence, he is not pleased because he believes that players have no business in police investigations. The chief detective speaks rudely to Ray, telling him not to try anything because he is only there based on orders from above. The man and his men then prepare to breach the building, but Ray urges them not to try to access the building. However, no one listens to him, and the result of this is a loud explosion from the upper floor of the building. This scatters debris everywhere, but to save the cops, Ray activates the Soul Thread skill. Using this, he is able to catch all of the debris, thus saving the cops. Ray then heads into the building to save the cops who breached the building. However, he is not doing this out of the goodness of his heart, but because he has been promised 100,000 yen for every cop he saves. Using the soul thread, he gathers all of the cops like Spider-Man and he lets them down the building. Once he is done saving the cops, Ray lets them know that he is done, and he leaves. Ray's short stay with them immediately changes their view on how they see players. When Ray returns to where Yuto is waiting, he lets him know that the building was empty because the Dark Guild knew about the police's movements. Ray then asks Yuto if he knows any other bases that the Dark Guild might be hiding. With a disappointing face, Yuto reveals that the building they just raided is the only place that he knows. Yuto reveals that he has ditched everything given to him by the Dark Guild the day he met Ray, and this includes his smartphone. However, he believes that they might find clues if they go back to the trial museum. Ray advises against this, saying there is a high chance that their location will be discovered. In addition, Ray reveals that he has already narrowed down where the hideout might be, and this surprises Yuto. Ray explains that in a situation where the police are making a big move, it would be hard to secure a proper office or warehouse. He mentions that they would want to move to a location where there are no cameras and a remote area. With this, Yuto believes that a deserted dungeon with poor rewards might be the answer to this. Ray confirms this, saying he already has the Gold Farm Guild investigating probable locations. Yuto is confused when he hears the Gold Farm, and Ray explains that Gold Farm is his guild. Ray tells Yuto that he is now a mandatory member of the guild, and it would be better if he starts earning his pay. Yuto then asks if his party members will join the fight, but Ray says no because he has left them to handle other things. And by other things, they are all stuck in the office, wrapping coins in paper. Ray explains that he can summon them anytime he wants, but he doesn't want anything that will mess with his profit. Not long after this, Ray gets a text telling him that the Castle of Carnage, which is located in the mountains of Chiba, is the closest to his search criteria. Because there is no official address for this, the map location is attached to it. When Ray checks it out, he agrees that the location is going to be a convenient base, since they will be able to control the spawn points. Even though the difficulty and rewards are poor, no one actually goes, which is why the location is the perfect place to hide. Ray then asks Yuto if the special request he made earlier is ready, and Yuto assures him that it is. Yuto is surprised that Ray had already arranged something like this, as if he knew where the hideout would be. Yuto leads Ray to where an SUV is packed, assuring him that the car can handle even the roughest mountains. Without wasting time, the two begin the journey to the mountains, and Ray tells Yuto to go as fast as he can, assuring him that he is going to pay whatever fine he gets for overspeeding. Yuto acknowledges this and excitedly steps on the gas, shooting the SUV out of the parking garage onto the road. Ray then inputs their destination on the map, telling Yuto to focus on driving while he handles other things. Ray then puts on his enigmatic mask just in case in preparation for the battle ahead. Yuto proves himself to be a crazy driver as he drives the car in the most extraordinary way. He goes through corners and bushes like they are nothing. Even Ray is left holding his head in frustration because he didn't expect Yuto to be this crazy. At some point, he drives off the cliff, but the landing is too rough for the tires. When the tires finally gave out, Ray had almost passed out thanks to Yuto's crazy driving. In Yuto's defense, he believed that it would be less likely for the enemy to spot them if they went straight down the cliff. Yuto tells Ray that they are supposed to use the car to the best of its abilities. After parking the car, Ray packs their luggage and he tells Yuto that he has to carry some. Yuto cannot believe that after he just finished driving, he also has to carry heavy luggage. Yuto is curious about what is inside the luggage, and Ray tells him the bags are filled with weapons. He reminds Yuto that they are just two and they are going up against a large group, which means that they have to be prepared. Moments later, they arrive at the vicinity of their target and they see a bunch of dudes guarding the gate to the dungeon. Even the guards are already bored with staying at the gate because they don't believe anyone would come to such a location. Nonetheless, they wish that there would be intruders so that they can beat them up. Unknown to them, Ray and Yuto are watching them from a distance. Yuto reveals that he knows the dudes from the last base, and this just means that they have managed to find the right location. Ray mentions that he would like to attack the dungeon immediately, and to do this, he would like to know their security setup. Yuto explains that the last base was disguised as a private office, so they didn't have any guards. However, he can clearly see that the new place is different because they have destroyed the other bridges that lead to the location. In addition, they have set up a barrier over the walls using a skill. With everything he has seen so far, Yuto mentions that the only way into the dungeon is through the main gate, which is why the enemy has concentrated their firepower at the narrow entrance. This basically means that as long as they control the gate, they can block any intruders. Yuto urges Ray not to let his guard down because there are probably more enemies lurking around besides the 5 dudes at the gate. Yuto reveals that at the last base, there were at least 30 people coming and going. Ray asks Yuto about their strengths, and Yuto mentions that the grunts are not that strong. However, he knows at least 3 people who are as strong as him in the guild, and these 3 are Jack, Clokey, and Raven. Yuto mentions that average players have no chance against these 3. When Ray hears this, he smiles because he is prepared to have fun. However, Ray tells Yuto that it would be bad if others in the building managed to escape while they were busy fighting the strong 3. Since there is a bounty of 1 million yen per head, he suggests that they seal off the base to make sure no one escapes. This is when it finally dawns on Yuto that Ray is seriously doing the mission for the money, and Ray scoffs at him, asking him if there is any other reason why he should be doing it. The two then take a moment to think about their strategy, and Yuto speaks with a stern voice, telling Ray that they need to go with the lockdown strategy so that none of the enemies escape. Ray agrees with this, but says they might need reinforcements from Genesis Wings since they are opting for a prolonged battle. However, he is worried that the information might leak if they contact Tsukino. Yuto asks if they are to make sure that they contain the enemies until Genesis Wings arrive, and Ray says yes. Sweat drips down Yuto's face when he hears this because he doesn't know if the two of them alone can do it. With a smile on his face, Ray asks Yuto if he thinks the two of them are not enough for the mission. Ray then brings out his phone to contact Tsukino. In the text that he wants to send to her, he tells her that they have located the enemy base and they are conducting a lockdown. Rei wants Tsukino to send people who are suited for the strategy as soon as she gets the message. Rei then urges Tsukino to only send trusted players if she believes that there are spies in her guild. Rei then tells Yuto that the moment he sends the message to Tsukino, they have to take out the guards at the entrance, which will immediately signal the start of the lockdown. Rei starts the count from 5, and the moment it reaches 1, he sends the text. Yuto kicks into action and activates the acceleration skill. He dashes through the bridge in the blink of an eye, and he gets to the gate before the 5 even know what is happening. Yuto attacks the 5 and takes them all out without mercy. Rei is impressed because Yuto is still pretty fast even though he is carrying a heavy luggage on his back. Yuto rides the wave, telling Rei that the luggage is nothing to him. Once they get access to the building, Rei suggests that they prepare everything ahead of the fight. Rei opens his luggage and starts pouring out the contents of the luggage, which are wrapped coins. He spread the coins everywhere, and he told Yuto that everything is set, which means they just have to wait for the enemies to come out. The CCTV soon catches their presence, and it warns the soldiers inside the house. The soldiers waste no time rushing outside, toward Rei and Yuto. Instead of seeing humans, Rei can only see money running toward him. He smiles while telling Yuto that it is time for them to rake in the cash. Once the soldiers are in the middle of the yard, Rei activates the coin explosion, which results in a large, devastating explosion that leaves the enemies trapped in the thick smoke. While they are trying to find their way in the smoke, Rei goes after them, and he starts cutting them one after the other. In no time, he realizes that he has taken down a bulk load of people, and he smiles because this means a lot of money for him. He admits that this might be better than some trials in terms of profit. Yuto also takes the other side of the yard, trashing the enemies like toys. Suddenly he sees an enemy lunging at Rei, but Rei is not even moving. Realizing that Rei is not going to move on time, Yuto jumps in to decapitate the enemy, thus saving Rei. Yuto berates Rei for not moving even though he noticed the enemy coming at him. In Rei's defense, he says he cannot expose all of his tricks in front of a surveillance camera. In addition, he tells Yuto to stop saying his name because even though the camera doesn't have the audio capture function, Rei believes that they might still be able to read their lips. After setting out this warning, Rei tells Yuto that they have provoked the enemy enough, and it would be nice if they destroyed the camera because it's in the way. With a single strike, he cuts down the camera. Meanwhile, Raven and his counterparts were watching everything unfold on the outside. They have been able to recognize Yuto, who is given the codename Mouse in their organization. However, they can't get a read on Rei's identity, even though they have cross-referenced his face with all of their database. Since Yuto has come to visit them, Raven figures out that Yuto now knows about his brother's death. In a flashback scene, Hisashi was seen having a discussion with Raven in his office. Hisashi told Raven that he had some questions about the next mission he had been given. Raven is surprised that Hisashi, codenamed Rat, is asking questions when the job should have been a walkover for him. In annoyance, Hisashi says the whole thing is not about the difficulty of the mission, but he is worried about the killing. Hisashi says the client who gave them the task claims it is a request from a wealthy person with a grudge, but Hisashi mentions that he is not a fool and cannot believe such a thing. Raven is pissed that Hisashi is questioning their cause when it is their job to kill and get paid. Hisashi then asks Raven if the client is trying to destroy Genesis Wings, but Raven doesn't take his concerns seriously. Hisashi continues by saying the assassination target is a friend from the game era. He adds that the dude was a nice person and doesn't look like someone who would hold a grudge. Hisashi believes that there is no reason to kill this person unless the grand plan is to crush Genesis Wings. Hisashi explains that healers are rare and easy targets, which is why their influence is significant when they leave an organization. Raven casually asks Hisashi what he thinks he would benefit by killing such a weakling. Raven tries to play around the truth, but Hisashi cracks it open, saying they are trying to block trial clearances. Apparently, the country is currently relying heavily on Wings of Genesis for clearing trials, and if the guild is destroyed, they will be able to halt the trial progress the way they want it. Since the Dark Guild knows fully well how to profit from the failure of trials, Hisashi believes that this is their game plan. After hearing what Hisashi has to say, Raven admits that he is right, but he lets him know that his phrasing is wrong because it would be much faster to eliminate an entire nation instead. Raven says this can only be achieved if Genesis Wings disappear. When Hisashi realizes that the Dark Guild is trying to trigger another national trial, he expresses his concern about this, but Raven tells him that it is none of his business. Unknown to him, Raven's power was already crawling up on him, and before Hisashi could move, Raven caught him with the Shadow Bind. Hisashi lets Raven know that he is not scared to die because this would mean Yuto will be free from his grasp. Basically, he was being held hostage to get Yuto to do whatever he wanted. However, Raven reminds Hisashi that he intentionally forbade him from contracting his brother because of a situation like this. Raven pushes his big spear into Hisashi's chest, telling him that even if he dies, he can still keep his death a secret and continue using Yuto the way he wants. With this, Hisashi was killed by Raven for realizing certain things he shouldn't have. When Cloaky and Jack finally hear the story, they both tell Raven that he should have just kept Hisashi alive so that they can play around with him. But Raven says he had to go because he can't afford to have any leaks. Cloaky admits that Raven is right, and he talks about how he is looking forward to living leisurely in a resort once they destroy Japan. However, Jack tells Cloaky that he might get tired of resorts, which is why he should stick to his bad hobby of toy collection. The tension between the two immediately spikes, but Raven tells them to calm themselves. One of the others sitting at the table suggests that Cloaky take a desk job promotion, but he refuses, saying he prefers killing people because this is more fun and better for his health. Raven then asks his attendant how the soldiers are doing, but she lets him know that they have all been wiped out. Raven then decides to step in, saying Yuto is not their regular guy that normal foot soldiers can handle. Raven grabs his weapon from the wall, and he tells Cloaky and Jack to join him. The two excitedly jump out of their seats, since they are psychopaths who enjoy killing. However, Raven tells them not to underestimate Yuto because a cornered mouse will bite a cat. In addition, they have to be careful, since they don't know how strong Ray is just yet. He lets Cloaky and Jack know that they have to crush the enemy with an overwhelming force. Moments later, Raven steps out of the building, and Yuto is the first to see him. The moment he lays his eyes on Raven, his mood changes, and Ray notices this. He asks him what the problem is, and Yuto tells Ray that the dude standing in front of them is Raven. Raven acts casually with Yuto, welcoming him to the base and saying he obviously knows everything, which is why he has come. Yuto confirms this, telling Raven that he is there to avenge his brother. Without thinking twice, Yuto tries to activate the acceleration skill, but this doesn't work. He gets feedback from the system, telling him that the skill has entered the cooldown mode and it will be back online in 3 hours. Even though he is without the acceleration skill, he still makes the reckless move of going after Raven. As he leaps toward Raven, Ray can see that the dude has lost his composure, but he decides to back off in the meantime and let Yuto do what he wants. Just as he is about to reach Raven, Jack appears out of nowhere, swinging his giant scythe at Yuto. Yuto almost gets caught, but he manages to leap backwards just in time to escape death. He looks up to see that Cloaky is also present on the scene. Jack makes fun of Yuto, telling him that he came to the base just to die. Realizing that Jack and Cloaky are on the scene, Yuto finally realizes how deadly the situation is. Ray asks Yuto about the two dudes who just came in because they are in the way. Yuto has no time to answer his question because he is busy with Raven. He screams at Raven, asking him why he had to kill Hisashi. Raven replies that it wasn't for any big reason, but because Hisashi was already growing wings, so he had to clip them. Yuto cannot believe that Raven killed his brother because he defied him. Raven makes the situation worse by comparing Hisashi to an experimental animal that no longer has any uses, which is why it has to die. This only makes Yuto angrier, but while he was still processing the whole thing, Jack and Cloaky close down on him. However, Ray blocks their path with the Soul Barrage skill, causing the two to crash to the ground. Ray then tells Yuto to face Raven while he handles Jack and Cloaky. Yuto then runs toward Raven with the determination to kill him, but Raven tells him that he has no chance without his acceleration skill. Before Yuto can even get to Raven, he has created an ice wall to block the path. However, Yuto is burning with vengeance, and he is not about to allow an ice wall to stop him. He taps into a skill called Overheat Explosion, and with this, he crashes the ice wall, giving him direct access to Raven. Yuto believes that he is about to kill Raven, but he doesn't know that there is something else at play. Even though Ray is busy handling two strong guys, he could see what was wrong. Just as Yuto is about to dive headfirst for Raven, Ray activates the coin explosion, which throws Yuto back. Yuto screams at Ray, asking him why he did what he did, but Ray urges Yuto to stay vigilant because something disastrous would have happened if he had not interfered. Suddenly, a giant ice spear falls from above and lands right where Yuto was previously standing. This is when it dawns on Yuto that he would have been dead if not for Ray's intervention. Ray, being Ray, tells Yuto that he just saved his life, which means he now owes him 100,000 yen. Ray also assures Yuto that he is going to make sure he wins because if he dies, there is no one who is going to pay his money. Raven becomes curious about Ray, and he asks him if he was the one who interfered with the guild during the mansion trial and the museum trial. Ray plays dumb, telling Raven that he has no idea what he is talking about. Since Raven is asking, Ray realizes that the guild has not figured out his identity yet, or even the fact that he is affiliated with Gold Farm. Raven then asks Ray why he is risking his life for Yuto, and casually replies that he is doing it for the money. Raven is surprised that Ray is willing to make an enemy of the Dark Guild because of money, but Ray tells Raven that money is the most important thing in the world. All while discussing with Raven, Ray is casually fighting Jack and Cloaky with one hand. Ray then explains that the dudes are worth 100,000 yen each, and this also gives him the opportunity to sign Yuto to work for him for free. Ray then gets serious as a blue aura surrounds his body. He tells Raven that he killed Hisashi for the profit of the Dark Guild, but it is time he also dies for his own profit. Ray then activates the Soul Limit Break skill. The moment he does this, Yuto gets the notification that Ray is trying to use the skill on him. The system lets Yuto know that the skill comes with a severe backlash, but Yuto doesn't mind the cost as he immediately accepts it. Immediately Yuto accepts this. The system tells him that all his skill cooldowns have been reset, and an overwhelming aura emanates from Yuto's body. The system lets Yuto know that he has temporarily been given power by Ray. With a smile on his face, Ray tells Yuto to get things done, and Yuto activates his acceleration skill. Yuto leaps toward Raven, but Raven doesn't look scared. Just as Yuto is about to reach Raven, he suddenly realizes that he is surrounded by ice spikes. He manages to escape from there thanks to his acceleration skill. Raven then reminds Yuto that he is the one who knows his movements best. Raven admits that Yuto's speed and dual blades are impressive, but he lets him know that he has 3 weaknesses. Raven says the first weakness that Yuto has is short reach. Yuto soon finds himself struggling against Raven's incessant attacks. Yuto realizes that Raven's spear is a direct counter to his speed because of its reach. Raven then continues by saying Yuto's second weakness is the lack of power. Raven proves this by swinging his spear at Yuto, releasing a wave of energy that pushes him back. Raven then mentions that Yuto's last weakness is the time limit on his skill. Raven continues making life difficult for Yuto by creating ice spears everywhere, while telling him that he is guaranteed victory as long as he can outlast his acceleration skill. Yuto admits that he has no chance at defeating Raven with his strength, but it turns out that he has a plan in mind. Raven can sense this, but he makes fun of Yuto, telling him that no matter what he tries, he can see through all of his movements. At the same time, Yuto knows Raven's skills very well, and he knows that he just has to be wary of one, which is the recoil reverse. This is a skill that amplifies the force of an attack and returns it to the opponent. Yuto knows that if Ray's power could have given him a boost, this also means the recoil will grow. Yuto realizes that he is left with one option, which is to break through before Raven can activate the skill. Yuto then makes another daring move to close Raven down. Raven is shocked when he sees this, leaving him to wonder what sort of boost he is running on. Even Yuto admits that he doesn't know, which shows how incredible Ray's power is. Just as Yuto is about to reach Raven, Raven activates the recoil reverse skill and hits Yuto in the chest. Yuto is sent crashing into the wall, and as he coughs up blood, Raven mocks him, telling him that he is going to send him to the afterlife just like he did to Hisashi. Just then, Ray's dagger comes flying at Raven from behind. He barely dodges the dagger, but it cuts his face before getting stuck in the wall. Raven screams at Ray, telling him not to interfere because his own turn is also coming. However, Raven didn't know that the dagger Ray threw was for Yuto. Before he turned around, Yuto had pulled out the dagger from the wall. Yuto pushes the dagger into Raven's chest while telling him that he learned how to use daggers from Ray. Raven coughs up blood before finally crashing to the ground. Seeing Raven on the ground, Yuto lets off a bright smile while talking about how he has managed to avenge his little brother. Images of his brother and their time flash through his head when he says this. With his revenge mission complete, the effect of the Soul Limit Break skill also comes to an end. The system then tells Yuto that his health has decreased due to the recoil. Yuto softly reveals how he wished he killed Raven with his own moves. Just as he is about to crash to the ground, Ray grabs him, telling him that the skill he used was his own power, not his skill. Yuto then asks about Jack and Cloaky. Ray assures Yuto that the two are nothing to him because he has already taken care of them. Ray points to the two, and just as he said, he has beaten them into submission. Some minutes earlier, Jack and Cloaky had expressed their displeasure about how confident Ray is in looking away from them. This was when Ray finally turned back to check on the two because he totally forgot that he was fighting them. Just then, Jack activates a space skill called the Death Aura, which gives him the chance to unleash an attack skill. Cloaky, being the sneaky old man that he is, also attacks Ray from behind. Cloaky teases Ray, asking him if he can dodge midair with nothing to stand on. Surprisingly, Cloaky's attack misses, and the dagger impales Jack instead. Before Cloaky knows what is happening, Ray appears behind him with a knife to his throat, telling him that he is an idiot for throwing away his weapon. Ray then cuts his throat too, and when Yuto hears the story, he realizes that Ray was way too strong for the two. Yuto then urges Ray to allow him to rest a bit because he won't be able to move for a while. Ray assures Yuto that he is aware, and he should take his time. Suddenly, a dude carrying a digger in his hand shows up, expressing his surprise that Yuto actually defeated Raven. The moment Ray sees the dude, he realizes that the Dark Guild reinforcements showed up before the ones they are expecting from Wings of Genesis. Standing behind the new dude are a bunch of Dark Guild members, but all Ray is seeing is money. As he gets into a combat position, Ray admits that the dungeon is paying more than he expected. Moments later, Ray has taken all of the reinforcements out, and he is disappointed that they are not even strong. However, he is glad that even the weakest Dark Guild member carries the same amount of bounty. Not long after this, the Wings of Genesis finally arrive on the scene, and Ray takes off his mask since he is on familiar grounds. Tsukino commends Ray for the good job, saying she is impressed that only he and Yuto were able to seal off the Dark Guild's base. Ray assures Tsukino that this is nothing, and Tsukino asks about Yuto. Ray casually points to where Yuto is lying, and when Tsukino turns to check on him, she realizes that the dude is badly beaten, showing just how intense the battle was. The healer then attends to Yuto, while Tsukino tells Ray that the Wings of Justice will now assist in the base lockdown. One dude wearing his baseball hat backwards suggests that they just barge into the base and wipe out the Dark Guild, since they are all criminals, instead of opting for a base lockdown. The bald-headed dude also agrees with the dude in the hat, saying they have the numbers and the strength to wipe out the Dark Guild in one sweep. However, Tsukino denies their suggestion, reminding them that Ray is in charge of the operation, and disobeying his orders is highly prohibited. Just then, a ginger-haired lady, Hoshino Yori, from the guild tells the baldy and everyone to fall in line and follow Tsukino's orders. An argument ensues between the two, and Ray cuts in, telling them that the enemy's strength lies in their numbers. Ray says they have to stick to fighting in the yard if they want to prevent the enemy from using the numbers. Ray tells the two dudes that they are free to charge in if they disagree with him, but he assures them that he is not going to take responsibility for their deaths. The two then decide to ask if there is anyone who agrees with their plan, but to their dismay, no one is willing to bet against Ray's words. Ray analyzes the situation and walks up to Yuto, telling him to keep an eye on the two. Once this is settled, they are told to send the captured prisoners to the guild. The guild then starts cooking and having fun in the yard, while waiting for the Dark Guild members to come out. 3 hours later, none of them has made an appearance, and Ray says they must have gotten wind of the reinforcements coming in. Nonetheless, Ray says they can actually starve them out, and when they finally get desperate to break the siege, the team is going to wipe them out. While the allies are enjoying good food outside, the enemies inside the house are trapped and starving. Moments later, Tsukino tells the team that their time of rest might soon come to an end because two suspicious individuals are heading their way. The baldy believes that the two are just scouts and not combat players, but Ray disagrees. He explains that in player versus player combat, quality actually overwhelms quantity. With this, he lets them know that 2 skilled fighters are more troublesome than 100 weaklings. Ray asks Yuto if he has any idea who the two are. Yuto mentions that the two are definitely higher-ups stronger than Raven. Basically, there are 3 of them, codenamed Gamma, Beta, and Alpha. However, aside from the fact that he knows that they are strong, Ray says he doesn't know much about them. Tsukino shows Yuto footage of the two, which was sent by the reconnaissance team, but Yuto confesses that he doesn't know if they are the ones because he has never seen them before. However, judging by the situation, he is convinced that they are Beta and Gamma. When Ray hears this, he figures out that there is someone else hiding in the castle, and they are probably planning a pincer attack. Tsukino then makes the plan, saying she is going to handle one, while Ray handles one, and the last one is handled by everyone else. Yuto urges the group to be careful because he has only met Alpha once before, but he can categorically say there is no one as evil as him. Ray then asks Tsukino if the reward for stronger enemies is higher, but Tsukino says no, reminding him that the reward per person has been fixed. Ray is disappointed to hear this because he believes that with this, it is much more profitable to take down weaker enemies. Once they have all come to an agreement, they prepare for the assault from the 2 incoming enemies. Suddenly, the group notices that the animals in the area are all scurrying for safety, which is pretty weird. Tsukino is the first to notice that something is wrong, and she screams at the group to fall back. Out of nowhere, a large beam hits the yard, destroying everything in its path, creating a fiery crater in the ground. Even though they were warned by Tsukino, some still got caught in the beam because of how destructive it was. Those who are injured are immediately attended to by the medical team. Gamma and Beta finally show their faces, and they are disappointed that the group wasn't wiped out by the powerful beam. The moment Tsukino spots them, she concludes that the two are pretty dangerous and would not be easy to deal with. Yuto suggests that he take on the dual-wielding dude, but Tsukino tells him not to worry. Tsukino then leaps into the air, and she unleashes a powerful fireball of her own at the two. With the amount of fire that Tsukino just generated, she believes that she has taken care of the two. Meanwhile, Roof is lying on the roof behind them, and he is waiting for the right time to join the fight. While Tsukino is still boasting about how destructive her fire is, the sword-wielding dude on white comes charging at her through the fire. He leaps at Tsukino and aims to cut her head off, but Tsukino is able to block the attack at the right time. The dual wielder is also charging in at Tsukino, aiming to catch her off guard, but Iori comes in just in time to block the dude. The dual wielder is surprised that there are skilled fighters among the group. Tsukino knows that she would have died, and she thanks Iori for coming clutch at the right time to save her. The dude in white laughs at Tsukino, telling her that she would have been dead if not for Iori's intervention. The dude trash-talks Tsukino, saying the Transcendent 10 are just a bunch of weaklings. He says they might be capable against monsters, but they actually lack real battle experience. However, Tsukino smiles at the dude, telling him not to underestimate the Transcendent 10 because when it comes to battle experience, they are way above the likes of him. The dude then leaps backward, telling Tsukino that she is getting it wrong. He lets her know that the battle experience he is talking about revolves around killing people, not monsters. The dude then takes a deep breath before activating a weird skill. Tsukino has no idea what is coming for her, and before she knows it, she gets hit with a strange attack that the dude released from his ugly mouth. Tsukino screams in pain and falls to her knees while wondering what just hit her. Before she knows it, she realizes that her vision is already blurry, and this is when the system informs her that she has been poisoned. The healers panic when they see their guildmaster in this state, and they quickly swing into action to heal her, but this only makes things worse. Tsukino screams in pain as the poison spreads further into her body. The healers are shocked when they see this, and the dude who poisoned her tells the healers that their powers are useless because there is no healer strong enough to cure his poison. When Tsukino hears this, she only becomes more motivated to fight, and she tells the dude that she just has to finish the fight before the poison spreads. Tsukino unleashes another wave of destructive flames at the dude, but the dude easily dodges this. He leaps over the fire and lunges toward Tsukino, telling her that she only has flashy moves because she is used to fighting monsters only. The dude gets closer to Tsukino, aiming to land a hit, but Tsukino dodges and returns the favor with a counterattack. A ball of fire emerges again, but the dude dodges just like before, while confidently telling Tsukino that her attempts are useless. He mentions that he has a skill that nullifies fire, but unknown to him, another member of the team has used the fire as a cover to get behind him. Before he knows it, the dude slams a big hammer into him, sending him to the ground. While he is still trying to get himself together from this, 3 other members of the guild charge in at once. The dude tries running, but their long-range attacks catch up to him, leaving a big explosion. Tsukino smiles while telling the dude his mistake. Tsukino finally loses mobility, and she crashes to the ground while her guild members rush over to her. Thankfully, the dude who poisoned her died from the last attack, which ultimately removed the poison he inflicted on Tsukino. The hammer guy carries Tsukino up, telling her that the distraction spell worked really well. And Tsukino agrees to this, while adding that their training paid off too. She mentions that the strength of the guild is not in their individual strengths, but as a collective. Meanwhile, Yuto and Iori are currently taking on the dual wielder, and he is getting pushed back. He is surprised that Yuto is getting one over him, since he knows that he is stronger than Mouse. However, he soon figures out that Yuto is able to corner him thanks to Iori's influence on the fight. However, he is also confused because the information he has on Iori is that her class is an elite thief and her physical ability is average at best. Even though she is Tsukino's close aide, there have been no notable achievements for her. He starts to wonder if there was a flaw in the information that they got from the spy because he can't even land a hit on Iori. He initially thought he was the one controlling the game, but he is constantly being drawn into Mouse's attack without range, without even realizing it. He is totally short of words because he never thought Iori's combat ability was this remarkable. Realizing that he is already getting exhausted from the battle, he makes a desperate move to put some distance between himself and the two. Suddenly, he gets caught in the soul thread, shocking him. He knows that from the information they got from the spy, Iori shouldn't have this skill, since Rei is the one wielding such skills. He is left questioning why Iori has it, but before he knows it, Iori activates the flame array, which ultimately burns the dude to nothing, causing him to scream to his death. After defeating the dude, the supposed Rei is seen in the back, calling Iori Rei. This confuses everyone because they actually have no idea what is happening. Just then, Iori deactivates a skill known as visual exchange, leaving a bright light that almost blinds those who are watching. By the time the process is done, Iori has her face back, and Rei has his original face back too. Iori talks about how nervous she was while pretending that she was Rei. The Baldy is totally confused when he sees this because he can't believe that Iori just transformed into Rei. Iori mentions that she has a skill called visual exchange that allows her to switch faces with Rei. Since the guild specializes in dungeon strategies, they decided to let a pro like Rei handle PvP battles. Rei smiles, saying it was all Tsukino and Iori's idea, but he is glad that it worked out well. Once they are done marveling at what the visual exchange skill can do, Rei turns to the roof and tells Alpha to come down because it is high time he stops looking down on them. He urges Rei not to get cocky because they are a bunch of weaklings whose fates have been decided. He assures Rei and his subordinates that the yard is going to become their mass grave. The dude then leaps over them and unleashes powerful firepower from his sword. This forces the group to scatter, and Rei tells Tsukino and Yuto to take everyone to a safe spot. Before Rei knows it, Alpha has hurled his sword at him, forcing him to leap backwards yet again. However, Rei soon realizes that he has to deal with a bunch of swords coming at him at insane speed. Rei is forced to run while Alpha mocks him, telling him that he has no escape route. Surprisingly, Rei is able to dodge most of the swords and block those that he can. When Alpha sees this, he commends Rei, saying he is really an incredible player. Meanwhile, Tsukino and the others are freaking out about Alpha's multiple arms, which is why he is able to handle a bunch of swords at the same time. Rei, on the other hand, is not a rookie, and he knows that Alpha is able to do this thanks to the Spirit Berserker's invincible hands. This is a skill that attacks the opponent with the arms of a spirit duplicate, and because of how powerful the skill is, it actually drains stamina rapidly. Rei then tells Tsukino to back him up to make sure that the enemy healers are not able to help Alpha. Tsukino acknowledges this and tells her long-range combat team to aim for the castle. When Alpha realizes that Rei and his team are planning to drag him into a battle of attrition, he tells Rei that his plan is useless. Alpha proves his point by hurling a long-range attack at Rei, forcing him on the run again. Rei even gets cut in the face while trying to make an escape. Rei knows that the Berserker's spirit is considered to be one of the strongest skills because their number of attacks is always overwhelming. Alpha soon starts mocking Rei for running, asking him if all he can do is run away. Even Tsukino and the others are stunned that Rei is getting pushed back, which just shows how crazy the dude's power is. However, Yuto tells them to look closely because he doesn't think Rei is getting pushed back. Yuto explains that Rei is confidently blocking all of the attacks that could be fatal. On the other hand, Rei knows that the Berserker consumes stamina as the fight continues, but the moment they ease up, he believes that they won't be able to block his attacks. At this point, Alpha is already getting frustrated too, and he angrily unleashes a bunch of swords at Rei, telling him that it is time they settle the fight. To make sure Rei has no chance whatsoever, Alpha overloads the spirits and unleashes at least 100 swords at Rei at once. With the swords coming at him, Rei decides to leap into the air. Most of the attacks hit the ground, causing devastating damage, but Rei does something even crazier. While in the air, he activates a skill called Soul Serpent, and a giant snake appears, which he stands on. Rei gladly tells the snake that he has a bulk load of food that it can eat, but Alpha doesn't think the snake has a chance against him. Alpha hurls his swords at Rei again, but the healers quickly step up to help Rei. However, they are soon left distraught when they realize that the healing can't keep up because Alpha is causing too much damage. Alpha uses this opportunity to boast about the spirit's power while telling Rei that he has no chance against him without a main class. Tsukino then notices that Rei's health hasn't decreased, and she tells the healing team to keep going. Suddenly, Alpha realizes that he might be screwed because out of nowhere, the initial one serpent has multiplied into scary numbers. Rei smiles evilly at Alpha, telling him that he is the one who provided the food for the snakes to multiply. Rei then tells the snakes that their main dish is Alpha, while pointing to him to make sure that they don't mistake him for someone else. Alpha cannot believe that Rei just referred to him as food, and this pisses him off. He angrily unleashes a new skill to create a spirit territory with the determination to make Rei regret the words he said. This creates multiple attack points that take out all of the other snakes before converging on Rei, who is standing on the last snake. Rei figures out that Alpha just used a skill that increases the speed and power of arm generation at the cost of reduced range. But this is a fighting style that burns through really quickly. With this type of short burst attack, Rei believes that Alpha won't be able to last long enough to defeat the snakes. Out of nowhere, a spear comes flying at Rei from behind, but Yuto jumps in to cut down the attack, and he looks really pissed while doing this. Yuto stares down at the culprits responsible for the surprise attack, and it turns out to be the Baldy and the dude in a hat from earlier. Yuto immediately goes after them with rage, telling them that they have finally revealed their true colors, and it is time that they are punished. They try to run away, but Rei catches up to them and knocks them both out. With Rei watching Yuto deal with the traitors, Alpha tries to sneak up on him, but Rei easily dodges the surprise attack. With Alpha not expecting Rei to dodge the strike, he leaves himself open for an attack, and Rei uses the best of it. Rei lands a counterattack by pushing his dagger into Alpha's chest, shocking him. Alpha crashes to the ground, and as he bleeds out, he starts asking Rei how he was able to block the last attack when it was supposed to be the perfect surprise attack. Rei quickly corrects his delusion, telling him that there is nothing perfect about the attack because he already knew that the Baldy and the Hat Guy were spies from the start. Alpha coughs up blood while asking Rei if he really thinks he can survive after turning the Dark Guild against himself, and Rei calls Alpha's attention to the reality of things. He reminds him that with him, Gamma, and Beta gone, the Dark Guild's main forces have been mostly taken out. Rei boldly reveals that what is left is to enjoy the spoils left behind. After the enemies are defeated, They take the head count and, since it is 1 million yen per person, get 452 million yen for the 452 people defeated. Rei also packs all the treasure found inside the building, and it was transferred to the gold farm headquarters. Rei commends Tsukino for the good work and tells her that she is free to take anything left in the castle. Tsukino cannot believe that Rei is seriously saying this after taking even the tiniest treasure that can be found in the building. Rei tries to console her, saying he found some strange white powder left behind, but Tsukino quickly tells him that she is not interested in his trash white powder. Later on, Rei is at the office when Rumi tells him that the government reward has been transferred. Rei is relieved to hear this, and Rumi adds that in recognition of his work, the government has assigned an assistant to the guild. Rei is not entirely pleased with this because he doesn't want the government monitoring his movements. Rumi is not surprised because she was already expecting Rei to say this. Rumi then moves past this and asks Rei how they are supposed to liquidate the treasures that they got from the Dark Guild. One of the guild members suggests that they sell them at a precious metals exchange, but Rumi tells him that this is impossible since the treasure was obtained from bad guys. Moments later, a strange lady enters the office asking after Rei. Rei scornfully asks the lady who she is, and the lady is surprised that Rei doesn't recognize her. She reminds Rei that she was the attendant whom he met during the rank certification exam. Rei lets her know that he is not really interested in remembering things that don't make him money. She tries to play it cool and finally introduces herself as Misaki Sakuma. It was after she introduced herself that Rumi explained to Rei that she was the one from the rank exam reception desk. After explaining to him like a baby, Rei finally has an idea who she is, and he asks Misaki if she is there to make him money. Misaki nervously says yes, telling Rei that she has been assigned by the Japanese government as his assistant. Basically, she is a free assistant that he gets to use however he likes because she will save on labor costs. Rei lets Misaki know that he has no need for her because he already has more than enough hands on deck. Rei points to the cash cows, telling Misaki that he has plenty of free laborers already. However, Misaki is not about to give up, and she lets Rei know that she will do anything. Kuki and the others are already feeling threatened just from her presence and her vow to do anything. Misaki assures Rei that she can do anything from cleaning the office to laundering untraceable assets. She is confident that she can even procure explosives and weapons while covering up illegal activities. She tells Rei that as long as it is something useful, she can do it. Rei then asks her if she will be able to launder gold bars with no traceable origin. Misaki takes a moment to think about it, and she tells Rei that she would have customs seize it as contraband and sell it off before funneling the money back to Rei under the table. Misaki lets Rei know that if she processes the funds as a special commission from the Player Association, it shouldn't appear suspicious. Misaki stares at Rei with a gold digger expression, and she asks him if she should try what she just said. Rei expresses his concerns, saying he doesn't trust her. Misaki tries to repair her image, asking Rei if he will collect 6 billion as an advance payment for the gold so he can give her a trial. Misaki knows that the gold's value will be higher, but she assures Rei that she is going to transfer the difference later. Rei is surprised to hear this, and he asks Misaki if she is authorized to do all she just said. Misaki replies that she has been authorized to manage funds up to the set amount without having to ask for permission. She urges Rei to give her a minute while she figures it out, and Rei immediately whips out a timer to show Misaki that she is on the clock. Misaki gets down to business on her tablet, and after working her magic, she tells Rei that 5 billion yen has been sent by the Player Association. By doing this, Misaki confidently walks up to Rei, telling him that she is pretty useful. Later on, Misaki is able to exchange the gold too, and she informs Rei that the difference is 1.2 billion, which has been transferred to him. She shows him the report, and after checking it out, Rei admits that Misaki is quite useful. Rei then tells her that he has one question for her before he officially invites her into the guild. Rei asks her what the government's true objective is for assigning her to his guild. Misaki has no choice but to be honest, since the truth will obviously come out very soon. She mentions that the government is trying to counter the recruitment from foreign countries. Apparently, talented layers are being bought over by countries worldwide. Once he understands the situation, Rei tells Misaki that if he can't make money in Japan, he will definitely leave for another country. To prevent this, Rei tells Misaki to do her best to make sure he earns as much money as he can. Misaki smiles nervously while assuring Rei that she would do this. Moments later, Rumi dumps a mountain of files on Misaki's table to sort. She also tells her to handle the selection of missions for the 3rd week of the month. Without complaining, Misaki accepts the roles. One of the guild members mentions how effective Rumi is when it comes to assigning roles, and Rei reveals that this was the reason he chose her as the guildmaster in the first place. Suddenly, Misaki notices something strange, and Rei asks her what the issue is. She reveals that she was checking the mission database, but there hasn't been a single new mission added in the past 4 days. She mentions that there's usually some fluctuation in mission occurrences, but she finds it strange that there are no missions at all. Even Rei is shocked when he hears this, and he tells Misaki to quickly confirm with the government. Misaki follows Rei's instructions and whips out her magic staff. Misaki then activates a remote telepathy skill, which shoots out a fierce energy into the sky, emitting waves for Misaki to connect to. Once she gets a response, she tells Rei that the Player Association Geospatial Information Authority and the Cabinet Office have all responded. Apparently, in the past 4 days, there has been no single new mission in Japan. In fact, the same thing is happening in every other country. When Rei hears this, he tells Misaki that this is the prelude to a massive mission. He immediately tells Misaki to prioritize claiming all high-reward missions that are currently available, because for a while, they might not see any regular missions. Soon afterward, everyone gets the notification of a new large-scale mission, called the Trial of the Waterfall. The time limit on this is 90 days, and they are to defeat the boss within the time limit or the whole of Asia will be destroyed. When the Gold Farm Guild sees this, Rumi asks Rei what the plan is, and Rei suggests that they continue tackling the smaller missions in the meantime. Since the Trial of the Waterfall covers the whole of Asia, Rei says there are many countries involved, and organizing rewards and sponsors will take time. Rei tells the guild that they are going to leave the mission until they have organized the rewards. In addition, Rei says continental missions occur simultaneously worldwide, and depending on the amount, the guild might abandon Asia to focus elsewhere. Rumi is shocked to hear this, and she reminds Rei that if they abandon Asia, Japan will perish, leaving her to ask Rei if he is willing to let that happen. Rei evilly replies that everything depends on the reward. Rei then tells Misaki to start preparation in accepting the large-scale missions because they will be competing with guilds worldwide. He adds that they should start selecting potential partners because the guild doesn't have enough numbers to take on a trial. Even though Genesis Wings isn't a bad option, he still believes that there will be cheaper guilds out there that are ready to cooperate. 1 week after this, Misaki shows up telling Rei that the mission details have been released and the reward is 70 billion yen. Apparently, the mission occurred in 5 different locations, which are America, Africa, Europe, Asia, and Australia. Apparently, in all of these, only Asia and Australia are open for private contracts. Rei is impressed by the reward, and he tells Misaki that securing the contract will depend on reputation since the reward is already fixed. Misaki lets Rei know that it is actually a good decision to have partnered with Genesis Wings, because having Tsukino, who is one of the 10 Transcendents, is a big advantage. Although, to be fair, they were also the cheapest option out there. Gold Farm will get 70%, while Genesis Wings will get 30%. Rei then asks Misaki if she thinks the guild will be able to secure at least one of these contracts, and Misaki replies that it is hard to say. She explains that in terms of mission completions, both Genesis Wings and Gold Farm rank around 100 globally. When talking about numbers, they are considered mid-tier compared to Chinese and American guilds. Apparently, most large guilds focus on sheer numbers, taking on low-level missions at once. On the other hand, Gold Farm and Genesis Wings focus on elite members instead of numbers. Misaki then mentions that the identity of the number 1 player remains unknown, but there are rumors of an unknown player in Thailand clearing a national-level mission. However, the international meeting to finalize who the contract goes to is in 2 weeks, and Misaki assures Rei that until then, they are going to gather information and prepare. 2 weeks later, at the International Conference Hall, Rei and his subordinates show up for the final bidding. Misaki tells Rei that only 4 teams are currently in play, and Rei is surprised that there aren't more than 4. Misaki tells him that there were more than 10 guilds that initially expressed interest, but they couldn't gather enough members. It is well known that for large-scale missions, the number of capable players is limited. Tsukino buys into this, saying it was pretty hard for them to even gather volunteers. Tsukino asks Rei how many people Gold Farm is bringing, and he reveals that he is including everyone in his guild in the mission. Rei then asks Misaki if they stand a chance against the assembled teams. Apparently, there is Blaue Vogel and Black Dragon competing against them. Misaki mentions Vogel is an internationally renowned guild, and they have declared that they will take the Australian mission. However, as for the Asia mission, they are going to be competing one-on-one with Black Dragon. Although Rumi believes that they will be able to win easily, because Black Dragon doesn't even have a record of clearing national-level missions, Misaki is a bit skeptical about the whole thing. Moments later, they announce that the Blau Vogel has gotten the Australian mission, and the host tells everyone that they will be moving to the Asian continent mission. The host mentions that the floor will hear the presentation from the Japanese team first. Tsukino then stands up to represent the team, and everyone on the team wishes her luck. After laying out why the Gold Farm and Genesis Wings Guild should get the trial, Tsukino gets off the stage, and she receives a resounding applause. Misaki and Rei smile at each other because they believe that they have the edge, since the response from the floor is quite good. However, Rei is worried about how Black Dragon is going to present their case. Moments later, the leader of the Black Dragon Guild, Dragon King, stands up to present their case. The first thing he does is to piss on Tsukino's presentation, calling it an extremely dull presentation. He boldly tells the committee that he has something more interesting to tell them to prevent them from falling asleep. The dude then points to the healers in Tsukino's guild, saying that they are all weak points in the team. This shocks the healers, and the dude continues by mentioning the research that they have supposedly conducted. He mentions that over 70% of party wipeouts revolve around healers. Because of this, the dude believes that it would be better if they got rid of healers. The Dragon King says the healers and other fragile classes have no room in the team because their party consists of sword masters, staff masters, and fist masters. He claims that these are classes that can all protect themselves using the aura that surrounds their bodies. Basically, as long as they have aura, they can't get injured, which means that the use of healers is not needed. The Dragon King confidently says his party has no weaknesses, while adding that this was the same strategy that they used in clearing tough missions during their days in Prophecy Online. He admits that they have no experience with the Trial of the Waterfall, but he believes that it can be cleared using the same methods. The reception in the room immediately brightens up, and Rei lets his team know that they are done for. Tsukino cuts in, telling Rei that she doesn't think a party without healers will be able to conquer a continent-level mission. She asks for Rei's opinion, and Rei tells her that it depends on the mission. Rei admits that when it comes to the Trial of the Abyss, the Black Dragon strategy might actually be the best approach. However, he lets Tsukino know that the strategy is completely wrong for the Trial of the Waterfall because they are definitely going to be wiped out. Tsukino is shocked when Rei says this, leaving her to wonder why he said so. After the Dragon King is done presenting, the host tells everyone that a review meeting will take place and the results will be announced momentarily. Rumi nervously asks Rei if he thinks that they are going to get the mission, since they look like the better team to handle it. Rei replies that he can't say, but he is sure that whatever happens, it can't be a bad outcome for them. Just then, Dragon King walks up to them to gloat, calling Rei and his team losers. He tells Rei and his team that he didn't think they would apply, while consoling them on the loss. Tsukino screams at the dude, reminding him that the results haven't been announced yet. However, the Dragon King lets Tsukino know that the results have already been decided even before the meeting. Rei casually asks the Dragon King if he bribed the board, and he smiles without giving a definite answer. The dragon tells Tsukino and her team that the whole thing is a blessing in disguise because they can at least avoid dying a pointless death. This pisses Tsukino off, and she tells the Dragon King that he is arrogant and dull. But even so, she admits that his guild has cleared missions and protected towns where people live. Because of this, she tells the Dragon King that it would be a big loss for his guild to be wiped out by a reckless attempt, and she suggests that he withdraw. This gets to the Dragon King, and he screams at Tsukino for underestimating them, assuring Tsukino that they have no intention of backing down. The dude loses his composure and prepares to attack, but Tsukino is ready for whatever he throws at her. Suddenly, Rei appears beside the dude and grabs his hand, telling him to calm down. The Dragon King is shocked because he didn't even sense Rei until he got close to him. Rei then apologizes for how Tsukino behaved, and he urges the Dragon King to ignore Tsukino's request to back down. Tsukino is shocked to hear this, and she asks Rei what he is trying to do. Rei is forced to call Tsukino's attention to the recruitment terms. In the terms, it is written that if the contracted party loses its ability to clear the mission due to casualties or other reasons, the second choice party will take over the contract. In such cases, the reward amount will increase according to the remaining mission time. After pointing this out, Rei tells Tsukino that they are only going to get paid more. The Dragon King laughs this off, saying a guild led by a woman has no chance whatsoever. The Dragon King mocks Rei, telling Rei that the committee has already decided and his guild will be taking the contract. He then teases Rei, saying he should have let his guild win so that he could watch them get wiped out. Just then, the announcements come in that a decision has been made. Just as expected, the Black Dragon is announced as the contracted party for the Trial of the Waterfall. When Rei sees this, Rei congratulates the Dragon King, telling him to take his time to fail because the longer it takes, the more the remaining time inflates the reward. However, the Dragon King is confident that he and his team can get it done. When Rei and his team return to their control room, Tsukino asks Rei what they are supposed to do. She asks if they should head back to Japan, but Rei says they will be heading to China because they have finished all of their contracted missions. Rei wants them to stay near the location of the Trial of the Waterfall and wait for the Black Dragon to fail. Rei turns to Misaki, telling her to book cheap flights heading to China for the team, but Misaki says she's going to book safe ones instead. Suddenly, a yellow-haired girl rushes into the room, urging the team to calm down because she has a request for them. Rei watches in disgust before asking the girl who she is. She reveals that she is Marie, and she is from Blaue Vogel. Tsukino notices that Marie is struggling to speak Japanese, and she urges her to speak her native language because they have the language skill, which makes it easy for them to understand her. Marie thanks Tsukino for the warm reception and says she will just speak German instead. Marie then reveals something shocking, telling the team that they would like them to take over their mission. Misaki is shocked to hear this because she knows that Vogel has 3 members from the Transcendent 10, which means they shouldn't have an issue clearing the Australian mission. Ray knows that this is the reason why the guild accepted the mission, but he is pretty sure that something else happened after the contract was signed. Marie confirms this, saying that they are in a bit of a bind. The moment Ray hears that Marie and her guild are in trouble, he decides to teach her a proverb in Japanese. Marie asks him what the proverb is, and he quotes that even hell's judgments depend on money, which he claims is the most famous Japanese proverb. Marie hears this and realizes that Ray has no issue with taking over the mission as long as he gets paid. Not long after this, Marie takes the team to her brother, Daniel Keller, who is the guildmaster of Vogel. Tsukino also introduces herself as the guildmaster of Genesis Wings, but Ray simply says he is from Gold Farm. Daniel then tells the team that they want them to take over the Australian mission, while assuring them that they are going to officially notify the UN of their withdrawal. Ray is surprised that they are just dumping the mission on them, and he demands to know what happened. Daniel decides to be honest since the truth will eventually come out. Daniel reveals that the US has poached 2 out of the 3 members from the 10 Transcendents that they have. Daniel says he has always heard that the United States was poaching players for money, but he can't believe that they took 2 of their players just when they took the Australian mission. Ray is impressed that Daniel has been able to figure out that 1 high-level player is not enough for the mission. Daniel confirms this, saying he believes that at least 2 members of the Transcendent 10 are necessary for the mission. He talks about how they are not ready to put valuable resources at risk, and Ray concludes that the dude is quite cautious. However, Ray has no reason to complain, since he will be getting billions in rewards. Ray says the mission is doable, and he asks Tsukino what she thinks about it. Tsukino expresses her concern, saying that they can't participate because the Genesis Wings members are fearful of continent-level dungeons. She reveals that even for the Trial of Earth, they had to beg them to protect Japan, which they reluctantly agreed to. Tsukino apologizes to the people of Australia, but lets Daniel know that they can't release their members for missions outside Asia. Ray, on the other hand, tells Daniel that his guild, Gold Farm, will participate in the mission, but they don't have enough people for a continent-level trial. He mentions that when it comes to the Australian mission, which is the Trial of the Desert, numbers are really crucial. Ray says that they are going to need at least 200 B-rank players, but his guild can't produce such a large number of players. Since Vogel is a mercenary group, Ray asks Daniel if he will be willing to lend them around 150 players for 10% of the reward. Daniel replies that they don't just lend out players because they always include commanders to manage risks, oversee retreats, and support staff for logistics. After all of his explanations, Daniel asks him if he is saying it is impossible. But Daniel says they are going to need at least 200 million yen to mobilize a decent force for a joint operation. Ray casually replies that this is too expensive, while claiming that Daniel is trying to extort them. Rumi cannot believe that Ray is talking about extortion when he only gave Genesis Wings 30% when teaming up with them. Daniel then continues by saying missions cost money, but Ray doesn't buy this idea. He believes that equipment is self-funded, and salaries come from 10 to 30% of the rewards. With a stern voice, Ray tells Daniel that he actually doesn't need a grand army. Marie then turns to her brother, telling him that Ray and his team might not even need expensive equipment, since they are strong enough. Since this is the case, she believes that taking 20% of the reward will be profitable. Daniel confirms this but asks Marie if she thinks that the team is actually strong. Daniel says he is pretty sure that Tsukino and Genesis Wing are strong, but he can't say the same for Gold Farm. Daniel lets his sister know that Gold Farm is a guild without a single member from the Transcendent 10. Marie then tells Daniel that she is pretty sure that the team is pretty strong, especially Ray. Marie confidently tells Daniel that Ray is stronger than her, and Ray agrees with her. Daniel, on the other hand, doesn't want to believe this, as he tells Ray that Marie is quite strong. Ray assures Daniel that he is aware of Marie's position because she is obviously the last member of the 10 Transcendents that didn't get poached. Apparently, Marie is ranked 7th among the Transcendent 10. Marie smiles when she hears this and says Ray is right. Suddenly, Marie activates her skill, and she attacks Ray with thorned vines. Ray is able to dodge the vines, and he even grabs one of them, which he uses to drag Marie to the floor. Daniel watches in horror as his sister is easily defeated, and Marie uses this to explain to her brother that she launched a surprise attack on Ray, but he still dodged it. In fact, he even had the strength to pull her to the ground without using any skill. Daniel, on the other hand, is horrified because he is worried that things could have gotten worse if Ray had been hit. Marie then tells her brother that it definitely wouldn't have hit Ray because anyone who couldn't dodge her strike would stand no chance against the vermilion spider that was defeated in the Trial of Earth. Marie mentions that the ones who cleared the Trial or Earth were Genesis Wings. but she is pretty sure that it was a lie because she has a thing about judging people. Marie cracks open the truth, saying she is pretty sure that Tsukino wasn't the one who cleared the Trial of Earth because the one who really cleared it was Rei. With a confident smile, Marie tells Daniel that they have nothing to worry about as long as Rei is with them. Soon afterward, Rei joins Daniel and Marie at the trial site where the requested mercenaries are waiting. The mercs are all surprised that Daniel is handing over command to Rei, who is a nobody from Gold Farm. Most of them believe that Rei being the commander of the operation is just a formality because they are only trying to make up for the defectors who got poached because of money. Daniel then climbs the stage to inform the players that Vogel and Gold Farm will be conducting a joint operation, and he introduces Rei to the squad, telling them that he is going to be serving as commander for the operation. Rei then takes the reins, and he tells the players that his first and most important priority is to make sure that no one dies in the battle to come. He tells them to prioritize saving lives if they become uncertain about their decisions. Most of the players don't believe in Rei's idealistic approach, believing that they can't conquer a continental-level dungeon that way. Basically, their reward has been decided at $5 million without the expenses for Vogel. However, it appears that for every death on Vogel's side, $10 million will be deducted from the reward. Rei doesn't want to lose anyone because of this. Rei informs them that the desert trial is vastly bigger in scope than the usual trials, and the moment they move further ahead, monsters would most likely start showing up. Rei then repeats himself, saying safety must be prioritized no matter what. After giving his speech, he tells the squad to move out, and as they get closer to the trial site, they suddenly feel the ground shake as if there is an earthquake. Suddenly, a monster comes dashing toward the squad, and the team immediately rolls out cannons to engage the monster. They fire a bunch of shells at the monster that sets it on fire, but even with the first wave of fire, they are not able to take down the monster. The squad is forced to continue firing cannons at the monster, and even the players with long-range capabilities join the battle. While they are busy doing this, Rei is thinking of something else. He soon asks the squad leader how much each of the shells that is being fired costs. The dude mentions that he is not sure about the amount, but they are using the cheapest shells, since they were instructed not to use expensive weapons. The squad leader reveals that the contents of the shells are just 5 franc coins, and the moment Rei hears this, he contacts Misaki, who is back at the control room. Rei then tells her to check how much Vogel's mortar shells cost, while informing her that they are filled with 5 franc coins. Misaki then gets on her calculator to get the cost, and she informs Rei that the base shells cost around 300,000 yen. However, when they factor in the Swiss franc coins that are packed inside, the value jumps to about 1 million yen per shell. Rei almost faints when he hears how much the shells cost, and they are busy firing them in high numbers at the monsters. Rei quickly tells the squad leader that he and his team will handle the monster from that moment forward. He tells the dude to report the locations to them, and the squad leader does as instructed. Rei is informed that 3 monsters just appeared in front of them, and Rei leaps toward the monsters. Rei easily takes out the monsters, but Rei only sees a stingy dude who can't spare shells costing just 1 million. Daniel says saving money is nice, but at the same time, using skills would cause cooldowns. Because of this, he believes that the main players should save their skills for really strong enemies. Marie then tells her brother that Rei is not using skills. Daniel is shocked to hear this because he can't believe that he took down such large monsters without skills. Marie then reminds her brother that she already told him that Rei is pretty strong. Suddenly, Daniel notices that a monster is closing in on Rei from behind, and he might not be able to react because it is already close. Out of nowhere, Kuki and his team appear to take down the monsters. Rei joins them in taking out the monsters, and with a smile on their faces, Gold Farm players decimate the monsters. When Marie sees this, she tells her brother that Rei is not the only elite player in the guild because the rest are just as capable as him. Daniel has no choice but to agree with his sister, and he expresses his shock that an unknown guild from the Far East is pretty strong. Daniel is forced to admit that as long as Rei and his guys are there, they have nothing to worry about. Marie notices her brother's mood, and she urges him to calm down, assuring him that his time will come too because the desert trial has just begun. As they continue moving forward, the squad figures out that they are already getting close to the trial core. The squad leader reveals that the anti-sandstorm combat equipment is ready, and it is time they prepare for entry. Since they are about to enter a scary sandstorm, Daniel screams out instructions to the team, telling them to form up into the entry formation just like they trained. Rei lets them know that from that moment forward, lack of visibility will mean that instructions will not be entirely detailed. Rei tells the Gold Farm players to protect the members of the Vogel Guild because he doesn't even want a single one to die. Rei adds that the team should keep their eyes open because with the player defense stats, the sandstorm shouldn't hurt them that much. With the instructions already laid out, Rei and his team are the first to dive into the sandstorm. The Vogel players are left stunned that they are about to enter such a scary sandstorm, but the squad leader motivates them, telling them that if a small guild from the Far East isn't scared, they don't have the right to be scared either. With this, the team starts their push into the sandstorm, and they soon realize that the insides are really dark. Even though they are maintaining a straight-line format, two dullards end up getting separated from the main squad. Suddenly, they run into a scary monster. They scream at the squad to form up for combat, but this is when it dawns on the two fools that they are all alone. Even though they are scared, they conclude that they have no choice but to fight. The two run in opposite directions, trying to catch the monster at its weak point. One unleashes iron needles at the monster to try to block its visibility, while the other one leaps at the monster with a sword, intending to cut its head off. However, the monster catches on to their plan, and it swings its hand at the attacking dude. He gets thrown into the distance, and his friend screams at him, asking him if he is fine. Even though he is bleeding, he tells his colleague that he is good. Suddenly, the monster leaps toward them, ready to turn them into food. The two scream in fear, believing that all hope is lost, but the monster suddenly loses its head. The two turned around to see that they had just been saved by Ray and his squad. Ray is not happy with the fact that he almost lost two assets, and he tells his squad to make sure that there are no gaps in the defense network. Ray tells his squad that the Vogel players are not capable like them, so they have to protect them. The injured players are quickly attended to by Ray's healers, and he tells them to think of the Vogel players as a $10 million bundle of cash, which is why they have to protect them really carefully. The entire squad takes his instructions to heart and assures him that they are going to do as told. Daniel then orders that they reform the formation, and those who can't defend themselves should form a tight cluster. Marie adds that in whatever they do, they should not lose sight of the comrades next to them because separation means death. With this, the squad continues moving, and in no time they realize that they are almost through the sandstorm. Even though it is hard and strenuous, they manage to push through. Moments later, they arrive at the trial core, which is a mana pillar but has a guardian barrier for defense. Sitting in the middle of the core is the trial's sun, which is considered indestructible as long as the defense holds up. The yellow sun notices their arrival, and with a wicked smile, it welcomes them as foolish challengers who have come to die. The scary aura from the yellow sun alone scares the life out of Vogel players. However, Marie tells them to calm down because the sun won't attack them as long as they don't enter the barrier, which is its domain. She adds that there are 3 pillars on the outskirts, and by attacking these pillars, they can weaken the sun. To make it sweeter, they can attack the pillars while they are outside, but the pillars are extremely tough, so they are going to need numbers to weaken it. Ray tells the team that he is going to handle the core while they hit the outer pillars with maximum firepower within budget. Since the pillars won't attack back, the team is more than happy to jump on the mission. Ray assures them the pillars are like punching bags, but they have to attack them until they turn red, and they must keep the pillars in this state. Just then, Marie walks up to Ray, asking him if she can join the fight against the core instead of punching the pillars. Marie tells Ray that she would like to try out her team's original plan against the core to see if it can work in a continental-level trial. Ray refuses the offer, saying calculations have already shown that even with all of Vogel's firepower, the damage to the pillars is barely sufficient. Because of this, Ray believes that if one A-class player leaves, the pillar's color might not be stable. Marie then smiles at Ray, telling him to take her place instead. This annoys Ray, and he points his dagger at Marie, demanding 10 billion yen because he is the one giving orders for the operation. He reminds Marie that if she doesn't obey his orders, there is a $10 billion penalty to pay. Ray assures Marie that as long as she is able to pay the 10 billion, she is free to join the fight, but he lets her know that he won't be the one to guarantee her life. Marie is surprised that Ray is willing to take such a huge amount of money out of her allowance, but Ray doesn't really care. Once the squads are all ready to attack the pillar, Ray gives them the go-ahead to do so. Shortly afterward, the pillars turn red one after the other, and Ray tells Gold Farm's core assault team to stop attacking the pillar because once it stabilizes, they are going to proceed with their strategy. Yuto and the others acknowledge the order, while Marie is trying to convince her brother about what she told him. Daniel tries arguing with Marie, but Marie straight up threatens him by surrounding him with vines, ready to choke him up. With this, Daniel can see that his sister is really serious. He then walks up to Ray, telling him that he has a favor to ask him. Ray asks him what it is, and Daniel tells Ray that he would like Vogel to handle the boss. Ray is surprised to hear this because the main reason Daniel employed Gold Farm was that they decided it wasn't possible. Daniel then says they called Ray and Gold Farm because failure isn't an option, because if they fail, having backup ensures that they can fight with peace of mind. Ray sighs in disappointment, asking Daniel if he is trying to say that they are backups. Ray then reminds Daniel that what he is about to do is a breach of contract, which attracts 10 billion. Ray asks him if he can pay the fee, and Daniel assures him that he is aware of the penalty fee. Ray then tells Daniel that he should have it at the back of his mind that no matter who defeats the boss, the reward split won't change. Ray lets Daniel know that he is just going to lose 10 billion while also taking unnecessary risks. Daniel looks really disappointed while telling Ray that he is aware of the fact that there is no financial benefit. Just as he is about to mention why he is taking the risk, Marie appears behind him, and her voice sends chills down his spine. He quickly changes what he was going to say, claiming that Vogel is a globally renowned large-scale guild that needs to gain experience in conquering continental-level trials. Daniel tells Ray that the Vogel team is pretty experienced and that they are going to be of benefit to the organization in the future. Marie then cuts in, telling Daniel not to complicate things because it is their job as players to challenge high-difficulty trials. She claims that they are not going to back down just because the game has become reality. Marie asks Ray if she understands her analogy, but Ray says no, but he doesn't really care as long as they pay the penalty fee. Daniel then tells Ray that he has already transferred the funds to his account, and the moment Ray confirms the payment, Ray tells Marie to go ahead without interference. Daniel tells Ray that he will have to handle the pillars since Marie is not available, and Ray assures him that he is up for it. While they are busy discussing, Ray uses the soul eyes on Daniel, and he realizes that he possesses a Type C Night Soul fragment that can be extracted if he pays an unexpected amount of 10 billion yen or more. Since there is no reaction from the system, Ray realizes the penalty fee doesn't count for the condition. Even though low-grade souls are easy to gather, he knows that Type C souls are quite valuable. Because of this, Ray vows that he is going to get his hands on Daniel's soul fragment no matter what. Ray then asks Daniel if he would like to take some insurance. He tells Daniel that if he pays an additional 10 billion, he will save Marie if things get dangerous. When Daniel hears this, he considers it a good offer, and just as he is about to consider it, Marie cuts in saying there is no need for this. Marie tells Ray that they are all choosing to fight of their own free will. In addition, she believes that as long as they cross the barrier, the enemy's attacks won't reach them. Because of the small distance to the safe zone, Marie doesn't think paying 10 billion is worth it. Ray is not entirely pleased that Marie just ruined things for him, and he tells her to do whatever she wants while they handle the pillars. Marie then tells the team to get ready as they prepare to engage the boss. Daniel lets them know that the enemy's core isn't the sun, but the mana pillar sitting below it. Daniel explains that while the main unit led by Marie will attack the guardian barrier pillar, once it is destroyed, they will strike the mana pillar with the special cannon that they have prepared just for the mission. Daniel tells the team that they must remain vigilant the moment they cross the line. Once Daniel is done dishing out instructions, he tells the team to dive into the battle area. Daniel then activates his skill, Knight's Intimidation, which provokes enemies, drawing their attention for a set duration. Daniel's skill works pretty well, and it catches the sun's attention, forcing it to unleash a powerful ray at him. Daniel is able to block the beam, and his squad members break the beam with a water attack. Daniel is glad that the water attribute worked out pretty well against the yellow sun's attack. Marie smiles when she realizes that everything is going pretty well, giving her the confidence that they might actually be able to defeat the trial. Marie gets excited and dashes toward the core, while the rest of the team follows her. They all throw powerful attacks at the Guardian Pillar, and after a confident attack, they step back to see how much damage they did. Instead of the yellow sun getting weak, it actually becomes angrier as it tells the team to get ready for their deaths. The yellow sun unleashes an overwhelming beam that forces everyone to try to evade. However, most get hit, and even Marie can feel the intensity of the attacks. Realizing that human ability alone is not enough to handle it, she tells the team members to fall back. Marie then pulls out a knife and she cuts her neck, unleashing a pool of blood from her neck. With the blood sacrifice, Marie is able to activate a strange skill blood rose. Giant spider-like legs emerge from her back with a blood crown on her head, and she looks really scary. The yellow sun intensifies its attack against Marie when it senses the change in form. However, Marie easily dodges all of the attacks, shocking even Yuto. He talks about how rare the skill is, and Ray agrees with him, saying the real value of the skill lies in its offensive power. He explains that each of the thorns surrounding Marie has an attack power, which is equivalent to a normal player's skill. At this point, all of Marie's attacks have only been able to cut down the Guardian Barrier's HP to 62%. Yuto then asks Ray if Marie's skill consumes HP for other buffs, but he mentions that the skill is optimized with HP boosting skills and status configurations, so that it can secure a realistic activation duration. Ray tells Yuto that it is a strategy that is unique to a large-scale guild that can rely on other members during cooldowns. When Daniel hears everything that Ray just said, he admits that Ray is well informed because even among players, most don't have the knowledge that Ray just said. Ray casually replies to Daniel, telling him that information exists in certain places. Since Marie is doing the major work, Kuki believes that they don't need the cannon's fire, but Ray tells him that he is wrong. He explains that the sun's attack actually increases as the barrier's HP decreases. To make it worse, the sun will reach maximum difficulty once the barrier is destroyed. Ray says focusing all firepower in that instant is the logical choice. As the battle continues, Marie is able to get the barrier's HP to 50%, but suddenly the ground in the domain rises up to form an altar. The sun then tells the challengers to offer a sacrifice if they want to proceed. The moment it displays this information, its attacks become more ferocious, and Marie figures out that the trial will kick into difficult mode once the Guardian falls to 50% HP. Even with the intensified attacks, Marie still believes that her mobility will save her. However, this delusion soon wears off when the attacks get more serious, leaving her to wonder what is happening. She turns around to check the pillars, and she is surprised that the pillars are still red. Realizing that things are getting worse, she decides that a retreat might be the right choice, but just as she is about to make her move, another barrier appears in the domain. The system then tells them that one player needs to be on the altar if they want to attack the Guardian barrier. They are informed that the Guardian barrier's HP will go back to 50% if there is no player on the altar. This is when it dawns on Marie that they are not allowed to retreat, but she still believes that she can take on the core. She dashes toward the barrier with the intention of attacking it, but she is met with a series of attacks, and one of her spider legs even gets burned. Even though this came as a surprise, Marie manages to recover, and she goes after the barrier again. Even Ray is impressed when he sees this because getting hit often leads to panic and getting overwhelmed, but Marie overcame this. Daniel then asks Ray if the difficulty has stabilized, and Ray replies that it will remain that way until the Guardian barrier is broken. But even with this, it is still risky. Ray then tells Daniel that he is ready to help Marie for $5 billion, and this shocks Daniel, who thought the insurance fee was $1 billion. Ray then mentions that he just raised the price, and the price will go up even higher later. Daniel takes a moment to think about it, and he tells Ray that he is going to pass on the offer because he trusts Marie. Moments later, the barrier HP remains at 49%, which is just 1% difference from everything Marie has thrown at it so far. Marie then tells the team to push harder, but suddenly the sun unleashes a scary attack on her. She manages to dodge the first wave, but before she knows it, a series of attacks converges on her position. When she sees this, she realizes that she is screwed. Without being able to dodge, she gets hit pretty badly and her right arm gets torn off alongside her left leg. Daniel screams out in horror when he sees this, and even the Vogel forces realize that things have gotten really bad. The squad leader screams at the team to help Marie, but they tell the dude that they have no chance if Marie can't handle the attacks the sun is dishing out. Before they know it, the attacks get even worse, with Marie getting hit really badly, causing her so much pain that she screams out. This is when Daniel finally falls to his knees, begging Ray to save Marie. Ray smiles at Daniel and names his price, and Daniel assures him that he is going to pay whatever it takes. Ray considers the deal done and breaks through the barrier, while the sun awaits his arrival. Ray gets to Marie, and he manages to get her out of the danger zone back to the rest of the team. Daniel screams at the healers to come to Marie's aid, and they all engage their best spells to make sure they save Marie. Ray then tells Daniel that the injuries are not life-threatening, which is thanks to the fact that Marie had a durability-focused build. Daniel thanks Ray because if not for him, Marie would have definitely died, but Ray tells him that there is no need to thank him because he is getting $10 billion for his services. Surprisingly, Daniel uses the Japanese proverb that Ray told Marie the first time they met. Since Daniel has agreed to pay the fee, Ray is able to meet the condition to extract his soul fragment. Suddenly, Marie starts to laugh like a crazy woman, leaving Daniel to believe that his sister has mentally lost her mind. Marie then points to the sun, saying it would have been absurd if it were heard that they lost 1 or 2 transcendents while fighting it. Before they know it, tears start dripping down her face while saying everything has been meaningless. However, Daniel tries to console her, telling her that she fought well, so her struggles were not meaningless. Daniel lets her know that they were able to come this far because of her sacrifice. Marie tells her brother that after fighting the sun with everything she has and wasn't able to scratch, she doesn't think it is something humans should try to handle. However, Ray disagrees with her, saying trials are meant to be cleared. Marie is surprised that Ray thinks they still have a chance, and Ray lets her know that this is why they came. Ray confidently tells Marie that fighting the core is the Gold Farm's job. As Ray and his team prepare to take on the core, Marie tells her brother to carry her to one of the pillars. Daniel asks her what she is planning to do, and she assures her brother that she is not going to do anything dangerous because she just wants to attack the pillar. She lets Daniel know that the pillar will maintain its weakened state if she is able to contribute. Daniel is worried about her condition, but she assures her brother that she can still use her skills as long as she is alive. She mentions that her lost arm and leg can be regenerated later, and Daniel finally agrees to take her to the pillar. Meanwhile, Ray has started his plan, and he tells the team that as long as there is a sacrifice on the altar, the attacks from the outside can get through. However, it is left for the sacrifice to keep dodging, which in this case is him. Rumi tells the team to focus their attacks on the Guardian barrier, while Ray is acting as a decoy. However, she tells them to save skills with cooldowns till after the barrier is destroyed. The team then starts their assault on the barrier, and in no time they get the HP down to 45%. Seeing how Ray and his squad are handling the core, Marie asks Daniel if he thinks they would have been able to clear it if they had the same method as Ray's team. Daniel tells her that they still won't be able to because it might look simple, but it isn't. Daniel tells Marie that whoever is inside the altar would have to be dodging the attacks in real time. Marie admits that she would have run out of stamina if she tried to do the same with Blood Rose. Daniel then asks her if she thinks the difference in level is the key, but Marie says no. She says her mobility is actually higher than Ray's. However, the ability to see and dodge countless attacks consecutively requires a top-notch level of focus and anticipation, which is something only the player can develop for themselves. When Daniel realizes that Ray is basically relying on technique alone instead of skills to actually do what he is doing, he starts wondering if he is the last one of the 10 Transcendents. Marie says she doesn't know, but she is pretty sure that Ray is on par with whoever is number 1 on the list. Moments later, they are able to get the barrier down to 0 HP, which leaves them with just the main pillar, which is the trial core itself. Since the barrier is destroyed, Rumi tells the team to concentrate all of their power on the main mana pillar. They do as told, and the moment their attacks land on the pillar, it lets off a loud explosion that leaves the team questioning if they have taken down the trial. Suddenly, the yellow sun turns red, and instead of the clown appearance, it looks more horrific. To show how dangerous the core has become, the system tells them that all attacks have become instant kill. The team cannot believe their eyes when they see this, but Ray also prepares himself for the deadliest showdown. The core then unleashes a series of attacks at Ray, and surprisingly, he doesn't dodge. It turns out that Ray has activated a skill that delays death for 10 seconds. In addition, the attacks are only going to aim to kill him without wounding his body. The moment the sun's beams hit him, the countdown begins, and Ray knows that he has to take down the trial within that time frame. Ray goes after the sun, and he activates another skill, Soul Disaster. This gives him a dangerous level of cutting power that he unleashes against the sun. With 3 seconds left on the clock, Ray shatters everything holding the core together, thus destroying the sun and the altar. The system then displays the notification that the trial has been defeated. The team erupts in celebration because they finally cleared the trial after so much effort. Ray also descends to join them, admitting that it was a close call. He is surprised that the pillar was considered the boss, and just then, he gets a notification from the system, congratulating him as the first player in the world to have successfully conquered a continental-level trial. The system then grants him the title of the first conqueror, but the moment the system detects that he already possesses this title, the system automatically merges the titles. This then evolves into a new title, which is the Ancestral Conqueror, which increases damage by 100% against bosses and large-scale trials. When Ray sees this, he almost loses his mind because 100% damage is too broken. He knows that things would have been only him if he had such a title during the game era. Since the destruction of the trial area has been averted, the system requires that they enter the name of the party that defeated the trial. Ray and Daniel both input their respective guild names as a joint effort in defeating the boss. Later on, Ray visits the Vogel branch in Sydney, and after all the calculations, he is told that he will be getting 62 billion yen. However, adding the 10 billion for saving Marie pushes it to 72 billion yen. Daniel then tells him to sign the contract if he has no objections. Ray smiles, saying he has no objections, but he is curious to know if Daniel and his guild can pay out 70 billion with immediate effect. Daniel admits that they lost 20 billion, and even though it hurts, he is confident that this is not enough to sink them. In addition, he believes that his sister's life is worth more than the money. Marie reveals that it will take a week for the reattached limbs to stabilize, but she urges her brother that they should work hard once she is back into shape. Marie then tells Ray that she has something to ask him, and Ray reluctantly tells her to go ahead. Marie mentions that the skill Ray used was reliant on individual skills and qualities, which leaves her to wonder if there is another method. Ray replies that there is definitely another method, and the trial itself even told them this. Marie is confused when she hears this, and Ray reminds them that the trial told them to offer a sacrifice if they wish to proceed. Basically, they were supposed to have a player who is willing to die. This player will run into the barrier, while the high-damage players attack it. Ray lets them know that the altar was basically a sacrificial altar. When Daniel hears this, he screams out saying it is too great a cost. Ray then points out the risk, saying it is the whole continent against one life. In fact, Ray believes that they could have tied up death row prisoners and thrown them onto the altar. Basically, as long as there is a sacrifice, player skills don't matter, which shows that the trial was indeed a simple one. Marie then tells Ray that executing such a plan in modern society would be challenging. She believes that the trial is not only testing the player's strength, but the society itself. Daniel agrees with this, But to Ray, he maintains the fact that it was a simple trial. However, he doesn't really care as long as it is profitable to him. Later on, Ray finds himself in the first-class section of a plane. He is blown away by the food and luxurious things because it is his first time. However, Yuto wonders why the plane is not fully booked when Gold Farm is not the only one that could have paid for it. Rumi believes that the plane is not fully booked because it is a flight heading to China, which might be destroyed by the trial, so naturally, people won't want to go. On the other hand, with what she heard, flights to Australia are fully booked. Ray is not surprised, since Australia is the only place with no risk of being destroyed by a trial. Yuto then says they might be the only ones leaving the country. A flight attendant shows up asking Ray what drink he would like to have, and Ray tells him to provide the most expensive drink that they have. Suddenly, the plane gets rocked aggressively, shocking everyone on board. The alarm goes off, and the seatbelt sign shines bright in the plane. Ray asks the attendant if they got hit with turbulence, but the attendant says it feels different from normal turbulence. He decides to go check with the pilots to know what is happening, and he urges them to fasten their seatbelts in the meantime, but Ray couldn't care less. Things get even worse when the plane starts tilting upwards, causing the passengers to panic. And the attendant says the plane might stall if this continues. Ray asks Rumi if she has a skill to help stabilize the plane, and she says no. Rumi throws the question to Yuto, who also says no, since all he can do is just run quickly. Yuto returns the question to Ray, who reveals that his powers can levitate things, but the plane's mass is way above what he can do. Ray then dashes toward the cockpit, since none of his guild members can help with the problem. He asks the pilot what the issue is, and he reveals that the elevator is stuck in the up position. No matter how much they push the control stick, it just won't reset. Ray then figures out that they are talking about the plate at the back of the plane. Ray leaves the cockpit, asking the pilots if all he needs to do is push down the elevator. The pilot realizes that Ray is trying to go outside, and he tells him that he must have gone crazy. He mentions that it is minus 30 degrees outside, and even the air pressure will most likely crush you. Even if he survives this, the airspeed is currently over 1,000 kilometers per hour. Ray ignores them and makes his way to the door. He knows that the high-level players might survive if the plane crashes, but the rookie cash cows are definitely not going to make it, and he is not about to lose any of his money-making humans. He grabs the lever and tries pulling it with all of his strength. The attendant sees this, and he tells Ray that at the current altitude, coupled with the pressure difference, the door won't open. He adds that even if it opens, Ray will just be blown away. Ray ignores the dude and tells Yuto that the moment he steps outside, he should close the door to avoid decompression. Ray then steps out of the plane, but he uses the soul thread to keep himself attached to the plane. The attendant is left in awe because Ray just opened a door under tens of tons of pressure with his bare hands. Once Ray has gotten to the affected area, he realizes that it is truly cold outside, just as the pilot said. Since the oxygen level is low, he figures out that he has to finish quickly. Ray is able to get it done, and the plane starts to stabilize. While those inside are celebrating, Ray contacts Misaki via telepathy to tell her about the plane's situation. Misaki starts to panic, but he tells her to calm down, while revealing that the plane is stabilized, but he is currently holding the tail fin in place. Ray then asks Misaki what he is supposed to do after this, and this is when it dawns on Misaki that Ray went outside without confirming with the captain. Nonetheless, she tells him to hold on while she confirms with the captain. The captain is shocked when he hears Misaki's voice in his head, asking him what to do. After getting the information, she relays it back to Ray. Apparently, he has to destroy the elevator, since it is not responding to commands, which means it's better not to have it at all. Ray is skeptical about this, but Misaki tells him that the captain already gave the go-ahead, so it should be fine. Ray then whips out his dagger, and he cuts off the plane's tail. This causes the plane to rock really hard, and when Ray returns to the plane, he tells the pilots that he has taken care of the elevator just as they asked. The pilots are impressed by Ray's bravery, and they start asking if he is even human. Since Ray has done his part, the captain tells his co-pilot that it is up to them to land the plane. The captain makes his announcement, telling the passengers that the plane will make an emergency landing. He urges them to fasten their seatbelts, and also put on their oxygen masks while they prepare for a water landing. The captain manages to gently land the plane on the water, and fortunately, they all make it. While they are stuck in the lifeboat, Ray is already thinking of catching the most expensive fish in the water. Rumi then tells Ray that Misa has contacted her to let her know that the rescue will arrive in about 2 hours. The captain is thankful that there are no casualties in the accident, but Ray doesn't believe that it is an accident. Ray contacts Misa, asking her if there's been any update on the cause, and she lets him know that the whole situation is still under investigation. However, it appears that planes traveling between Australia and China had devices installed on them to trip off the elevators. Misa tells Ray that if the plane was really targeted, this means that the attack was aimed at Gold Farm. Ray is curious to know how the perpetrators bypassed the airport security, and Misa says it shouldn't be hard for a player. Thankfully, the plane wasn't blown out of the air. Yuto then mentions that doing something of this magnitude can only mean a big organization is behind it. Rumi mentions her worry, saying the Dark Guild might be trying to sabotage the Asian trial. Ray says this is the most obvious assumption, but he believes that short-selling profits from trial failures should already be addressed by national countermeasures. This leaves Ray wondering if another method of profiting has been devised, but Misa says no, according to the last report she had. Misa says that for the attack to be on this level, it shows that whoever is behind it means business, leaving her to wonder if it is revenge from the Japanese Dark Guild that they destroyed. Ray replies that even if it is a grudge, targeting the plane is going overboard because even if the plane exploded mid-air, high-level players would still be alive, and he is sure that the Dark Guild also knows this. This leaves them asking who it might be, and to what purpose is it that they tried to crash the plane. Deep down, Ray believes that it was done to delay the team from getting to China on time. Ray then asks Misaki if they will be able to make it to the Cascade trial on time, and Misaki assures him that she is going to get the team there, no matter what. Meanwhile, in China, reporters are seen reporting live from the trial camp. Apparently, the Black Dragon Guild has assured everyone that the trial can be cleared. With 3 days remaining, the people are already panicking. Even flights and ships departing Asia are fully booked, and there have been situations where a single seat was sold for 20 million yen. At the same time, in some areas, citizen riots have broken out. At a certain airport in Vietnam, a large crowd is seen trying to board the last plane. When one of the stranded dudes realizes that they can't get on the plane, he opts to smash the plane because he is not about to let only the rich escape to America. It turns out that the situations have gone out of hand, and governments all over the world have been overwhelmed. At the same time, Ray and his team are still heading to China, and he is following up on everything that is happening. At the Cascade trial, there are a total of 11 waterfalls that need to be conquered before being able to clear the trial. The Black Dragon is finally starting to make their move, and they are even live broadcasting the whole thing. Before they begin the trial, the dragon takes his time to introduce himself to everyone, and he assures everyone that they are going to be able to clear the trial in 12 hours. He urges them to stay on the live stream while they try to clear the dungeon. Moments later, monsters start washing downstream, and with all the flex in the world, the Dragon King tells his warriors to take out the monsters. The warriors engage their aura blades and other fancy moves to easily take down the monsters, since it is the first level. With the Black Dragon wiping out the monsters, the regular players who came as a backup are all left in awe. The players are left wondering why they are there when it appears that the Black Dragon Guild can easily handle everything. One of them then mentions that he heard that there is a section where numbers are needed. Without wasting time, they move past the first waterfall, and the path to the next waterfall is opened for them. They are informed that the path will close in 10 minutes, and the next trial will begin simultaneously. Just then, chains appear for the players to use in getting to the next level. With the Dragon King leading the way, every other player follows his lead. They continue with this momentum until they get to Waterfall 9. The Dragon King addresses the viewers again, telling them that the trial's completion is within sight since they have already made it to the 9th waterfall. Suddenly, the live stream gets cut off, shocking the viewers. Rumi asks Ray if it is impossible to communicate in the Cascade trial, and Ray says signals can normally get through. He believes that what just happened is a signal interference because it was suddenly cut off. Yuto gets curious when he hears this, as he demands to know who would do such a thing and the why behind it. Ray replies that he can only answer the why. He believes that the feed got cut off to prevent whatever is about to happen inside from getting exposed. Back in the trial space, it turns out that it was the Dragon King who asked his men to disconnect the broadcast, and since phones are out of range, they are in the clear. The normal players are confused when they hear this, and they start getting worried that something is awfully wrong. The Dragon King then turns to them to tell them that they are going to need their help to weaken the trial system. Eager to help, the players ask the Dragon King what they are supposed to do. An ominous aura immediately emanates from the dude's body as he tells the players that it is their job to die at the current junction. Suddenly, monsters appear above them to attack them. The Dragon King explains that the Cascade trial difficulty reduces with the more deaths it records. This is why he brought them, so he can sacrifice them and get the difficulty to come down. The Dragon King watches as the helpless players are torn apart by monsters, while telling them that their worthless lives now have a meaning. Some of the players turn around and start running for it, but the Dragon King is not worried because he believes that they don't have what it takes to survive and return to the surface. By sacrificing a bunch of people, the challenge truly got easier, and the Black Dragon continued moving forward. However, the Dragon King tells his people to be careful because the difficulty will rise exponentially by the time they get to Waterfall 11. In no time, they clear out Waterfall 10 and they head to the dreaded Waterfall 11. As usual, the team begins strongly as they cut down monsters like they are tissue. One of them mentions that they might actually be able to save their cooldown skills for the final stage. Suddenly, a large fish monster appears behind one of the team members. Just as he is about to get eaten, another team member saves him, hitting the fish monster with his nunchucks. However, he is surprised that even though he used a powerful skill, the fish monster is still moving. Suddenly, the fish monster multiplied into tiny other fish. Panic erupts when the team sees this. But the Dragon King urges them to calm down, telling them that they have nothing to fear as long as the aura protecting them stays intact. He suggests that they focus on the enemies, but his colleagues let him know that they keep increasing no matter what it is that they do. Before they know it, their aura starts to fade, and the monsters are able to get to them. The monsters bite into their skins, causing them pain as they tear them apart. The Dragon King finally starts to worry, and he wonders why the monsters are multiplying even though they made sacrifices. He wonders if some of the sacrifices actually survived the onslaught. Realizing that things have gotten tougher, the Dragon King lifts into the air and cooks up a powerful aura spell. He tells his colleagues to abandon single attacks and focus on area attacks instead. The Dragon King unleashes his attack spell, taking out a bunch of monsters as the wave passes through the cave. The others also follow his lead, but the more they take out monsters, the more the monsters increase in number. The dragon panics and tells his team to increase the intensity of the area attacks, but they let him know that the skills are on cooldown. It turns out that they have exhausted all of their area attacks, which makes things really bad. Just then, a notification comes in, telling them at Waterfall 11, monsters continue to spawn until the target number is reached. The team realizes that they are done for when the system tells them that the number of enemies that they have to defeat is 300,000. To put it into perspective, they have only been able to take down 2% of that, which is 6,000 plus monsters. The Dragon King freaks out when he sees this, and he tells his team to retreat because there is no way in hell that they are taking out the number of monsters the system is demanding. However, the monsters are not about to let them go scot-free as they chase the team down, taking down a few of them. Not long after this, the news broke everywhere that the Black Dragon had failed to clear the trial, and the leader of the Black Dragon team had disappeared. It turns out that the International Players Federation is taking the incident seriously because they are highly pissed. When Rumi hears this, she isn't surprised because she already knew that the Black Dragon doesn't have what it takes to clear the trial. Meanwhile, the Dragon King is seen running through alleys in Vietnam, trying to escape because he believes that the continent is doomed already. Out of nowhere, an attack accompanied by a golden light hits the Dragon King in the head, immediately sending him to the afterlife. The attacker turns out to be a dude clad in gold armor who looks really dangerous and cool at the same time. The aura farming dude then contacts a higher authority to tell them that he has taken care of the Dragon King who is trying to escape. The higher authority, who is a white-haired dude, is surprised that the Dragon King thought he could actually escape after putting billions of lives in danger. The man then turns to his assistant, asking him about the Japanese guild. The attendant tells him that they should get to the trial site in a day. However, it is reported that some members of Genesis Wings are missing, but their core members are still available. Just then, the assistant lets him know that Gold Farm is demanding additional compensation, and the dude is surprised that Ray is talking about money at such a critical moment. It turns out that the UN is offering to give Gold Farm $300 million in compensation, but Ray says it is not enough. Even though the dude is stubborn and doesn't want to give in to demands, he knows that there are just 3 days left, and he doesn't want to take the chances. The dude then tells his assistant to tell the Gold Farm that they are going to add the $200 million seized from Black Dragon, which means Gold Farm will be getting $500 million in compensation. Shortly afterward, Ray and the Gold Farm members arrive at the trial site. Tsukino welcomes Ray, telling him how surprised she was when she heard that his plane went down. However, she wasn't worried because she knew that there was no way an elite squad like the Gold Farm would die from something like this. Ray tells Tsukino that it was even a blessing because this got him an additional $200 million in compensation. So he doesn't even mind thanking whoever tampered with the plane. Ray then asks Tsukino about the trial, which is scheduled for the next day, but surprisingly, Tsukino wants them to move the trial up. Apparently, there are survivors abandoned by the Black Dragon and she wants them to rescue these people. Ray agrees to this, but tells Tsukino that he has just one condition, and this is leaving those they are about to rescue to work for Gold Farm. Moments later, they begin the trial subjugation. As they cut through the first waterfall, Ray asks Tsukino if she is sure about subjugating the trial with their current number, because doing this will be extremely tight. He adds that whatever happens is on Tsukino, and she agrees to this. Tsukino then asks Ray about the missing members of the Genesis Wings, and Ray reveals that, according to Misa's report, they were afraid for their lives, which is why they ran to America. Ray is disappointed that a healer is one of those who ran, And to make it worse, the blood sorcerer that they need in order to beat the 11th waterfall has also run away. Ray managed to bring a blood sorcerer, Eiji, from his side, but he mentions that at least 2 are required for the trial. Since they are running short on personnel, he tells Tsukino that clearing the trial will be difficult. Tsukino then reveals that she was able to secure a blood sorcerer. Just then, a young girl, Fumika, shows up, introducing herself to Ray. Fumika confesses that her mother was against coming, but she snuck out to help. She mentions that Tsukino actually insisted, so she didn't have a choice. Tsukino apologizes for forcing her into such a dangerous mission because she believes that it was her lack of leadership that made some of the members run away. However, Ray urges her not to blame herself because those who run away are the ones at fault. Fumika agrees with Ray, suggesting that they do their best with the remaining members. Ray then asks Tsukino again if they should wait for a day, because according to calculations, if half of the current survivors die, the trial will weaken significantly. Ray believes that this will make things a bit better. Tsukino admits that she has thought about this, but she believes if they do this, the guild will no longer maintain its status. Tsukino tells Ray that she doesn't mind if there are risks involved as long as she gets to save the survivors. Tsukino apologizes to Ray for dragging him into such a dangerous situation because of her selfishness, but Ray lets her know that he doesn't mind. He says helping players is pretty profitable and, if done well, he might even get a new set of cash cows. While they are busy talking, the rest of the team is able to clear out the monsters, thus opening the path to the next waterfall. Soon afterward, they arrive at the 10th waterfall, and Ray says this is where the communication should start. However, it is surprising that there are no survivors in sight. Ray is the first to figure out where the survivors might be. Ray spots a cave entrance, and he leads the team into the cave, which turns out to be a safe zone. Apparently, when staying there, a player will sacrifice 5% of their HP every hour, and recovery skills cannot be used inside the refuge area. Tsukino is shocked when she hears this because this means that they can only stay in the area for 20 hours. Suddenly, the survivors appear above them, demanding to know who Ray and the others are. The survivors leap down with the intention of fighting because they believe that Ray and his squad are part of the Black Dragon Guild that betrayed them. However, one of the survivors is able to stop his enraged red-haired friend before he attacks Ray. He tells his friend to look at the clothes Ray and his friends are wearing, which means that they are not from the Black Dragon Guild. The dude finally calms down when he realizes that his friend is telling the truth, ultimately diffusing the situation. The dude asks Ray if they are the rescue team, and Ray replies with a smile on his face, assuring the dude that they are going to help them. However, this will only happen if they sign the contract to join his cash cow squad. The redhead and the yellowhead are shocked when they hear this because they don't want to believe that they are hearing right. Ray tells them that he is going to teach them how to make money, but in return, they are going to give him half of their earnings as players. Ray points to his guild members saying they are a part of his cash cow squad. He tells the survivors that Kuki and the rest will be their seniors. Kuki cannot believe that Ray is still calling them cash cows, even though they now have a registered guild name. Just as expected, the survivors do not take this lightly as they talk about how strong players exploit low-level players like them. Suddenly, the redhead notices something strange about Kuki, and he asks Ray if he is truly part of the cash cow squad. Ray confirms this, saying Kuki is different from the others because he gives him 90% of his earnings instead of the regular 50%. Ray then asks the redhead why he is asking about Kuki. The dude then mentions that the watch Kuki is wearing is insanely expensive, which leads him to ask if the cash cow squad makes so much money. Ray then turns to Kuki, asking him if the watch is truly expensive, but Kuki says no. He mentions that he bought the watch for about 2 million yen, which is not a big deal. The redhead and the yellowhead almost suffer a brain freeze when they hear this. They can't believe that Kuki is still able to afford something like this, even though he is giving 90% of his earnings to Ray. Ray then reveals that Kuki was able to earn over 20 million yen just in the past month, and after he gave his 90%, he was left with over 2 million. Tsukino is surprised that Ray remembers even the smallest details, and Rumi says Ray has a sharp memory only when it's about money. The colored head dudes then ask Kuki how much he was earning before he joined the cash cow squad. Kuki mentions that he was earning about 130,000 yen a month, but thanks to Ray's information, he has started earning a lot. He even shows the proof of this by showing off the multiple pieces of jewelry he is wearing on his body. The moment the survivors see this, they all go crazy, demanding to join the cash cows because they are finally ready to sign. When Tsukino sees just how ecstatic the players are, she concludes that Ray is running a pyramid scheme, and Rumi affirms this. After they are done signing the contract, Ray asks the survivors how much HP they have left, and they reveal that they have less than 20%. When Ray hears this, he realizes that they have 4 hours until they die. However, he is not about to allow this to happen because he plans to clear the dungeon before then. Upon arriving at the 11th floor, Rei asks the players if they are all ready for the battle to come. With a thunderous voice, they all reply that they are ready. As the trial begins, monsters troop in from all directions, charging into the squad. They initially opt to fight the enemies one by one, but Rei soon figures out that this is not going to work out. Rei calls on Eiji, telling him that it is his time to shine. Eiji then runs to the main stage, telling Rei to leave the buying of time to him. Eiji leaps into the air and constructs a big magic circle, which he uses to unleash a powerful inferno. The fire is so much that even Tsukino is impressed. She admits that maintaining such a wide range of firepower is even beyond her, and this is where the blood sorcerers shine. Rei then mentions that Eiji is fueling the flames at the cost of his own life force, which is why it is a profession where one stakes their lives. Rumi then tells the players to save skills that require cooldowns for the final waterfall trial. They all acknowledge this, and Rei also activates a special skill so he can finally join the fight. Moments later, Eiji has been able to take down over 20,000 monsters, which is 6% of the required number. However, the monsters keep increasing rapidly, and even the divided sharks are burned as soon as they multiply. However, they believe that if they maintain the attack formation, they are going to get it done. The problem now lies with the fact that Eiji's HP is below 30% already. Rei is surprised, asking if the recovery skills are not working. Eiji assures him that the recovery is working, but his skill is insanely burning through whatever the healers are doing to help him. Before they know it, Eiji's HP has fallen to 10%, which is the danger zone. Just then, Fumika comes forward, telling Eiji that she is going to take over from him. Fumika raises her staff and unleashes the Blood Inferno skill, burning through the monsters, while Eiji recovers. At this point, they have been able to hit 22% completion rate. Kuki and the other cash cows are impressed because the monsters are basically turning into ash the moment they spawn. Moments later, Fumika's HP also falls below 30%, and Rumi asks Rei if he is ready. Rei says yes, telling them that he just finished cooking up the spell he wanted. A giant blue furnace appears overhead, which is a result of the Soul Furnace skill. Rei then takes over from Fumika, releasing an overwhelming amount of blue flames to consume the monsters. The moment Rei takes over, they are able to hit 44% completion rate. Fumika and Eiji are left stunned because Rei's skill is pretty scary. Rei then urges them to stop attacking the monsters so that they can conserve their skills and stamina. Tsukino is forced to ask him if he can maintain the skill for a long time, and he says yes. Rei explains that the skill itself doesn't have much power, but if he boosts it with his stats, it is enough to wipe out the small fries. However, the energy efficiency is terrible, and Rei has to be consuming soul fragments to keep it running. Whenever the skill is about to run out, Rei will tap into one of his soul reserves and burn through them to keep the skill up and running. After burning through a bunch of soul fragments, he realizes that he can only still maintain the skill for 4 minutes. This gets him worried because this won't be enough still. Since he is not ready to consume high-ranked soul fragments, he asks about Eiji and Fumika's condition. Rei is informed that Eiji's HP is back at 80%, and he is eager to use the Blood Inferno again. Even Fumika believes that she is ready to go. Rei then notices that the healers are getting drained already, and this is because they lost some members from Genesis Wings. Since Rei would like to preserve the healers for the final trial, he tells Eiji and Fumika not to worry. Rei then decides to use the Type E soul fragments that he didn't want to use before. This automatically increases the intensity of the fire, shocking Eiji and the entire squad. Tsukino cannot believe that even the bones are already floating, showcasing just how intense the flame is. Just as Rei burned through his last soul fragment, they reach the desired number of monsters that they were supposed to kill. Rei is informed that the Soul Flame Furnace has burned and will be reusable in 48 hours. Rei is glad that they were able to conquer the 11th floor. The system notifies them that they now have the right to participate in the final waterfall trial. Upon arriving at the last section of the trial, they find a deep waterfall leading into the ground, which is the 12th waterfall. Before diving in, they make plans on how to engage in the last trial. Apparently, Gold Farm members and some selected members of Genesis Wings, plus healers, will be the ones to jump into the waterfall. Rei says the remaining members are the subunit, and they are going to stay on top of the cliff. Part of this subunit is Fumika and a dude named Hiroshi. Hiroshi explains to his team that the 2 waterfalls they are staring at will start releasing monsters the moment the trial begins. The job of the subunit is to defeat the monsters to prevent them from getting to the main unit. Tsukino then urges the subunit not to overexert themselves because any monster that flows down will still be dealt with by the main unit. Once they are done making their plans, Yuto asks Rei if they are seriously going to jump into the waterfall, and Rei says yes. Yuto is still complaining about how he is not mentally prepared when Rei jumps into the waterfall. The rest of the main unit immediately follows through, and as they emerge from the water, they find themselves in a heavenly area. They all agree that the section is beautiful, but while they are busy admiring the glory of the cave, Rumi climbs a boulder to address the squad. Rumi reveals that she is taking charge, and Misaki is shocked to hear this. She is forced to ask Rei if Rumi is truly taking charge. Rei casually replies that Rumi is the master of the guild. In addition, Rei says managing group battles is best suited for a healer who continuously monitors the members' HP. Once Rumi is done arranging everyone into their different sections, she tells them to get the subjugation of the final trial underway. For the final trial, they are required to withstand the monster's attacks for 600 seconds, which is 10 minutes. The system tells them that once the time is up and there is at least one survivor, the trial will be considered complete. The team soon realizes why they are given just 10 minutes to survive, and this is because the number of monsters that they are going against is immeasurable. Rumi calls out instructions for Rei, telling him to use the Soul Thread and Incineration formation in Area F. Rei commends Rumi for the good command, and he swings into action. He goes after the monsters and does just as Rumi told him to. Rumi then tells Tsukino to support Area 8. The entire team swings into action, burning through the monsters, while the timer goes down. Rumi tells the team to be careful because monsters that escaped the subunit will fall on them. Yuto soon notices that they are not getting too much interference from above, and, unknown to them, the subunit is having it really tough up there. When Rei notices that Rumi is concerned about those above, he tells her not to worry about them and to concentrate on her position. Rumi follows Rei's instruction and she continues dishing out orders. She tells all the players to gather in areas B and C. Rumi tells them that they are going to reduce the hit area and suppress the impact of falling debris. Not long after this, one of the healers tells Rumi that she has run out of mana. Rumi is not surprised by this because they have put everything into consideration, so she tells her to fall back. Eiji continues dealing damage, and just when he is about to use the Blood Inferno, Rumi stops him, telling him that the healers won't be able to help him if he passes out. Eiji acknowledges this and follows through with regular attacks. Before they know it, they have gone past the 9-minute mark, and they only have 1 minute left. With 1 minute left, Rumi tells the combatants to get more proactive while the healers fall back. She tells them that she is going to take over the healing session with her continuous healing. Tsukino is surprised that Rumi is ordering the healers to stop, and Rumi screams at Tsukino, reminding her that she is the one in charge. Rumi then continues dishing out instructions for the last push. She tells those with higher HP to step forward so that they can become a wall, and they happily follow her orders. The last 5 seconds feel like hell for the squad, but in the end, they are able to push through with Rei landing the final blow. The system then notifies them that time is up. They are also able to fulfill the conditions of at least one survivor, since there are 57 survivors. The system then tells them that the waterfall trial is over and Asia's destruction has been avoided. Yuto smiles when he sees this because the continent will still remain in one piece. The system demands that they enter the number of the party that cleared the trial, while also telling them that all the players within the trial will be teleported to the entry after 10 minutes. As expected, Tsukino and Rumi enter their respective guild names as the joint party that cleared the trial. Rumi smiles because no one died, since the main team consists of 57 people. Tsukino then mentions that the clearance was close. Rei agrees with her, saying the number of monsters falling from above was fewer than what was expected. Rei believes that the subunit must have fought recklessly for them to have been able to reduce the number of monsters, leaving them to wonder if the ones above are okay. Tsukino immediately whips out her phone to contact them, and when Rei realizes that things might actually be dire, he tells them to jump into the waterfall. He adds that those who can't move on their own should have others throw them into the water. Tsukino is questioning Rei's judgment, and Rumi quickly cuts in, reminding her that there are no healers above, so the only place they can get treated is down there. Rumi adds that this is why they told the healers to save their magic power. Rei tells Tsukino to hurry because if she waits for automatic withdrawal, those who can be saved will be too late. Tsukino then does as told, telling the subunit to jump into the waterfall. The moment they arrive on the scene, the recovery team gets to work on them. The combatants help them settle in, while the healers do their thing. Rumi tells the healers to limit the recovery skills to the minimum needed to keep them alive so as to save their magic power. Moments later, the healers send their report, saying there is no one on the verge of death again. Tsukino is about to start celebrating that they managed to pull this off without recording any deaths when Fumika is brought in. She's missing an arm, and her left torso is shattered too. Tsukino freaks out, and Rumi tells the healers to use everything they have on Fumika. As instructed, the healers come together to grant Fumika their best. Fumika starts coughing up blood at some point, without any sign that she's going to pull through. The healers tell Tsukino that the injuries are too severe, which is why their high-level recovery skills are not working. He mentions that what they need is a skill at the level of limb regeneration, but this is a problem because this skill takes time to take effect, and there is no way she is lasting that long. The healers then decide to use their magic to restore Fumika's HP in the meantime. Fumika finally speaks up, thanking the team and telling them that everything feels easier. Tsukino berates Fumika, reminding her that she already warned her about overexerting herself. Fumika replies that this was her plan, but the monsters started heading toward the main unit, and she couldn't overlook it. This is the last thing Fumika says as she gives up the ghost, leaving Tsukino totally stunned and dumbfounded. The dudes from Genesis start screaming at Rumi, asking her why she didn't say anything. She calmly replies that it wouldn't have changed anything because the ones above were the ones who decided to fight recklessly. Apparently, she knew the situation, but she figured out that focusing on the fight and saving as many recovery skills as possible would help the situation. Just when they are about to continue dragging her, Tsukino cuts in, telling them to stop. Tsukino mentions that she already knew from the start that it would be impossible to clear the trial without casualties. Rei also joins in, saying Rumi's command was flawless, and the only reason they had casualties was due to a lack of combat power. It turns out that one person in the main unit died while 3 in the subunit died. Rei says if they hadn't helped the survivors, they might have reduced the number by at least 1. He then asks Tsukino if she regrets her decision, but she says no. She mentions that they might have suffered 4 casualties, but they were able to save 36 people in return. Rei then cuts in, telling Tsukino that it's not just 36 because the ones they saved will go on to save many more people in the future as members of his money-making army. Tsukino is surprised to hear Rei say this, and she teases him, asking if he has awakened to helping others. Just as expected, Rei casually replies that he is happy to help because it is profitable. Soon afterward, the dead are placed in coffins, ready for burial. Hiroshi urges Tsukino not to blame herself too much because trials in America and Europe reported casualties in the hundreds. Hiroshi believes that being able to clear the trial with just 4 casualties is something to be proud of. When Tsukino finally speaks up, she says they are able to reduce the number of casualties thanks to Gold Farm. Iori then jumps in, saying Rumi's orders were amazing because she oversaw everything correctly. Tsukino believes that Rumi is the best healer in the country. However, she is confident that Rei was the one who devised the strategy. She mentions that during the battle, Rumi seemed to issue commands even for areas she couldn't have possibly seen herself. Tsukino is pretty sure that Rei had predicted all the possible scenarios beforehand, organized them, and then communicated them to Rumi. This is basically why Rumi only needed to confirm parts of the battle situation to determine the necessary commands. However, Tsukino is surprised because Rumi has a talent for memorizing many scenarios and then issuing commands. Iori tells Tsukino that predicting everything before the battle begins is practically impossible. Tsukino agrees with her but says with Rei, anything is possible. Later on, Rei steps out of the shower and he asks Misa about the African trial. Misa mentions that around 300 people, including top players, stayed behind to attempt it, but they were all wiped out. Basically, there's no force on the African continent that is capable of challenging the continent-class trial. In addition, the reinforcements sent by various countries faced plane crashes, shipwrecks, and other issues too, which made it impossible for them to arrive in time. The mention of plane crashes catches Rei's attention again, but he refuses to say anything just yet. Misa lets Rei know that it has been concluded that the African continent is going to fall. This leaves Misa asking if this is another sabotage by the Dark Guild. Rei replies that it is hard to say, but he knows that the Dark Guild shouldn't have the power to simultaneously crash planes globally, which means that an organization even larger than the Dark Guild is involved in everything. However, Rei is not in a hurry because he knows that they are going to find out soon enough. Soon afterward, Tsukino and her squad returned to Japan, and they received a warm welcome from the people. People scream out Tsukino's name, but Tsukino cannot even open her mouth to return the greeting. Rei, on the other hand, could see that Tsukino is becoming more popular. The more popular she is, the easier it is to increase the rewards from trials, which is helpful. However, Rei can see that Tsukino is not even happy with the whole thing. Iori angrily talks about how the people are celebrating, even though the team lost 4 members. Even Hiroshi agrees with her, but surprisingly, Tsukino cuts in, telling them not to blame them because, for the citizens, they are celebrating the team for saving Japan. They basically protected Japan at the cost of irreplaceable sacrifices. Later on at the Gold Farm office, Rei and his squad watch a live broadcast of a dude on the African continent who has built an underground shelter 40 meters deep at a cost of 1 billion yen. With just 1 minute left, the dude is confident that he is safe underground. Lots of people drop messages on the stream, asking him if he thinks it is safe and how he plans to collect resources alone. He then reveals that everything he needs is inside the bunker, starting from water, food, satellite communication, emergency power supply, and all the basic needs to stay alive. The dude boasts about how safe the bunker is, which is why he has nothing to fear. Just then, the countdown hits 0, and a massive wave of energy hits the continent, shredding everything apart. Root-like monsters run rampant, tearing poor citizens apart while the dude sips a glass of wine for them. The whole continent is plunged into darkness, and suddenly, the roots start making their way down into the ground. Suddenly, the dude feels a crack in the wall, and before he knows it, everything completely falls apart. The dude screams in shock, wondering how the roots got to him, but it was already too late, as everybody on the stream watches him get decimated. He screams for help, but there is no Superman or Plant Man to get him out of there, and in the end, his camera outlasted him. Back in the gold farm building, Rumi expresses her shock that a nuclear shelter couldn't save the dude. Ray tells the lady that this was expected because a continent-class trial is not something to be joked with. In addition, he tells them that something huge is coming very soon. Just then, everyone gets the notification that all continent-class trials have been completed. The continents that survived are congratulated, and they are informed that the tutorial has ended. Since the tutorial is done, the first update is automatically implemented, and this puts fear on the faces of everyone watching this. They start asking Ray several questions because they are now confused, and Ray lets them know that he can predict what is about to happen. Ray mentions that new rare rewards will be added to the trials, but the difficulty of the trials will increase. In addition, the number of trials occurring will skyrocket. Just then, trials started popping up everywhere, and the time limit for them is 10 days. Rumi and the team are shocked when they see 2 trials appear in the same location. But before they know it, they realize that larger trials have appeared too. These are trials targeting the cities themselves, and they have 15 days on their timer. Tokyo's 20 wards, which are the Trial of the Harbor, has a 15-day deadline to be cleared, while Chiyoda Ward, Minato Ward, Shinjuku Ward, and Shibuya Ward, which is the Trial of the Glass, have 16 days as a deadline. This soon morphs into an even larger trial as it encompasses all of the wards in the country, thus transforming into one big nationwide trial in the end. The target area for this is the entirety of Japan, and the deadline for this is just 60 days, with the name called Trial of the Tsunami. Yuto screams in fear when he realizes that everything that has been happening to them so far was truly a tutorial, and they are just about to enter the main screw-up. While the Gold Farm members are crashing out in the office, the members of the public are also losing their minds. Yuto is forced to ask if Japan is the only place for trials. Misa then reveals that the nationwide trial database in Japan has already reported over 10,000 trial occurrences. The team panics when they hear this because they don't believe that the country can accommodate such a large number of trials. Misa then says the current capacity to clear regional trials in Japan is said to be roughly 2 to 100 cases per day. Misa believes that they should be able to clear the trials in a week if no new ones show up. However, Ray lets her know that she is wrong because she is making her calculations based on the situation before the update. Ray reminds her that the system notified them that the difficulty of the trials would increase. Yuto expresses his concern over this because they don't even know just how difficult it is going to be since they have no prior information. Ray then lets him know that this type of trial appeared in the game too. This is when it dawns on Yuto that they are about to enter the harder version that was played offline. Yuto believes that if something like that appears 10,000 times, they definitely have no way to deal with it. Ray tells the team that clearing everything would be nearly impossible, but he asks Misa if the rewards for the trials have been decided. Misa says no because even the government is currently overwhelmed, which means proper evaluation is going to take some time. Apparently, there is a request for Gold Farm to focus on clearing trials in major urban areas, and Ray tells Misa to give him an estimate of how much she thinks the rewards are going to be. Misa explains that the previous regional trial reward was around 300,000 to 1 million yen, and since the difficulty has increased this time around, she believes that it might be around 3 million yen. When Ray hears this, he concludes that 3 million is still manageable. Ray then tells Misa to negotiate with the government so that it doesn't drop past the 3 million mark. But as usual, an increase would be highly appreciated. Misa acknowledges, but demands to know why Ray is concerned about 3 million in this time of crisis. Ray simply replies that 3 million is a huge sum of money, which is why. Ray also tells the team that he and Yuto will clear the first trial together so that they can know the difficulty. Ray tells Rumi to gather the members and wait at the office so that they can start clearing out trials the moment he and Yuto determine the difficulty. Moments later, Ray and Yuto arrive at one of the trial sites. It turns out that a local guild has already entered the trial site, and while the people are worried, one dude in glasses urges them not to worry because there is no way the government will watch Tokyo perish. He is confident that if the local guild fails, a larger guild will be called upon to clear it. Just then, those on site spot Ray and Yuto walking to the entrance of the trial. Thanks to the fact that the two were at the airport during the welcome ceremony, those on site recognize them. Since they are confident that Yuto and Rei are skilled players, the people are relieved that the trial will be handled pretty easily. Just as the two are about to go further in, they are stopped by a dude who tells them that the trial is currently being cleared by his guild, the Claws of Glory. The dude holds up a sword to them, telling them that the government has already announced that trial clearing is on a first-come, first-served basis. Rei contacts Misaki to confirm this, and she lets him know that the government is trying to test the waters with lower rewards first, since they have not come to an agreement on what the reward price should be. Rei then asks Misa if she knows about the Claws of Glory Guild, because he has never heard of them before. Misa reveals that they are a mid-sized guild based in Nerima Ward. Apparently their main players include 2 B-class players, and they also have about 40 other C to D-class members. The dude is surprised when he hears that Rei doesn't know his guild, since they are supposedly popular in the area. He then demands to know who Rei and Yuto are, and Rei replies that they are from Gold Farm. The moment Rei says this, the dude actually recognizes them as the ones who cleared the continent-level trial. Since he already knows who they are, Rei tells him to leave the trial to them instead, because his team doesn't have the strength to challenge such a trial. The dude gets mad about this, saying Rei is just trying to steal the rewards, which is why he is saying such BS. He adds that there is a rumor that Gold Farm is a bunch of money-hungry vultures, and Rei demands to know who is spreading such lies. Yuto, on the other hand, cannot even deny these allegations because they are basically true. Just then, the dude gets a call from his team leader. He excitedly picks up the call, asking how the trial is going. But what he hears is his team leader getting shredded. The team leader screams out on the phone that the dude is forced to take the phone off his ear. When Yuto and Rei hear this, they immediately figure out what is happening. Rei says the trial's difficulty is now equivalent to pre-update national-level trials. The dude crashes to his knees in frustration, and Rei asks him how much time has passed since the trial started. He replies that it is about 30 minutes, and he starts begging Rei and Yuto to save his guild members. The dude offers to pay everything he has for this, but Rei rejects the money, telling him that there are no chances of survivors being there. However, Rei lets him know that he can guarantee his life for 3 million won. However, he can't guarantee that there are any survivors inside the dungeon, with a horrific expression on the dude's face. Rei and Yuto then begin their descent into the deeper section of the dungeon, cutting down monsters like tissue as they move further. Their new acquaintance is shocked when he sees the way the two are decimating monsters as if they were butter. Even trying to catch up to them as they move is a big problem, even though they are in combat. Moments later, they arrive at the boss's room, and Yuto confirms that it is a small-scale regional trial. Just then, the giant door opens and the leader of the guild is seen stepping outside. Our new guy rushes over when he sees his guildmaster, but suddenly, the guildmaster crashes to the ground. The dude watches in horror as he realizes that his guildmaster is already dead with blood trails everywhere. The trio looks up to see an even more horrific view in the boss room. All members of the guild have been wiped out, and what remains in the boss room are their mutilated bodies. Rei assesses the situation and realizes that they had better equipment than before, but even with this, it was as if the mission was too much for a medium-sized guild to handle. Suddenly, they are attacked from above, and the trio moves in different directions to avoid death. The attacker finally reveals itself, and it is none other than the annoying vermilion spider. Yuto is shocked to see that a national-level trial monster appeared in what was considered to be a low-level dungeon. Yuto is still asking Rei what they are supposed to do when Rei makes his move. Rei dashes toward the spider with some crazy moves, and he remembers that the last time he fought the spider, he wasn't able to defeat it using regular skills. However, this time is different, and Rei awakens his dagger before activating the soul/skill. With this, Rei delivers a single and powerful strike that cuts the spider in half, ultimately defeating it. Thanks to his current stats, the spider is no longer a threat to Rei. The notification comes in, congratulating them for completing the trial. They are informed that the destruction of the target area has also been avoided. When Rei sees this, he figures out that Gold Farm will be able to handle the trials, since the difficulty is still under the normal level. However, Yuto is worried that this means that the number of teams that can clear trials will be limited. Suddenly, Rei calls their attention to something strange, and this is the fact that the trial's disappearance hasn't been announced. Just then, the notification panel displays a hidden condition, telling them that the total annihilation of a party of 30 or more within 30 minutes after the trial begins has been met. Because of this, an extra trial has been triggered. Rei is shocked when he sees this, and he asks the new guy about how many of his guild members challenged the trial. He revealed that every member of the guild decided to take the trial, which means he was the only one left behind to keep watch. Rei then realizes that they exceed 30 people. The system lets them know that they must select challengers for the extra trial. Those who are not selected will be transferred outside the trial area. The system then gives them the option to choose, saying that at least one person must stay behind. Yuto then figures out that the extra trial is one that they can't survive with their current level. Rei admits that it is going to be tough in terms of combat power. He adds that at least one person needs to be picked for the extra trial. What is good about it is the fact that it doesn't have a downside. Suddenly, the new dude realizes that Yuto and Rei are staring at him. He starts screaming in fear, telling them not to use him as a sacrificial lamb. Rei ignores him and makes the selection. The dude holds his head in fear, but when he sees Rei's choice, he realizes that Rei picked only himself. Since Rei will be the only one staying, the new guy and Yuto will be transferred outside. The dude is shocked, and Rei reminds him that he already told him that he is going to guarantee his life for money, and since it is money, he never breaks his promises. As the system prepares to transfer Rei to the new trial area, Rei tells Yuto to inform the cash cows not to enter the dungeon, no matter what. Yuto freaks out when he hears this, and he tries to plead with Rei to let him join him, but he and the other dude are immediately transferred outside, since they are non-challengers. Yuto then mentions the nostalgic feeling he is getting around everything, which is like when Rei left him and Hisashi behind in Pro-On. Yuto lets off a cool smile because he thought Rei had sold his soul for money, but it appears that the old Rei he knows still hasn't changed. Moments later, Rei finds himself in the trial area, which is called Tribute to the Reckless. The recommended level for the extra trial is 90, and the time limit is 60 minutes, which means he has to defeat the boss, Diamond Mantis, in the given time. The system lets him know that he is going to die if he fails the trial, which is pretty obvious to say the least. With Rei's current level, which is 64, Rei realizes that the trial is at least 20 levels above him. Seeing this, he concludes that he is about to throw himself into a very dangerous mission. However, he is not worried because this is the only way one can obtain items that are not meant for their level. He then activates the Soul Eye so he can use it to analyze the extra trial. Rei is able to get important information that a complete soul can be extracted. Apparently, he has an option to obtain a rock soul, which is type B. Rei is glad that the option to get this appeared at the right time. To obtain the soul, he has to meet certain conditions, which are to defeat a bunch of monsters. The list of monsters he is supposed to defeat is Ruby Centipede, Sapphire Longhorn Beetle, Emerald Dragonfly, Onyx Stag Beetle, Quartz Beetle, Opal Wasp, and Beryl Scorpion. He is required to kill all of these monsters to obtain the item. Without wasting time, Rei kicks into action and he decides to go all out from the start. He selects the Warrior's Soul Fragment as a power-up. Rei uses this to activate the Soul Flame Furnace, and he starts burning through the area with his blue flame. In no time, he has wiped out 4 of the species he is required to kill. By killing 4 in quick succession, the door to the deeper levels of the dungeon opens. While taking out the monsters, Rei knows that he has to be extremely careful because if the boss spots him with his current equipment, he is done for. All he can hope for is that the boss doesn't notice him while he achieves his side mission to obtain the soul fragment. To make sure that he is on the safe side, Rei delivers powerful strikes to the enemies. Shortly afterward, he realizes that there is only one monster left, and this is the Quartz Beetle. Just as he is about to go for the last monster on the list, a powerful attack comes flying in his direction. Rei manages to dodge the attack, but it destroys everything in its path, leaving a fiery after effect. With fear written all over his face, Rei looks up to see that the boss, Diamond Mantis, has noticed him already. Before he knows it, the mantis dashes toward him, but he manages to block the monster's attack. However, Rei finds it hard to hold on, and he finally lets go. He uses his speed to get out from under the overwhelming strength of the mantis. He activates the Soul Slash skill and leaps into the air to deliver a powerful blow to the mantis. However, this bounces off like it is nothing, and the mantis makes fun of him, telling him that he is weak. The mantis then launches a counterattack that sends Rei flying into the distance. He manages to land on his feet, but the damage to his body is evident. Rei teases the mantis, telling it that he wasn't expecting it to make an early appearance. The mantis then calls Rei a foolish human for coming to challenge it when he knows that he has no chance. The mantis asks Rei if he challenged him because he thought he could win, but Rei confesses that he already knew he had no chance. While discussing with the mantis, Rei is holding his dagger behind his back and he is attaching the soul thread to it. Even though Rei knows that he is completely dominated, he believes that there is a way out. The mantis then asks Rei if he is ready to sacrifice himself. The mantis prepares to deliver a crushing blow to kill Rei quickly because he at least tried his best. The mantis leaps toward Rei, and at the same time, Rei throws his dagger. The mantis dodges this, mocking Rei for thinking it is dull to fall for such cheap tricks. The mantis tells Rei that it was aware that Rei was up to something. The mantis assures Rei that he is going to suffer the consequences of his action. Realizing that the mantis is about to strike him, Rei activates Soul Reserve, which helps him to mitigate the damage of the mantis's strike. Suddenly, the mantis notices something weird happening behind it. It turns around to see a beetle burning behind it. Apparently, When Ray threw his dagger earlier, he was aiming for the beetle while using the soul thread to guide the strike. With Ray killing the beetle, he completes the conditions for the complete soul. Ray obtains the rock soul type B, and he immediately begins item creation. The system asks him to select the catalyst soul he wants to use, and Ray selects his own soul. The system accepts this and welcomes him to the world of the complete, where he can create the item he wants.